The purple-haired woman commands Ian to stop immediately. Ian insists on leaving as he walks away, ignoring her.
A sudden firm grip sounds as a hand is seized.
Ian stops and addresses Annabelle, causing her to gasp in surprise.
Annabelle asks for clarification after Ian tells her to proceed. Ian stares intensely and requests that she insult him further. Annabelle stands frozen in a moment of pure shock. Annabelle berates Ian for his insanity, questioning if she accidentally poisoned him. She wonders why the man is acting so strangely. Leonard bursts through the door, shouting Annabelle's name. Leonard demands she wake up to begin her dawn training.
A stern voice warns that this is her final opportunity.
Annabelle flinches at the threat of remaining an illegitimate child.
Leonard asks if she intends to lose to Ian again.
Annabelle turns over with a frustrated rustle of sheets. She wakes with a heavy sigh, cursing Ian Waterrose.
Leonard shouts excitedly about a monster standing right there.
Looking manic, Leonard claims to be working hard for her sake. He laughs while promising she will win the title. She reflects on realizing she is inside a book.
She laments that her brother's secret meddling will ruin them.
As Leonard brags about his interference, Annabelle tells him to be quiet.
Leonard reacts with shock as she orders him to leave. Leonard yells in disbelief as Annabelle reaches for an object. A heavy metallic sound rings as she pulls a sword. An oppressive darkness fills the room during the confrontation. Leonard threatens her with expulsion if she does not comply. Smiling coldly, she warns she might accidentally cut his hair. Terrified, Leonard scrambles away as fast as possible. Leonard flees while shouting a hollow threat for her to wait. Annabelle collapses onto the bed with a tired sigh. She stares blankly, criticizing her brother's habit of exploiting her.
She recounts her birth as an illegitimate noble child.
A large bounty sits before the mansion. Her mother received a fortune for giving birth. Despite the luxury, her mother obsessed over their social status. Success in the upcoming competition was her only hope. Surrounded by nobles, she felt completely out of place. Her wardrobe contained only simple, worn-out garments. She trained relentlessly under the hot time. Foul-smelling, poor-quality food is served. She forced herself to eat poorly to stay light. A calloused hand reflects years of training. She clenches her fist, frustrated by always being second. She believes defeating Ian is an impossible task. She wishes she had been reborn as someone else. She curses being reincarnated as the hero's rival. Fearing a prison ending, she vows to change me. Imperial Knights stand ready for the competition. A pen records the shifting narrative. The pink-haired man asks Ian if life has felt unusually quiet lately. He reminds Ian of a certain rival who used to curse at him daily before being kicked out.
While Leonard laments the lack of excitement, Ian dismisses the concern as total nonsense.
A quick tap sounds as Ian mounts his horse, telling his companion to stop talking so they can depart. Crowds cheer wildly for the passing carriage as the high priest waves to the people. Riding alongside Ian, Leonard wonders if Annabelle's silence means she is plotting something major. A dark thought surfaces regarding the possibility of a poisoning attempt. Ian warns that his only mercy lies in a duel. Otherwise, offenders will pay a heavy price. Leonard's attention is captured by a sudden sight as he notices someone familiar in the crowd. He points out a potential challenger, mockingly questioning if anyone would be so foolish as to duel now. Ian's eyes widen in shock as the purple-haired woman actually charges at him with her blade. A mental outcry accuses Annabelle Nadit of finally taking her rivalry too far. A horse's neigh rings out as daggers strike with a heavy thud, causing Leonard to cry out in alarm. Ian draws his blade just in time to clash against the woman's aggressive strike. Mid-combat, the purple-haired woman frantically asks what is happening during the chaos. Several small daggers are revealed to be embedded in the back of her garment. Ian freezes in confusion, letting out a startled exclamation as he realizes she has been hit. Looking at her injuries, Ian calls out to Annabelle with visible concern and disbelief. The confrontation pauses abruptly as the high priest watches from the background.
Annabelle realizes she moved on impulse and struggles to think of how to handle the situation.
A single, sharp gasp escapes someone's lips as the realization of the situation hits. Shouts fill the air as soldiers draw their blades to protect the high priest from a perceived attack. Panicked bystanders speculate if they are witnessing terrorism or an attack by extremists. Seizing the moment, Annabelle decides to claim she was defending the priest from an assassination plot.
A soft rustle sounds as petals fill the air, framing her dramatic and heroic pose.
She heroically declares the high priest safe, dismissing the poisoned daggers in her back as a minor inconvenience.
Having established her noble deed, she attempts to make a quick and clean exit.
The high priest urgently demands she stop, reaching out with a firm grip to grab her arm. Turning her around, he asks for confirmation that she is the famous Annabelle Nadit. With a nervous smile, she confirms her identity while sweating from the intense pressure. She inwardly panics, fearing the priest has discovered her actual plot with Leonard.
The high priest's mouth hangs open as he prepares to deliver an emotional verdict.
Overflowing with gratitude, the priest tearfully hails her as his brave lifesaver for her selfless act.
Annabelle stares in silence, stunned that her lie has been accepted so completely.
She quickly adopts a humble persona, claiming it was her absolute honor to protect him.
The priest sobs while vowing to repay her kindness, and she graciously accepts his overwhelming thanks.
As she tries to flee once more, Ian's voice rings out with a sharp command for her to wait.
Ian seizes her hand firmly, stating that her behavior today is remarkably strange.
He points out the suspicious timing of her arrival after she remained quiet for so long.
She defensively claims she did not help him on purpose, but Ian remains deeply unconvinced by her story. He notes that she usually insults him on sight, yet today she is being unnaturally quiet.
Recalling her past hostility, she realizes she must act like her usual self to avoid further scrutiny. She ponders what kind of distraction she can create before he discovers her true motives.
Her lips part as she begins to mutter a strange and nonsensical lead-in to an outburst.
She screams a bizarre curse about finding half a cockroach inside a sandwich to deflect his suspicion. She continues the rant, wishing that flying pigeons would drop parasites into his blonde hair.
Exhausted by her own performance, she takes a deep and shaky breath while looking away. She quickly sprints away while Ian and Leonard stand frozen in sheer, bewildered silence.
Later that night, Ian dries himself after a bath and lets out a weary, contemplative sigh. He remains troubled by the day's events, concluding that everything about her behavior was incredibly suspicious.
Ian realizes the attack wasn't meant for the high priest. The poison dart's trajectory was much closer to his own position. A sudden double tap sounds as a visitor waits outside Ian's door, prompting him to tell them to enter.
Leonard bursts into the room with an excited shout while Ian responds with a look of silent confusion.
Leonard teases Ian about his preoccupation with Annabelle while Ian glares at him in visible annoyance.
Sitting down, Leonard suggests that Annabelle might be executing a massive plan to steal all of Ian's achievements. Leonard wonders if she wanted to avoid a fair fight by injuring him, but Ian scoffs that Annabelle and fair competition are completely incompatible. Leonard suggests thanking her since she took a dart to the back, but Ian insists he could have dodged it easily without her intervention.
Recalling the sight of the daggers in her back, Ian remains stubborn, convincing himself he can handle things on his own. Ian reacts with explosive outrage, demanding to know why she would ever call him cute. Leonard clarifies that he was referring to the bizarre sandwich-related curse she yelled at him earlier. Ian stares blankly in confusion, questioning the nature of the supposed curse.
Leonard giggles as he mimics her warning for Ian to be cautious of sandwiches and pigeons.
Leonard gives a playful sideways glance while Ian asks what he wants now.
Ian shouts for Leonard to get out, and Leonard flees in mock terror, claiming that Ian is being scary.
A heavy thud sounds as Ian slams the door shut on his meddling friend. Ian stands alone in his room, looking downward in a moment of quiet reflection.
He looks at the floor, wondering to himself where Annabelle might have gone.
Ian falls backward onto his bed with a tired, heavy sigh.
He slumps against the bedsheets, looking thoroughly exhausted by the day's events.
The rhythmic ticking of a clock fills the room as Ian's eyes suddenly snap open. A sharp ding rings as Ian pulls a bell cord, and a butler quickly enters to ask if he was summoned.
Ian instructs the butler to check on Annabelle Nadeed's condition immediately, and the butler agrees to the task.
Ian demands it be done right now, and the butler hastily confirms his understanding.
The scene shifts to the silent, moonlit exterior of the grand mansion.
Riyadh confronts Annabelle with a look of fury, demanding to know why she blocked the poison dart he intended for someone else. Annabelle retorts that their secret was nearly exposed and insists that Riyadh should be expressing gratitude toward her instead. Riyadh reacts with a sudden realization, his expression shifting as he considers his next move.
Looking manic, Riyadh decides they must proceed with the original plan they discussed together, laughing with a sinister air.
Riyadh declares the start of the hibiscus explosion plan, leaving Annabelle looking completely stunned.
The credits roll over a clean, minimalist backdrop.
Walking through the hall, Annabelle reflects on how Riyadh is only interested in his own personal gain.
Flashback, Riyadh laughs about gaining noble status through their operation while Annabelle watches him with a weary expression.
Annabelle gazes intently, remembering the cold reality of her brother's ambition.
Flashback, Annabelle's mother stands with her arms crossed, calling out her daughter's name.
The mother scolds Annabelle for neglecting her training and pressures her to win the upcoming competition at any cost. The mother blames Annabelle for the entire family's unhappiness, causing her to look down in shame.
The mother demands she sign a contract transferring her inheritance to Riyadh to prove she isn't a regret, and Annabelle quietly agrees. The mother explains that the transfer is necessary to prevent Annabelle from being sold off to another family.
She promises to return the rights after the competition is won, telling Annabelle not to worry about the arrangement.
A hand reaches out to pass a pen to the young woman. The mother pats Annabelle's head and calls her a good girl while she signs the inheritance over to her brother.
A solemn vow emphasizes that she must grow strong for the sake of the family's happiness. A sharp, high-pitched ring sounds as metal strikes metal. Annabelle trains relentlessly in the garden, gripping her sword as sweat pours down her face. She lets out a sharp cry as she strikes a wooden practice dummy with all her strength. Looking at her palm, she sees that it is covered in raw, bloody blisters from her training.
Annabelle looks at her hand with a pained expression, wondering if she pushed herself too far.
Riyadh's cheerful shout to his mother echoes through the training grounds. Riyadh and their mother plan a shopping trip and lunch together, completely ignoring Annabelle as they praise each other's kindness. Annabelle stands alone in the background, her body trembling with a mixture of pain and silent resentment. Her hand reaches for a handkerchief. Annabelle wraps her bleeding hand before gripping her sword hilt with a sharp click. A desperate vow to try harder echoes through the dark. Riyadh suggests winning first place to show their late mother, and Annabelle promises to help her only sibling despite their different fathers. She remains focused on proving herself to her mother's memory. She believes that winning the competition is the only path to true happiness. A bitter thought reveals her deep resentment toward Ian Waydross' existence. Shattered memories of her family's smiles fall away with a sharp clink.
Recalling her past aggression, Annabelle realizes she was always the one bullying Ian at every turn.
She acknowledges that her family only valued her to satisfy their own bottomless greed.
Walking alone, she decides that being family doesn't make her relatives right.
A door opens with a take. Annabelle declares her new intent to live solely for her own happiness from now on. She prepares to take the first step toward her goal. A fiery determination fuels her promise to dismantle all of Riyadh's planned schemes.
Elsewhere, Riyadh wonders if people are gossiping about him while he enjoys a party.
Dull thuds fill the air as soldiers train relentlessly at the Waydross Mansion training grounds.
Aaron brings a tray of food, telling Ian he worked hard and offering a special snack. He explains the sandwiches were a personal request from his father, the head chef.
A freshly prepared triangle sandwich. Aaron cheerfully presents the food while Ian tells him to shut up unless he wants to be hit with that special snack.
Soldiers chatter while resting from training.
While eating, Aaron asks Ian if Annabelle is currently okay or if she is bedridden.
Ian insists she is fine, causing Aaron to question how he could possibly be so sure. A boot stomps firmly on ground.
A loud shout of Ian's name startles everyone at the training grounds.
Annabelle makes a dramatic entrance, announcing her arrival with a powerful thrum. Ian reacts with shock, his hand instantly going to his sword hilt with a sharp click. Annabelle orders everyone to step back because she is the only one who can compete against Ian, while Ian wonders why it has been so quiet until now. The two rivals exchange a formal and respectful bow. Ian is baffled by her lack of a reckless, immediate assault. He draws his blade, vowing not to be fooled by any potential sneaky tricks she might have prepared. A golden tea set among roses. Duchess Leslie Waydross is stunned to hear that Oscar actually made a sandwich. Hearing Aaron requested them for the knights, she slams the table and demands her own immediately.
The maid explains that all the sandwiches were sent to the training ground, leaving the Duchess in shock. Leslie suddenly springs up, declaring she must go to the training ground immediately. White clouds drift through blue sky.
Swords clash with a ringing clan.
Leslie arrives, surprising a soldier who asks what brought her to the training area.
Putting a finger to her lips, she tells him to be quiet because the situation is very interesting. A hand snatches up a sandwich.
As she eats, Leslie looks at Annabelle and reflects on the child's history. She recalls rumors of Annabelle being the daughter of the fallen Marquis Abetis and his widow.
Amidst the clashing blades, the memory of people pitying the illegitimate child of the Marquis Abetis resurfaces. She smiles as the swords clash.
A flashback shows a younger Leslie kneeling in defeat on a grand stage with a pained groan.
Her red eyes flare with intensity.
Looking up at a blonde man, she reflects on how those words weren't unfamiliar to her.
A look of deep, silent reflection.
Ian parries a strike as he considers Annabelle's surprisingly intense competitive scare.
Leslie explains that Annabelle used to visit daily for duels, but Aaron notes she was absent for several days before returning today.
Aaron adds that she was seen guarding the high priest yesterday, which catches Leslie by surprise.
Leslie finds the lack of security strange while Annabelle falters mid-training, allowing Ian to spot a critical opening as a sudden wish of air follows his movement.
Metal rings out with a sharp clink as Ian exploits the gap, clawing his blade against Annabelle's in a quick exchange.
Watching the match from the sidelines, Leslie wonders if Ian intentionally missed his chance to strike.
A moment of quiet realization reveals that both fighters seem to be lacking their usual enthusiasm.
Annabelle suddenly pulls back and sheaths her sword, declaring that she is finished for the day. Ian accuses her of using one of her hundreds of dirty tricks by pretending to retreat only to charge back.
Leslie internally notes that Ian must have actually taken the time to count every single one of his rival's tricks. Annabelle briefly states that they will continue their match tomorrow.
She walks away while setting a formal time of 7 p.m. for their next meeting.
Her attention is taken by the sudden heavy thud of a boot stomping the ground. Ian reacts with a look of genuine surprise and alarm.
He grips his sword hilt tightly, fully expecting a sneaky ambush from his rival.
Leaning close to his back, Annabelle whispers a warning for him to avoid going to Hibiscus tomorrow night.
Ian is left bewildered by her cryptic message as she maintains a stoic, unreadable expression. Annabelle warns him that arguing about the matter would be a complete waste of time.
Leslie watches with growing curiosity as the two rivals whisper intensely to one another. Her hands fly up as Annabelle suddenly shouts, accusing Ian of ignoring her duel request with a sharp slap of her hand. Annabelle screams a bizarre curse that on a rainy day, Ian might step in a puddle and have worms crawl into his shoes. Ian is baffled by the strange insults as she wishes for him to drink muddy water splashed by a garage wheel.
A quick dash sounds as Annabelle flees the training ground at a full sprint, leaving everyone else stunned.
Leslie wonders if these pathetic insults are really the extent of the girl's famous sharp tongue.
The sun sets over the quiet exterior of the Hibiscus Tavern.
Disguised in a cloak, Ian sits alone in the tavern, admitting to himself that he couldn't help but come. He decides to avoid drinking anything just in case there is a trap waiting for him.
A deafening roar fills the arena during a flashback to a major event years prior. Ian recalls meeting Annabelle 8 years ago during the final round of a sword competition.
The match begins as younger Annabelle lunges forward with intense, youthful determination. A sharp clang rings out as the two children's training swords collide with full force. A quick, agile step shifts the balance of the duel as a boot pivots on the sand.
Young Ian watches his opponent's movements carefully as she prepares another strike.
With a sudden clatter, Annabelle's sword is knocked high into the air and she gasps in defeat.
Young Ian stands victoriously as his opponent looks on with a pained expression.
Reflection on the past reveals that he considered his victory an obvious outcome due to his superior skill. When Ian offers a hand in sportsmanship, Annabelle reacts with explosive rage and tells the bastard to get lost.
Back in the present, Ian remains seated at his table in the tavern, lost in thought.
He ponders the reason behind Annabelle's recent and drastic change in her behavior toward him.
He remembers the sight of her back after she took a poison strike meant for him without hesitation. A sudden, sharp crack sounds as Ian realizes their recent duel lacked any of her usual aggression.
Boom! A massive explosion rocks the tavern, sending debris and flames everywhere as people scream in terror.
Amidst the rising smoke, panicked voices shout that the west wall has completely collapsed.
A tavern employee rushes toward the wreckage, frantically asking if anyone was caught in the blast.
Rising from the floor, Ian reassures the man that he is fine despite the chaos.
Ian's eyes snap wide as he realizes the significance of the destroyed west wall. Recalling her specific warning about that exact wall, Ian realizes Annabelle knew the explosion would happen.
Slam! Ian bursts through the door to the street with a frantic sense of urgency. Running through the night, he questions how she could have possibly predicted the wall's collapse. Ian's face is filled with worry as he prepares to find Annabelle, but a voice suddenly calls his name.
Annabelle sits perched on a tree branch amidst blooming flowers under the crescent moon.
Approaching the tree, Ian looks up and asks if she was looking for him.
Annabelle looks down in silence as Ian begins to speak again.
Annabelle suddenly shouts, calling him a stupid blonde guy holding a fort.
A wide shot shows the two rivals meeting in the quiet night outside the tavern.
Ian is left momentarily speechless by her sudden verbal outbursts.
Annabelle asks if his brain cells are fresh before deciding to leave things as they are.
Her boots hit the ground with a sharp tap as she drops from the tree.
Annabelle points a finger at him, cursing him to stub his toes so hard his pinky nail dangles and makes him scream internally whenever he wears shoes.
Ian is completely bewildered as she suddenly turns and dashes away into the night. He shouts for her to stay where she is, but she is already gone. A hand suddenly catches his arm with a soft thud as someone calls his name.
Ian turns around in surprise to find a hooded figure standing behind him.
The mysterious person remains hidden beneath the shadows of a dark cloak. Seeing the visitor, Ian offers a respectful greeting while the man notes his arrival and Ian reassures him that he is unhurt. The man reaches up to lower his head. Prince Robert Nero's Hymerian reveals himself, expressing his relief that Ian is safe.
He suggests they move immediately because too many eyes are watching the area.
The scene shifts to the dark alleyways of the quiet city. Robert explains that someone planted explosives in the shop, concluding it was a terrorist attack specifically targeting him. He admits he tried to move in secret, but it appears his true identity was compromised. He reasons that no one would target a swordsman of Ian's caliber with such a small bomb, especially since Ian has no real enemies. Ian reveals that someone actually warned him about the impending danger in advance. Surprised and impressed, Robert asks who could have possibly given him such a warning. Ian identifies the informant as Annabelle Nadit, leaving the prince in a state of visible shock. Robert falls into a pensive silence as he processes the name of his rival's family.
He reflects on the political situation where Marquis Abedez represents the Crown Prince's faction and Robert's own brother is constantly looking for ways to kill him.
Ian points out that since Annabelle is the Marquise's daughter, she should have no motivation to save the prince from a terrorist plot. Robert asks Ian if he is truly unaware of how the Marquis actually treats his daughter. He explains that when Annabelle was born, the Marquise simply gave her mother some money to end the matter, and even that sum was stolen by her half-brother. Robert concludes that if he were in her position, he certainly wouldn't be loyal to the Marquis either. Regardless of the reason, the prince admits it was fortunate that she chose to warn them. Ian considers the grim reality of her family situation while wondering why she would move politically in such a way. Robert addresses Ian again as they prepare to conclude their meeting.
With a bright smile, the prince asks Ian to bring Annabelle along the next time they meet so he can thank her in person. Ian reacts with a look of pure, horrified disbelief at the prince's request.
Night falls over the grand exterior of the Abedez mansion. Inside, Riyadh paces the floor frantically, consumed by visible anxiety and restlessness. The door opens with a sharp click as Annabelle finally returns home. Riyadh rushes toward her, desperately asking how the plan went and if Ian is finally finished. Annabelle flatly states that the plan failed, causing Riyadh to recoil and shop. She dismisses the bomb as a minor threat, claiming she could have easily avoided it, even with her eyes closed. Riyadh bites his finger in frustration, cursing their bad luck. He tries to stay optimistic, claiming they will have more chances, but Annabelle ignores him and turns away. She repeats the phrase "more chances" to herself with a cold, focused expression. Annabelle realizes that neither she nor Riyadh knew Ian was meeting Prince Robert, and had the explosion succeeded, she would have faced execution for regicide.
A heavy thud echoes as she imagines the noose, realizing the plan would have led straight to an execution ending.
She enters her room and leans against the door with a tired thud. Sighing heavily, she wonders who could have predicted that Ian and Robert were such close friends. Collapsing onto her bed, she worries that they will demand an explanation tomorrow, and wonders what excuse she can possibly invent. Annabelle worries about the leak while Ian demands to know where she got her information. Frustrated by the situation, the girl yells for everyone to just forget it.
Resting in her room, Annabelle resolves to curse out anyone who dares to nag her.
The next day, an elegant green carriage arrives at the estate. Looking surprised, the purple-haired girl asks if she really has a visitor waiting.
The pink-haired man introduces himself as Aaron Rainfield.
Swallowing nervously, she wonders if Ian's adjutant is visiting because of the recent tavern incident.
Annabelle asks what would bring a person like Ian's adjutant to see her.
A bright "ah" sounds as the man offers a warm, cheerful smile. He explains that Lady Leslie wishes to see her and he has come to escort her. Annabelle realizes with a shock that Lady Leslie is the Duchess and Ian's mother. A quick clatter sounds as the horse-drawn carriage begins its journey. Inside the carriage, Annabelle sits in tense silence while the man hums contentedly. She panics internally, wondering why Ian's mother summoned her and if her curses are the cause. The man watches her sweat in silence as they travel together.
Annabelle stares back at him with an intense and questioning expression.
Aaron admits he has been very impressed by the girl's recent colorful curses. He confesses that while her old insults were too crude, her recent ones are different. The man declares that every curse since the sandwich incident has been an absolute gem. He adds that he has also been very impressed with her recent training progress. He reiterates that he found her older insults to be far too crude for his taste. Aaron declares that her most recent curses have become true masterpieces. The pink-haired man continues to offer a pleasant and friendly smile. He admits that he doesn't want to miss a single thing she says anymore. Annabelle is left completely bewildered and aghast by his strange admiration. She recalls seeing Aaron once before during a past swordsmanship competition. Aaron remembers his disheartening match against Ian during that normal tournament. The man notes he isn't a subordinate as Annabelle asks what business Leslie has with her. Aaron explains the importance of the lavish lunch invitation his father prepared. Annabelle is stunned to learn that his father is the famous Oscar Rainfield. The purple-haired girl questions if this man is truly a famous person. A shocked voice asks how she could not know the Empire's best restaurant. Aaron is stunned the Nadeed family had birthday dinners there without her ever knowing.
Annabelle hums as she tries to process the confusing new information.
The man gives 2 thumbs up, promising that she will definitely love the meal. Annabelle worries about the social pressure of eating in front of a duchess. Suddenly determined, she declares that she can definitely handle the situation. A magnificent spread of gourmet dishes is laid out across the dining table. Leslie smiles, noting that the food seems to suit her guests' taste perfectly. Leslie explains hiring Oscar took 3 years, while Annabelle finds the meal amazing. A sharp click echoes as the dining room door is opened. Serving the main dish, Aaron introduces his father, the master chef Oscar Rainfield.
A quick swish sounds as Aaron prepares his sharp knives with professional precision.
He performs a dazzling display by slicing the meat in mid-air with incredible speed. Aaron presents a top-grade ribeye steak to the stunned Burl. Leslie remarks on Aaron's sword skill, noting his mother is also an expert with knives. Annabelle claims it is the best food ever, unlike the frozen monster meat she usually eats. Horrified, Leslie asks if she really ate forest monsters as Annabelle casually confirms. The Duchess asks if slum meat is the reason the girl is so skinny. Annabelle frantically denies neglect, shouting they happily ate monster meat for every single meal. Leslie and Oscar Rainfield are horrified to learn Annabelle was fed forest monsters 3 times a day. Annabelle shouts that it was even worse because leftover food was frequently sent to their rooms. Leslie is appalled that the girl was ordered to eat scraps while Oscar looks on in disbelief. Looking determined, the chef tightens his white glove as a soft swish sounds. Oscar is deeply moved and frustrated by the revelation of her eating monster meat for every meal. Handing over a card, Oscar invites her to eat comfortably as Annabelle offers a quiet, stuttered thanks. Leslie declares that people who don't provide proper meals are truly terrible, while Annabelle admits her family is trash. Duchess Leslie commands Oscar to bring out even more food as the chef enthusiastically agrees. A soft slosh sounds as dark tea is poured into an elegant porcelain cup. Leslie offers a pleasant smile while suggesting they finally move on to the main purpose of their reading. Annabelle's hand trembles with a sharp clatter as she prepares for whatever serious topic comes next. A moment of tension passes as the Duchess prepares to get straight to the point.
Leslie asks why she saved Ian, causing Annabelle to spit out her tea in absolute shock.
Trying to play it cool, the girl wipes her mouth and asks what misunderstanding the Duchess is talking about. Leslie presents her evidence, citing the carriage escort and the previous night's tavern attack as her clues.
The Duchess concludes that Annabelle saved her son, but the girl vehemently denies it due to their rivalry.
Leslie reveals she was at the training ground to see the warning given to Ian, leaving Annabelle gasping in surprise.
The Duchess explains that although she is not a swordswoman, she possesses a refined ability to sense energy.
Leslie asks for the truth of the situation while Annabelle remains in a tense, silent sweat. Looking down, the girl finally admits that she accidentally stumbled upon information regarding the terrorist plot. Leslie processes the confirmation that Marquis Abetis was behind the attack as Annabelle continues to sweat nervously. The dining room door is thrown open with a sudden loud bang.
Ian bursts into the room demanding to know why his mother summoned Annabelle Nadit to their home.
Annabelle is immediately annoyed by his presence as Ian refers to her as a rascal.
Slapping the table with a heavy thud, the girl stands up and shouts that the current situation is unfair.
Annabelle declares with fiery passion that she is the only person who is allowed to defeat Ian. She shouts that she hates seeing him get clumsily injured because it prevents her from beating him fairly.
Realizing she just shouted her inner thoughts out loud, Annabelle gasps in embarrassment while Leslie is amused.
Leslie claps her hands in delight, finding the girl's pride and competitive spirit to be absolutely perfect.
The Duchess sees her guest as a noble figure, praising her for embodying the true chivalric spirit of their family.
Leslie romantically interprets the rivalry as a desire to defeat an opponent only when they are at their best.
Annabelle laughs awkwardly and plays along while Ian tells his mother to stop the embarrassing talk.
A silent thought reflects on the irony of Ian viewing his rival as someone far from fair.
Leslie scolds her son, telling him that it is very rude to keep bringing up her second-place status.
Ian is left speechless as Annabelle looks back at him with a knowing glance.
The girl taunts Ian by sticking out her tongue, leaving him fuming with silent irritation.
Annabelle stands up quickly as the meeting draws to a close. Pointing a finger at Ian, she tells him that the good meal put her in a mood to give him a small curse.
She curses him to sing power ballads in the shower, only for Aaron Rainfield to walk in and hear everything. Smiling brightly, Annabelle bids them farewell as Leslie calls out her name one last time.
The girl walks away with steady steps, wondering if her behavior was too harsh for a parent to witness. A quick grab sounds as Leslie catches her hands, apologizing and insisting she cannot leave just yet.
Surrounding her with flowers and sweets, the Duchess declares that she must take the dessert home with her.
A title card marks the transition into the next segment of the story. A large white box is opened to reveal a beautiful cake topped with fresh strawberries and cream.
Annabelle holds the box with a look of stunned gratitude, offering another quiet thanks.
Oscar asks if she dislikes the flavor, but the girl frantically waves her hand to deny any dissatisfaction.
She is overwhelmed by the full-course lunch and the cake, wondering if she truly deserves such kindness.
Oscar watches her with a look of genuine pity, clearly affected by her humble and grateful reaction. The chef bows respectfully, explaining that the cake was a special order from the Duchess herself to ensure she was happy.
The purple-haired girl's eye widens in a sudden, sharp gasp of surprise. A decorative floral arrangement frames a delicate necklace in a moment of soft transition.
Smiling brightly as she holds the cake box, Annabelle says that she will enjoy it and offers her thanks.
Back at the table, a soft slosh sounds as Leslie takes a sip of her tea while Ian sits in silence. A quick clack echoes as the Duchess sets her cup down and calls out Ian's name.
Standing up in an angry outburst, Leslie asks how he can always miss the timing when she was about to start an interesting conversation with Annabelle.
The Duchess demands to know why he suddenly barged in and ruined everything.
Looking visibly fuming and irritated, Ian utters his own name in a low, frustrated tone.
Leslie notes with surprise that he is making quite a unique face.
A memory reflects on how he was always blunt since he was young and never showed interest in others. Looking moved, Leslie thinks that he is making such varied expressions and finds the situation to be a lot of fun.
Sparkles surround the Duchess as she offers a confused and curious gasp.
Ian glares with dark intensity as he asks why she has become so interested in Annabelle lately.
Leslie explains that she found the girl really cute after seeing her at the training ground, admitting she previously thought she was just a troublemaker.
Holding her cheeks, the Duchess asks Ian what he thinks about her lovely curses, leaving him in absolute shock.
Shivering in disgust, Ian shouts that he is not a pervert who enjoys being insulted and insists there is no way anyone would like it. Standing up with a heavy thud, the blonde man declares that they will never meet again after the swordsmanship tournament is over.
Leslie hums thoughtfully and asks if that is really so, while Ian begins to say something else.
With a cold look, Leslie declares that they must go their separate ways, causing Ian to shout out in surprise.
Letting out a tired sigh, Ian rubs his head and asks why his mother is acting this way while she simply calls his name.
Leslie holds her cup with both hands and thinks about how that kid is constantly on her mind.
The Duchess notes that the girl only eats epper meat for her meals.
Watching her guest leave, Leslie thinks that she cannot just stand by and watch that happen. Leslie is stunned as she realizes something, wondering if Ian meant to tell her that he met her every day without knowing.
A thought questions how he could have met him every day and not known at all.
Ian looks startled as a sudden realization hits in.
Clenching his fist, he thinks about how often they bumped into each other.
Ian stands up with a quick thud, causing Leslie to call out his name in surprise.
Walking away with a dark expression, Ian says that he is going to train his swordsmanship.
A heavy thought lingers on the fact that he didn't know the truth at all.
Leslie blinks in confusion and offers a distracted confirmation.
A soft slurp sounds as the Duchess drinks her tea, thinking that she cannot understand her son, even though he is her own child.
Aaron enters the room with a cheerful smile, asking if Lady Leslie called for him.
Leslie confirms she has a lot to tell him, causing Aaron to ask with excitement what it is. A loud shout of disbelief echoes through the grand garden estate.
Walking through the flowers, Aaron is amazed that Lord Ian was huffing and puffing, while Leslie admits she is disappointed she couldn't show him.
Leslie asks Aaron if he can visit a boutique tomorrow because she wants to get a gift for Lady Annabelle.
Imagining the girl in a fancy gown, the Duchess remarks on how pretty Annabelle looks when she is dressed up.
A soft scratch sounds twice as Leslie laughs, but Aaron hesitates and asks if tomorrow's appointments are full.
Looking troubled, the pink-haired man says that is not the reason for his hesitation.
A silver locket opens to show a baby with purple hair as Aaron notes that tomorrow is his sister's Memorial Day.
Leslie watches Aaron with a look of silent realization and concern. The Duchess realizes her mistake and quietly acknowledges the significance of the date.
Offering a gentle smile, Aaron reassures her that it is okay. A cluster of blue bellflowers blooms against a bright background.
Ian steps out of a steaming bath, drying his hair while a soft woof sounds.
Sitting in the tub, Ian recalls Annabelle's curse about him singing in the shower while Aaron was listening.
Looking down at the water, he thinks about how he keeps getting concerned.
A floorboard emits a soft creak as he steps forward in his suppers.
Fully dressed and walking through the hall, Ian laments that he couldn't even ask about the hibiscus attack.
Annabelle declares with fiery passion that she is the only person permitted to defeat or harm Ian Waitrose.
Watching her outburst, the blonde man wonders if she is actually serious.
A soft thud sounds as Ian sits down on his bed to reflect on the situation.
Ian sits alone, admitting to himself that he harbors a deep hatred for Annabelle as well. He imagines his rival covered in bandages, worrying about what would happen if she were to be seriously injured. Startled by his own concern, Ian jumps up and shouts that such a thing simply cannot be allowed to happen. Crossing his arms, he reasons that if she were hurt, he would never be able to have a proper sparring match with her.
A soft realization hits him as he finally understands the sentiment behind her words, noting that one truly must see things from another's perspective.
A full moon hangs over the night sky as white birds fly through the clouds.
A quick top sounds as a carrier pigeon lands on a decorative windowsill.
Ian is alerted by a sharp whistle as he looks toward the window. A soft flap-flop sounds as he walks across the floor in his slickers. Reaching the window, Ian identifies the bird as the carrier pigeon belonging to Prince Robert. A soft rustle sounds as he retrieves a message, wondering if it contains information regarding the recent hibiscus terror attack. Upon reading the letter, Ian's eyes widen as he shouts out in absolute shock. The man remains silent as he stares down at the paper with a grim expression. The letter instructs him to bring Annabelle to their next meeting at a new location, reserving table 3 at the Red Brick House. A quick click echoes as he dips his pen into the ink.
A heavy thud sounds as Ian sits at his desk, preparing to write a response. A soft scritch sounds as the pen moves across the parchment.
He writes back explaining that Annabelle never listens to him, so the prince should assume it is unlikely she will come. An ominous thought questions if the prince would actually dare to meet the girl alone. Morning arrives as birds chirp over a building adorned with purple flowers. Annabelle gleefully eats a strawberry, exclaiming that the cake is absolutely delicious, even for breakfast. Sparkles surround the purple-haired girl as she holds a note and wonders if she should attend the meeting.
A memory shows her mother and Laird together, noting how they always celebrated each other's birthdays with great extravagance.
A soft creak sounds as a younger Annabelle enters a room, sadly reflecting on how they never once celebrated her birthday.
In the present, she tries to stay positive, telling herself she'll just find a handsome man next year while a compliment on her beauty lingers.
Walking through the house, Annabelle is surprised to see Laird sitting at a table with a wrapped gift.
Looking up from his tea, Laird notes that she has arrived just in time.
The girl stares back with a look of pure confusion.
Laird declares he is giving her the inheritance rights, while Annabelle stares at the gift box and wonders what is inside.
Sensing her departure, Laird asks where she is going and critiques her lack of training, while she hopes the gift might be for her birthday.
Annabelle retorts that Ian Waitrose trains every single day.
Slamming the point home, she tells Laird that since he is less capable than Ian, he should be working twice as hard.
A quick snap sounds as she reaches out her hand and calls her brother's name.
With a stern look, Annabelle demands her money, leaving Laird to shout out in total disbelief. Waving a document, Laird insists that he already gave her all the inheritance rights.
A frustrated thought explains that because of the inheritance setup, she has no money for new clothes and must wear the same 2 outfits.
Laird looks at his sister with a bewildered expression.
Laughing it off, Laird tells her all the money will be hers if she wins first place and asks why she is so distracted by such small things.
A dark shadow falls over Annabelle's smiling face as she wonders if she should just cut him down where he sits. Closing her eyes, she tells herself to hold back, reasoning that Laird is still better than the people from the Marquis family. Annabelle watches the backs of her family members as they stand together, distant and cold.
A heavy realization weighs on her as she thinks about those who consistently deny her very existence.
Clearing her throat, she decides she might let things slide if he at least remembers what day it is, despite her desire to cut ties. Giving a small wink, she asks Laird directly if he knows the significance of the current date.
Laird incorrectly guesses that it's the announcement for the tournament judges, before realizing that isn't until next week.
With a cold, flat expression, Annabelle simply states that today is her birthday.
Laird is left stammering in shock as he realizes he completely forgot.
Laird dismisses her birthday, saying it happens every year while the swordsmanship tournament is more important. The girl glares at her brother and demands the money. Laird suddenly remembers and mentions he has something for her birthday. Annabelle is horrified as Laird reveals he prepared an item to cripple Ian Waitrose.
Laird smugly asks if she is happy with the moose.
While Laird feels like a genius, Annabelle clenches her fist in quiet rage. A loud shout calls someone an idiot, threatening them with a proper education.
White roses bloom under a clear sky.
Annabelle is in awe of the Grand Rainfield restaurant.
She notes the building's massive size and thinks Oscar has truly succeeded.
A mysterious cloaked man approaches and asks if she came alone.
Annabelle is startled and demands to know who he is. The man begins to introduce himself as he reaches for his HUD. He explains that he is Robert Nerados Heimerin, the person she saved last night. The man fully reveals his face, identifying himself as Robert Nerados Heimer. Realizing his status, Annabelle is stunned to be standing before Prince Robert. Robert asks if he may join her since she is alone, catching her off guard.
Annabelle agrees to the proposal, thinking to herself about keeping her meal ticket.
A sudden bright ding rings out near the entrance. A waiter bows and welcomes them to the third branch of the Rainfield restaurant. Annabelle finds the service amazing as the waiter offers to help them to their seats.
The pair sits together at an elegant table surrounded by floating flower petals.
Annabelle notices the gold cutlery and wonders about Aaron Rainfield. Robert notes that the distinction between nobles and commoners is not significant here.
Looking at the menu, the prince recommends selecting course number 3.
Annabelle gasps in shock upon seeing that it is the most expensive item.
She accepts the offer, noting that he truly was born with a diamond spoon. A beautifully cooked steak dish is presented on a white plate.
Sparkles surround Annabelle as she prepares to eat with great excitement. Robert calls out to the girl to get her attention.
He pauses before the meal, saying he has something important to tell her.
A quick transition cuts through the air.
Several knights practice their swings, causing multiple thuds to sound.
A sharp whoosh sounds as a sword cuts through the air.
Ian strikes a wooden training dummy with a powerful blow.
He pauses to catch his breath, a soft clatter sounding from his gear. Ian turns his head sharply with a serious look. Standing in the training yard, Ian admits he feels somewhat empty today. He thinks back to how Annabelle used to burst in wanting to fight at this time. Looking down, the blonde man notes that she didn't show up today either. Ian questions himself, wondering why he is even thinking about Annabelle. A heavy sigh escapes him as he crosses his arms in frustration.
Aaron approaches and notes that time passes slowly when an anticipated event doesn't happen.
The pink-haired man excitedly shares that Annabelle finally included him in her curse. Ian wonders with a dark look if this behavior came from his mother.
Aaron plans to tell Annabelle he will learn stealth skills to meet her expectations.
Ian is shocked that he would suggest sneaking into her bathroom so confidently. Something catches the blonde man's attention as he turns at the start.
The thought questions if Annabelle has finally arrived at the training round.
Ian calls out Aaron's name as a man comes running through the wooden gates. Aaron is approached by a man claiming there is an urgent matter at the mess strat.
A soft whispering sounds as the man shares news with Aaron, while Ian notes that Annabelle was not the cause.
A quick pot sounds as Aaron tells Ian he must visit the restaurant immediately, prompting Ian to ask if it is serious.
The scene shifts to the third branch of the restaurant.
Ian stares forward with a look of pure shock. A realization strikes that Prince Robert and Annabelle are dining alone together. Aaron explains that the royalty arrived very suddenly. The timing is noted to be right after they declined a difficult position regarding Annabelle. Aaron decides he must attend the meeting as a representative since his parents are away. A sharp thud sounds as Ian places a hand on Aaron's shoulder and tells him to wait.
Ian declares with a serious look that he will accompany Aaron to the meeting.
At the restaurant, Robert tells Annabelle that he has something important to share.
Annabelle wonders silently if he has discovered the truth behind the hibiscus terror attack.
Robert smiles warmly, explaining that he wanted to personally express his gratitude to her.
Annabelle is taken aback, questioning why she is being thanked.
Robert explains that she was the one who informed him of the terror plan through Ian.
Annabelle realizes that both the Emperor and the Prince believe Marquis Abedes is the mastermind.
Remembering the original timeline where Robert faced execution, she accepts his thanks with a humble laugh.
Robert laments how disgraceful it is for blood brothers to attempt to harm one another.
A crisp slice sounds as Robert asks if she's on good terms with her own brother.
Annabelle laughs off the rumors, thinking privately about how her brother only cares about money. She looks at the staff and thinks it would be better to choose a new family from among them.
Annabelle smiles warmly at a handsome waiter, leaving Robert feeling confused by her sudden change in mood.
Robert mentions that he originally planned to meet with her, Ian, and another person, but decided against it.
When Annabelle asks why, Robert explains he didn't want her to feel burdened by the encounter.
Gossiping voices echo through the room as Annabelle asks the prince if he is feeling all right.
Robert gives a kind smile and assures her that she is welcome in his presence.
Robert laughs as he notes that Ian seems to dislike him, which is why he refused the initial invite.
Robert promises that he is telling the absolute truth.
Looking at her with interest, Robert remarks that he finds Annabelle to be a very intriguing person.
Annabelle is flustered by his handsome face, telling herself not to be fooled by his looks. She recognizes Robert as an extremely political man who only acts in his own self-interest.
Robert suggests they get along well from now on, while Annabelle resolves to keep her distance.
Annabelle excitedly calls for cake and dessert to finish their meal.
Robert agrees to the cake despite liking the ice cream more, while Annabelle reveals that today is her birthday.
Robert is stunned by the news and looks down at the menu in surprise.
A soft rustle sounds as Robert suggests they order something extra to go with the birthday cake.
Annabelle is horrified to see the price of a drink is higher than the entire course meal. Robert recommends a specific wine, which Annabelle accepts while assuming she will forget its name tomorrow.
Annabelle takes a delicate sip of the recommended red wine.
A sense of delight washes over her as she finds the drink incredibly delicious.
Sparkles surround the girl as she notes the wine is sweet and goes down as easily as a soft drink.
Robert raises his glass to toast Annabelle and thanks her once again.
A bright clink sounds as they tap their glasses together in celebration.
Annabelle happily notes this is her first birthday celebration drink and wishes that he never gets bitten by a mosquito again.
Robert is visibly moved by such a delicate and unique blessing.
Robert notes that they share a similar struggle in working tirelessly to be recognized by their families.
Annabelle recalls that Robert's mother was a foreign dancer and that he lacked a traditional support base.
The prince's past is revealed, showing how he worked to gain favor while others plotted his downfall.
Annabelle begins to address the prince just as someone else enters the scene.
A long, heavy breath escapes the blonde man as he observes the scene.
Ian stands tall and tense, calling out Annabelle's name as he approaches the dining table.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as a hand is placed firmly against the furniture. Standing over the table, Ian watches as Annabelle thanks Prince Robert for the celebration.
Annabelle beams with joy, noting that this is her first time receiving a celebratory drink.
Ian watches her closely, reflecting on how she used to be reckless and aggressive toward him.
Ian and Aaron stand before the seated pair, Ian looking down in disbelief at the girl.
The official story title is displayed in elegant gold lettering over a white background.
Annabelle is startled as Ian suddenly appears directly behind her chair.
The blonde man remains silent, casting a serious shadow over the dining table. Aaron bows deeply, introducing himself as the representative of the Rainfield family and apologizing for the delay.
Aaron formally greets the prince and asks how he enjoyed the meal, receiving a positive response.
After the prince confirms the food was excellent, Aaron turns his attention to Annabelle's experience. Annabelle's cheerful expression falters as she senses a sudden change in the atmosphere.
She notices the other diners in the restaurant are now openly staring at their table.
Annabelle imagines scandalous newspaper headlines and realizes rumors of her date will soon spread through society.
She mentally dismisses the social fallout, having no desire to join the nobility anyway. She reflects on a time when she thought status would earn her family's love. The scene shifts to a dark, quiet room illuminated only by a small lantern.
In a memory, Laird suggests that they should use a bomb to injure Ian. The man then suggests a poison needle as an alternative, asking for Annabelle's thoughts.
The flashback concludes with Annabelle feigning enthusiasm and agreeing that they communicate well. Returning to the present, she drinks her wine and concludes that all her past efforts were futile. Turning her gaze toward Ian, she asks if he has something to say to How.
Ian denies having anything to say, prompting Annabelle to set her glass down with a thud.
With a confident smirk, Annabelle challenges the blonde man to face her in a duel.
Ian looks at her stoically and eventually agrees to face her in combat.
Annabelle is pleased by his acceptance, admitting she was in the mood for some physical exercise.
She ignores Ian's confused look and insists on finishing the rest of her wine first.
Taunting him further, the girl claims that his glares don't intimidate her in the slightest.
Her hand moves toward her weapon, signaling her readiness to begin the fight.
Aaron shouts in a panic, desperate to stop a violent confrontation inside his restaurant. The pink-haired man begs them to take their duel outside to avoid damaging the property. Annabelle realizes Aaron is acting as a businessman rather than a pacifist. Aaron promises to cheer for her even if she loses, while Annabelle offers a small thanks.
Ian suggests they fight at the usual spot, which Annabelle realizes is at the Duke's mansion.
Ian explains that taking a horse will allow them to reach the location quickly. Ian leads a large black horse out and instructs Annabelle to get on first. Annabelle climbs onto the saddle, questioning why she is going so far just to lose again. Her eyes widen in shock as Ian suddenly mounts the horse right behind her. Annabelle is frozen in disbelief at the sudden and intimate physical proximity. The pair begins their journey together on the single horse, riding through the countryside. Annabelle screams in frustration inside her head about how incredibly uncomfortable the situation is. Ian remains silent as they ride, though he looks somewhat weary of the situation.
The blonde man reflects on how frequently they have been bumping into one another lately.
Annabelle demands that Ian keep his distance, while he insists he has no desire to be close.
Annabelle levels a bizarre curse at him, wishing he would get caught picking up a dropped cookie.
Ian flatly rejects the premise by stating that he doesn't even like cookies.
She then curses him to misalign his buttons, while Ian's vest is shown with many buttons. Ian watches her with a small, amused smile as she continues her typical energetic complaining.
A woman in a yellow dress notes that Ian always wears gray training clothes and she has never seen him in anything else.
A sudden clatter sounds as the woman asks if he only eats meat for his meals.
As they ride, Ian thinks her waist seems like it would fit in just one hand.
A sharp hoofbeat sounds as a voice questions if he is crazy for thinking of confronting Annabelle. Even on a desert island, it won't happen.
Ian is startled as Annabelle suddenly slumps against him on the horse.
Ian catches the girl as she begins to fall, shouting her name in a panic. He looks at her dazed face with a start. Annabelle groans that it feels hot and wonders if she had too much wine during the meal. She explains that this was her first time having a celebratory drink because it's her birthday. Ian looks at his hand in silence. A loud clatter sounds as a voice asks if it is truly her birthday. Ian reflects that facing someone with swords is inappropriate on their birthday. Ian suggests they postpone their duel for another time, while Annabelle trails off mid-sentence. Annabelle falls fast asleep against his chest, leaving the blonde man frozen in shock. Ian's eyes widen as he realizes she is passed out. He looks down at her and softly calls her name again. Ian grows frustrated, thinking that if she's trying to embarrass him, her strategy is working. Annabelle sleeps peacefully, unaware of his distress. The blonde man looks down at her with a bewildered expression. Realization strikes that she is completely asleep. A dark-haired woman asks if he decided to bring the girl here for the time being. Ian looks uncomfortable while Annabelle remains unconscious. Ian tries to explain the situation to the woman standing before them. The woman scolds him, saying he should have taken her home if she was that drunk. Ian is left speechless and confused by his mother's sudden reprimand.
The woman sighs, remembering that Annabelle would only have frozen meat to eat at her own home.
She gives a gentle smile and decides she will take charge of Annabelle's care. She curtly tells her son that he can leave now. Ian is pushed out of the room, loudly asking what his mother is thinking.
He pauses for a moment in confusion.
A soft click sounds as a hand closes the door. Ian watches from the hallway as his mother looks after the sleeping call.
A bright thud sounds amidst the floral decorations.
Ian reacts with absolute shock.
He wonders why he feels so strange, blaming his reaction on her hair.
The scene shifts to a grand bedroom where the woman watches over Annabelle. Annabelle sleeps soundly, still tightly clutching her sword in her arms. The woman looks down at the sleeping girl with a look of deep sympathy.
She notes how thin the girl has become and how she even hugs a weapon in her sleep.
Narration explains that as a noble heir, Ian is seen as far above a common girl.
The woman gently strokes Annabelle's hair, admitting she once felt the same way. She reflects on how Caitlin and Marquise Abedis are shameless and irresponsible parents. The woman regrets the long period of time she spent ignoring the girl. She clenches her fist, reminding herself that Annabelle has saved her son's life twice. Morning light shines over the grand estate.
Annabelle slowly opens her eyes in bed.
Looking up at the ornate ceiling, she realizes she is in a strange place. She suddenly jumps up in bed, frantically asking where she is. Annabelle remembers being with Ian and realizes with dread that she is at the Duke's manor. Annabelle wakes up in a panic, fearing she fell off the horse and died. She screams in terror, refusing to die so easily after surviving so many hardships. Leslie enters the room and warmly greets the girl, who is surprised to see her. The woman asks if she is in any pain, but the girl only wonders why she is here. Leslie explains that the girl simply fell asleep at their house, causing a wave of shock. Feeling like a complete mess, she is embarrassed while the older woman finds her adorable. A quick whoosh sounds as she bows and apologizes, but the woman stops her. Leslie offers a sympathetic smile, assuming that the girl must have a terrible hangover. Confused by the term, the girl stares back blankly as the woman explains her condition. A bowl of warm, hearty soup is placed before the girl. Her eyes light up as she realizes she is being served something warm. Leslie claps her hands in delight, praising the girl's intelligence for wanting a hot meal. The woman gestures grandly and suggests that they should both enjoy a detox together. A joyful laugh escapes the girl as she feels her spirits lifting. She holds the warm bowl with both hands, ready to eat.
While the girl enjoys the spicy tomato stew, the woman laughs at her enthusiasm.
Leslie asks what they should have next, leaving the girl completely caught off guard.
The woman encourages her to follow her instincts when deciding on the next course. They agree that something sweet should always follow a spicy meal.
The woman enthusiastically suggests they each finish an entire cake for dessert.
A soft sigh of satisfaction follows as she declares the meal was delicious. She thanks her host for the food, noticing that the older woman has finished her tea.
A quick, sharp tap sounds as the woman sets her teacup down firmly.
Leslie smiles and informs the girl that they need to go somewhere together immediately.
Confused, the girl asks for their destination, only to hear about another skilled swordswoman.
The woman joyfully insists they are going there right now.
Sweat beads on her brow as she desperately wishes she could just go home.
A loud clatter sounds as a carriage arrives at their destination.
The carriage stops and the driver announces their arrival to the mistress.
A soft thud sounds as the pair steps out of the ornate carriage onto the cobblestones.
Annabelle is awestruck by the beautiful, grand building standing before her.
A crisp click sounds as a high-heeled shoe steps onto the stone path. A regal woman with purple hair greets them, welcoming Leslie to her shop. She turns her gaze to the younger girl and welcomes her as well.
The girl is puzzled, wondering exactly who this new woman could be.
Leslie introduces Marilyn Rainfield, the owner of the Empire's finest clothing boutique.
A quick whoosh sounds as they bow to one another in polite greeting.
Narration reveals that the business owner is actually the wife of Oscar.
Rumors suggest the shop owner is quite skilled with a sword herself.
Marilyn examines the girl's attire and asks if they are visiting for a wardrobe change. Leslie complains that the girl's clothes are outdated while the designer agrees.
Marilyn notes that she's always seen the girl wearing the exact same outfit in public.
Annabelle defensively shouts that she actually owns 2 sets of clothes.
Both women are horrified to learn that she only has 2 outfits to her name. Realizing the situation is dire, they decide they have no time to lose.
They agree that they must hurry to start the girl's makeover.
The scene shifts inside as the girl is measured and fitted for a new wardrobe.
Marilyn admits that training gear is not usually her area of expertise.
Leslie suggests starting with formal wear and outsourcing the training clothes to another.
A fiery energy surrounds Marilyn as she vows to personally craft the perfect training outfit.
Marilyn asks if Annabelle is comfortable with the current plan.
Annabelle smiles brightly while expressing how very thankful she is.
The designer points to a sketch and suggests they start with that design.
A sharp whoosh sounds as Marilyn moves with artistic precision.
Annabelle is startled as a flurry of fabric surrounds her. She's amazed by the movements that remind her of a butterfly. Marilyn explains her ease with knives as the fabric follows the blade's path. The designer notes how the light purple color suits the girl's hair. Annabelle admits her family shares a hair color, but is not close.
She reflects that a better environment might have changed her path.
Marilyn mentions many colors that would look good on the purple-haired bro.
She promises to quickly finish a set of casual, everyday clothes.
Marilyn is delighted to finally replace the girl's old training gear.
A swift transition beat follows as the work proceeds.
The final touches are made with incredible speed.
A bright light reveals that the new outfit is finished. Annabelle is speechless as she sees herself in the mirror.
Leslie reacts with absolute shock and wonder at the transformation. Leslie tells her she is pretty while the girl asks for confirmation.
Leslie presents the beautiful pink dress as a personal gift.
Marilyn interjects, claiming she made the dress as her own gift.
The designer mentions delivering the rest of the wardrobe to the manor. Annabelle is conflicted as Leslie invites her to visit after seeing Ian. Leslie enthusiastically pulls the girl along for a celebratory dinner.
Annabelle is overwhelmed by the sudden plans for the evening.
A man plots to cripple Ian tomorrow using a mysterious item.
Annabelle realizes the dangerous deadline is set for tonight.
Panic sets in as she thinks about her missing item.
She recalls falling asleep at the manor while listed as the requester.
Dread fills her as she realizes she is officially identified.
A sudden whoosh sounds as she fears Ian finding the evidence.
She knows her reputation will be destroyed if he finds it.
A vision of ruin follows her desperate thoughts. She decides she must retrieve the dangerous item immediately.
The carriage rattles along the path toward the grand estate.
Annabelle asks for the location of Ian's room within the manor.
She makes up an excuse about building her fighting spirit.
Leslie smiles warmly, remembering when she was the same age. Leslie reflects on her unpredictable journey to becoming the mansion's mistress.
Annabelle asks if Leslie once competed against Duke Wade Ross.
Leslie clarifies that she was always in second place, just like Annabelle.
She admits her past annoyance toward the man she once competed against.
Leslie recounts her desire for a title when she was 21.
She remembers that year as her final swordsmanship competition.
The scene shifts to a few days before that fateful match.
A sudden thud sounds as her drunken father starts a fight.
The man leans over the edge of a high balcony. A chaotic blur marks a sudden and terrifying fall.
A heavy thud sounds as they both plummet from the window.
Leslie reveals she survived but could never hold a sword again.
She finds it a truly heartbreaking story.
Leslie finishes explaining her withdrawal from the final swordsmanship competition.
She recalls Duke Braden Wade Ross's reaction upon hearing the news.
Leslie laughs, noting he was very upset and refused to accept her withdrawal.
Annabelle asks if the Duke confessed afterward, but Leslie promises to tell her another time.
Their carriage arrives at the Grand Wade Ross Mare.
Leslie suggests they head straight to the dining room, and the girl agrees.
She looks toward the mansion with herself.
Her determination holds no matter the outcome.
Annabelle prepares herself for what comes next.
A bright light signals a transition.
She is determined to retrieve the item.
Ian sits alone in his study, distractedly reading a book.
He mumbles that she still hasn't arrived.
Ian quickly denies that he is thinking about Annabelle.
A cookie slips from his distracted fingers. His eye widens in sudden surprise.
A thud sounds as he catches it.
He is relieved to have caught it, imagining the girl scolding him for wanting to eat a dropped cookie.
Ian is startled by his own imagination.
He sighs and admits the situation is ridiculous.
Ian is frustrated by his preoccupation with a trivial curse.
He confesses to himself that he has been thinking of her all day. He wonders if she has used forbidden magic. A loud bang sounds as the door opens.
Ian turns in shock as the girl calls his name.
Annabelle stands in the doorway looking frantic.
She points at him with wide, frantic eyes.
She rushes over and grabs him, frantically asking if he is okay.
Her eyes are filled with strange intensity.
Ian is dazed to see her standing there.
He looks at her in bewilderment.
He remains silent while her presence overwhelms him.
A soft drip sounds from above.
Annabelle lets out a horrified gasp at what she sees.
She screams in terror that he's having a nosebleed. Narration explains that black magic requires blood from a hateful person of the opposite sex.
A memory shows the girl happily giving her blood to Liart in the past.
The magic was then cast upon a bookmark that had been ordered in her name.
The magic carries a curse that weakens eyesight. It is a terrifying magic that ultimately results in blindness.
Annabelle says she rushed over after dinner only to find him with a nosebleed.
She swallows hard, noticing that there is no bookmark in the book.
She must get him out of the room.
Annabelle asks why he's bleeding and tells him to go wash up quickly.
Ian wipes his nose and repeats a foy. He asks if she cast a strange spell on him, which she immediately denies with shock. She calls the idea nonsense and pushes him toward the bathroom. Ian watches her closely, finding her frantic behavior very suspicious.
He believes there is no way she would worry about him purely out of concern.
Ian demands to know her true reason for being there. Ian asks if she cast a spell, but she indignantly denies it.
Ian questions why she rushed to his room dressed like that.
Annabelle realizes she must avoid lying poorly to stay unsuspicious.
She shouts that she only came there to bother him.
A devious smile appears as she continues her charade. Annabelle kicks him, thinking he will surely dodge the blow. Shock as he fails to move. Ian scolds her as she panics that he didn't fotch it.
She frantically asks if he is unable to see her how.
Narration explains that bloodshot eyes signal the start of the curse. Annabelle demands to see his eyes while he tries to push her away.
Ian complains about her closeness as she reminds him they've clashed before. A sudden, sharp slip sounds as they lose their fetting.
The pair tumbles onto the bed in a chaotic mess. Intense, quiet tension passes between them. Ian remains stunned and silent by their unexpected proximity. Annabelle begins to speak, her mind racing to handle the situation. Ian stammers in confusion as she is startled by his reaction.
Annabelle screams his name, fearing the black magic is taking effect.
She pins him down, vowing to prevent a tragic ending. Ian lies bewildered, wondering why this is happening to him. Narration notes that as a prestigious heir, many women pursued him. He would always walk away, showing them no interest.
He previously cared for nothing except the path of swordsmanship.
Ian realizes with frustration that he cannot push her handwear. He notes she is the first woman to ever treat him this way.
Annabelle watches him closely, wondering what is wrong with him.
Sensing the awkwardness, she quickly scrambles off of him. Guilt washes over her as she feels she has done something bad. A single finger points as she prepares a defensive outburst.
Annabelle tells him not to misunderstand her sudden actions.
She declares she has no interest in his body, leaving him stunned. She warns him that she won't tolerate being insulted like that.
She worries privately that she might have gone too far.
Her focus snaps back to the dangerous bookmark hidden nearby.
She spots the cursed item tucked into a book on the table.
Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick tap sounded. Annabelle stands before the books, ready to seize the item.
She celebrates internally upon finding the bookmark at last.
She reaches out, hoping to retrieve it before Ian notices. A sharp flinch follows as her hand is suddenly stopped. She turns around quickly, questioning why he's acting this way. Ian asks if his body is really not good enough for her. Annabelle is left utterly stunned and confused by his words. Ian looks away with a serious and troubled expression. Annabelle is baffled by the intense look he is giving her. She quickly grabs the book as Ian wonders about her seriousness.
She puts on a bright smile and dismisses his concerns. She asks to borrow the book, leaving Ian in total bewilderment.
Annabelle claims she was eager to read the book in her hands. Muscular man on cover. Annabelle is horrified to find a book about understanding male muscles in his collection.
Ian calls out to her, breaking her focus.
Ian asks if she is suggesting his body is inferior to the illustration. Annabelle is rendered speechless by the awkward confrontation. Annabelle bluntly states that the muscles in the illustration are much larger than his.
Ian is shocked and insists that she must not know the truth. Annabelle lets the book slip from her grasp on purpose.
A sudden, loud crash sounds as the items hit the floor.
Ian jumps to his feet in the panic.
Annabelle feigns a foot injury while secretly locating the cursed bookmark. A rapid rhythmic tapping sounds as Ian rushes to help her while she hides the evidence.
She grips the item tightly behind her back.
Ian asks what is happening as he supports her.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as Annabelle blames him for her misfortune.
Annabelle prepares to jump from the balcony, claiming she needs to escape her bad luck. She turns back for one last comment. Annabelle points and yells that she hopes he gets a giant pimple tomorrow.
She wishes for the pimple to swell and last for 2 weeks.
A heavy thud sounds as she lands outside, reflecting on her defensive behavior. Ian leans over the balcony and calls for Nim.
Annabelle yells for him to stop following her.
She tells him to study his muscle book and hopes his hands become Itu.
Ian stands alone, looking bewildered and silent.
A satisfied smile crosses Annabelle's face.
She walks away humming, happy that the evidence is gone.
The scene shifts to her home, now filled with the noise of gambling.
Annabelle enters and complains that the house has become a gambling den. Leard is surprised to see her standing there.
A sudden sharp snap sounds as cards are played.
Leard complains that the game is becoming too much for him.
Liard demands that Annabelle follow him.
He repeats his command for her to come with him.
Liard asks what is wrong with her outfit.
Annabelle claims a fan gave the dress to her as a gift.
Leard reacts with clear skepticism.
He insults the dress, claiming it looks like cheap material.
Annabelle is privately furious at the insult to Leslie of Kift.
She asks if he checked their items, but he is confused by the question. She smiles and asks if the planned explosion was successful.
She explains how the explosion allowed her to retrieve the cursed bookmark.
A rhythmic clapping sounds as Leard celebrates their success.
A devious smile appears on her face as she speaks.
Annabelle asks if he wants to place a bet on a victory.
She admits that Ian is her only true competition.
She notes that her odds are currently low because of him.
A sudden metallic clinking sounds as Leard imagines becoming a millionaire.
Annabelle declares that all the property will belong to her after the match. She reflects on how the burden of being cared for by him is starting to bother her.
Annabelle tells her companion he can have all the money from betting on her.
Leard is surprised by her calculation, noting the high odds of 35 to 1.
Annabelle promises he will become rich, but he interrupts to mention a past conversation.
Leard recalls her mentioning a master of the sword who had lost their sight. Annabelle asks if he thinks she would actually lose to a blind Ian. A sudden, sharp swish sounds as Leard expresses his silent frustration.
Annabelle decides it is finally time to use their secret weapon.
Leard is puzzled by her vague reference to their hidden clan.
Annabelle clarifies she means the medicine they prepared as a backup.
A mysterious, shimmering liquid is poured carefully from a vial. Liard is reinvigorated, certain that victory is now assured.
A soft thud sounds as Annabelle flops onto her bed in the dark room.
Annabelle plans her final move, privately viewing her companion as a useless parasite. She imagines the day of the competition when her forfeiture will cause his bankruptcy. She gleefully envisions him living in poverty as punishment for his greed. At the mansion, the household discusses a book that suddenly exploded.
Ian's mother is confused that Annabelle took the hit and simply left.
Ian confirms her sudden departure, looking deeply troubled.
A heavy silence fills the room as Ian mumbles Annabelle's name to himself.
Duke Braden Wydros enters, asking about the lady who saved his son. Ian is hesitant to use the word saved, but his father insists on his mother's view.
His mother recounts Annabelle's interventions against a poisoned needle and a terror attack.
Ian suggests today was merely a coincidence, but his father remains skeptical. His mother expresses her deep gratitude for the girl's constant protection.
Duke Braden wonders aloud who would dare to target his son in such a way.
Ian's mother considers the potential enemies hidden behind the attacks. She suggests the incident might be a political warning regarding Prince Robert. Duke Braden notes that the unusual movements within the royal family lately are concerning.
He mentions a rumor of a private dinner between the prince and Annabelle.
Whispers of a secret plot to usurp the throne hang over the discussion.
Narration notes the danger of a loner like Annabelle swearing loyalty to a prince.
Ian is visibly unsettled by the thought of her serving another man.
A sharp metallic clinking sounds as 2 glasses of red wine meet in a toast.
Ian imagines the two sharing a quiet, conspiratorial dinner together.
A sudden shock strikes Ian as he imagines a wedding between Annabelle and the prince.
He is horrified by the idea that Annabelle has fallen in love with Prince Robert.
Ian stares into space, trying to convince himself such a thing is impossible.
A soft, quick dripping sounds as a nosebleed begins to trickle down.
His mother panics at the sight, frantically asking if he is injured somewhere.
Ian's father watches his son's peculiar expression with sudden, sharp focus.
He recognizes the look as his own expression from his younger days.
He realizes Ian has the same face he once had when thinking of Leslie.
Duke Braden worries that a political marriage would leave Ian with no true legacy.
A fiery determination consumes the Duke as he vows to make her his daughter-in-law. A rhythmic, quick tapping sounds as a cloaked figure sprints through the night.
Annabelle pulls back her hood, her eyes sharp with a hidden, grim purpose.
The scene shifts to the rowdy, crowded atmosphere of a gambling tavern.
A heavy bag of gold is handed over to the bartender. A devious smile spreads across Liard's face from under his dark head.
A heavy, dull thud sounds as he bets every coin he has on Annabelle Nadit.
Liard stands at the tavern counter while others question if his loyalty to his brother is the only reason for his confidence.
A public notice for the Imperial Swordsmanship Tournament displays the massive betting odds favoring Ian over Annabelle.
Liard dismisses the mocking men, telling them to get lost and not expect any favors later.
A red-haired man ridicules Liard for acting tough while only placing a small 10 gold bet.
The patrons gasp in disbelief as Liard reveals a bag overflowing with gold coins and jewels.
Liard stuns the onlookers by adding a house deed to his bet, raising the stakes significantly.
His companions call him crazy, asking if he is truly betting his entire fortune on the match. Liard tells them to shut up and watch, insisting that Annabelle will be the victor this time.
Annabelle watches from under her hood, shocked by the sheer intensity of Liard's determination.
She sits alone at a table, realizing that his reckless gambling actually benefits her plans. Her attention is caught by another notice as she spots something unexpected on the wall.
A betting board for the next emperor shows Prince Robert as a significant underdog with high odds.
Annabelle is baffled and intrigued to find people betting on the imperial succession. She calculates that a bet on Prince Robert would yield a massive 13-fold return.
Annabelle pulls out a high-end restaurant voucher, deciding to use it for her own gamble.
She rushes back to the counter and apologizes to Oscar, claiming this is all she can bet. She presents her VIP meal ticket with a bright smile, officially betting on the prince.
A decorative notice confirms her decision to bet on Prince Robert as the next emperor.
The clerk explains the high fee and the cancellation policy, which leaves Annabelle surprised.
Annabelle looks away with a sharp gaze, privately reflecting on Liard's greedy character.
Liard smirks in the distance as Annabelle finishes her business at the tavern counter.
Annabelle laughs to herself, certain that a greedy man like him would never cancel a winning bet.
Annabelle is suddenly startled as she senses someone standing directly behind her.
Prince Robert reveals himself and comments that her betting choices are quite impressive.
Annabelle turns around in shock, finding herself face to face with the prince in the rowdy tavern.
Her mind reels with a loud, surprised internal shout as she recognizes him.
Standing by a fountain, the prince asks if she is truly sure about betting her meal voucher on him.
As she tries to walk away, the prince catches her arm and asks for a moment of her time.
He expresses his gratitude for her support and asks for a way to repay her. Annabelle bluntly states that if he is to give her something, it should be something big.
The prince is momentarily bewildered by her bold request for a large reward.
He ponders for a moment and begins searching through his belongings for a suitable gift.
He pulls out an elegant white envelope and holds it out toward her.
He asks Annabelle if she will be his partner for a viewing of the opera.
Annabelle is left utterly speechless and covers her mouth in shock at the prestigious offer. The invitation is for a special opera performance titled Don't Go Crazy. He explains it is restricted to high-ranking nobles and is the setting for his final scheme with Liard.
Annabelle is thrilled, realizing she won't have to struggle to sneak into the event anymore.
They share a joyful moment as the booming of celebratory fireworks fills the air while she discusses the show. A silver coin glints in the air as the prince mentions leaving it there for her to find.
Annabelle playfully asks for a gold coin instead, but he dismisses the request with a smile.
The scene shifts to the quiet, moonlit bedroom of Ian Waitrose. Ian sits up in his dark room, admitting that he is unable to find any rest.
He closes his eyes and attempts to force himself to sleep. Chaotic visions of Annabelle shouting and acting wildly flash through his mind. Ian lies back down, but the intense thoughts of the girl refuse to fade. He bolts upright in bed suddenly, looking shocked and overwhelmed by his own thoughts. Ian clutches his chest as his heart begins to race with a frantic rhythm. He wonders why his heart is pounding so intensely just from the memory of holding her hand. Ian draws his sword in the dark, seeking a distraction from his confusing and powerful emotions. Ian paces his room frantically, yelling that he must shake off his distracting thoughts through intense training. A new morning begins at the training grounds as soft chirping sounds from the trees.
Annabelle is summoned back to the Duke's house where she sits while a servant tends to her bandaged foot.
Annabelle apologizes for her sudden departure yesterday, but Leslie is confused by the apology.
Leslie admits she feels guilty for letting her go since she was injured protecting Ian from danger.
When asked how her foot is doing, Annabelle says it is a bit swollen but perfectly fine. Leslie smiles warmly, expressing her great relief at the news. Despite the reassurance, Leslie still looks deeply concerned about the girl's condition. Annabelle gazes into the distance, privately wondering about the true identity of the exploding book.
She remains lost in her silent reflections about this strange incident.
Leslie asks if she has eaten breakfast, and when Annabelle mentions being full from last night, Leslie scoffs at the idea of considering that rotten meat as food.
Leslie warmly invites her to fill their stomachs together as she reaches out for the girl's face.
Annabelle looks touched by the kindness and offers a soft thank you.
A variety of delicious, high-quality meals are served to the pair. Once the main meal is finished, Leslie suggests they start a second round with dessert. Leslie cheerily invites her to sit for dessert while Annabelle addresses her as Lady Leslie. Annabelle thanks her for the hospitality, and Leslie notes she is just happy the food was enjoyed.
Annabelle reflects on the duty of a swordsman and the weight of leaving their blade behind.
Leslie suggests that she took something else instead, leaving Annabelle completely baffled.
The two shared a pleasant, lighthearted moment over their tea and snacks. A maid returns Annabelle's training clothes and sword that she had left behind at the mansion. Annabelle thanks her and prepares to leave, but Leslie calls out her name to stop her. Leslie offers a plate of chocolates, noting they are very delicious and contain cookies inside. Annabelle decides to eat just one chocolate before heading off for her training. A soft clink sounds as Annabelle takes a bite of the chocolate while Leslie watches. A servant enters to announce that Lady Marilyn has arrived.
Leslie is filled with excitement, exclaiming that the dress has finally arrived.
Annabelle, munching on her chocolate, realized she should make a quick exit.
As she tries to bid them farewell, Leslie looks back in surprise. Leslie tells her that since her clothes have arrived, she must stay to try them on.
Annabelle is stunned by the sudden and unexpected fashion request.
Leslie sips her tea while Annabelle announces that she is finally all done with the change.
Annabelle stands elegantly in a beautiful light blue floral dress with ruffles.
Leslie is enamored by the sight, declaring that the dress suits her perfectly.
Leslie promises to return her training gear soon as Marilyn looks on with a smile.
Annabelle hesitantly asked Leslie and Marilyn if they could help her with a request.
Both women encourage her to just speak up and tell them what she needs.
Annabelle explains that she was recently invited to an opera performance.
She admits she has never been to such an event and worries about what to wear to avoid embarrassing her partner.
Leslie asks who invited her, and Annabelle reveals the host was Prince Robert. A sudden shock strikes the room as both women shout the prince's name in utter disbelief.
They immediately declare the situation an emergency and begin looking for accessories.
Annabelle is put through an intense montage of trying on various lavish gowns and jewelry.
Completely exhausted, Annabelle groans that swordsmanship training would be far easier than this.
Leslie asks if she is close with the prince, noting the significance of being invited as his partner. Annabelle laughs it off, insisting it is just a one-time meeting that means nothing. She maintains a bright smile while claiming the politics of it are none of her business. Leslie remains silent, looking skeptical and deep in thought about the news.
Night falls over the grand mansion as the moon shines down on the quiet courtyard.
A sudden shock strikes Duke Braden as he hears the news of Annabelle becoming the prince's opera partner.
Duke Wardros instructs Leslie not to tell Ian about their discovery yet, prompting her to ask for his reasoning.
The Duke explains that a certain man appears to favor Annabelle and hopes that seeing them together will force Ian to acknowledge his own hidden feelings.
Leslie listens with a thoughtful gaze, processing the Duke's calculated approach to their son's romantic life.
She reflects that a more impulsive and direct method might actually yield faster results.
On the day of the opera, Prince Robert stands outside the grand venue looking sharp in his formal military-style coat. He turns his attention toward the entrance as someone catches his eye. The prince is momentarily stunned, his eyes widening in genuine surprise at the sight before him.
Annabelle appears in a breathtaking dark blue gown adorned with butterfly motifs, nervously asking if her look is too strange.
Prince Robert gazes at her with a soft, mesmerized expression and assures her that she looks absolutely wonderful.
He offers a charming smile, clearly delighted by her elegant transformation.
He remarks that if Ian were to see her in this state, he wouldn't be able to bring himself to point a weapon at her.
Annabelle laughs off the comment, firmly believing that Ian's intense dislike for her wouldn't be swayed by a mere dress.
Prince Robert chuckles, considering his remark to be the ultimate compliment, while Annabelle offers a grateful smile.
He asks for a blessing as a token of her appreciation, admitting that her words always have a positive effect on him.
Annabelle ponders for a moment, recalling mentions of a delicious fruit punch served after the performance.
She playfully wishes for seedless watermelon to be in his drink, a blessing that Robert finds highly amusing and endearing. The scene shifts to the interior of the magnificent opera house as a large crowd of nobles takes their seats.
Robert politely escorts Annabelle to her chair and receives a soft thank you as she settles in.
A servant delivers a tray of welcome drinks and finger foods to their private seating area.
Robert notes that while the snacks aren't as high quality as a top-tier restaurant, they are still quite decent.
Annabelle accepts her glass with a polite nod of gratitude toward the server.
Robert reassures her that the food is safe from poison because it has been pre-tasted, to which she simply agrees. Annabelle stares intently at her wine, privately considering the properties of a dangerous potion meant for swordsmen. She reflects on how such a substance can ruin a fighter's internal energy or even lead to permanent disability. A wave of concern washes over her as she contemplates the risks involved in their current environment.
Her resolve hardens as she realizes that ensuring Ian takes an antidote is her top priority.
Robert interrupts her thoughts to ask if she is familiar with the opera's story, prompting her to ask for the details.
He explains that the plot follows a gentleman's descent into madness and the resulting suffering of the woman who loves him.
Annabelle is taken aback by the darker aspects of the play, specifically the protagonist's strange new preferences.
She expresses disbelief that such a person could exist, even in a fictional setting.
Nearby nobles whisper behind their fans, wondering about the identity of the woman the prince has brought as his official partner.
They soon identify her as Annabelle Nadit and comment on how her beauty was hidden by her tournament attire.
Robert and Annabelle remain focused on each other, unaware of the stir they are causing among the spectators.
Robert turns back with a gentle gaze as floral patterns frame his thoughtful expression. He suggests she try the red wine, recommending it as a particularly good selection.
Annabelle declines the offer, explaining that she wants to stay sober due to her unexpectedly low tolerance for alcohol.
Robert is surprised to learn this is her first real experience with wine, and she confirms she hasn't had the chance before.
He finds her sobriety honorable, a sentiment that leaves Annabelle feeling confused and amused.
He points out the significance of him being the source of her first birthday wish and her first glass of wine. Prince Robert looks at her with a tender smile, treasuring the shared milestones. They share a lighthearted laugh as they prepare to celebrate the occasion together. Robert suggests a toast, and Annabelle readily agrees to join him. A sharp clink sounds as their glasses meet, while below them, Ian watches the pair with a shocked and stricken expression.
Duke Waitrose bumps into Ian, scolding him for standing in the way and blocking the passage.
Annabelle notices Ian's arrival over the rim of her glass, thinking to herself that he is finally there. She is puzzled by the dark and intense look on Ian's face as he glares toward their balcony.
Robert stands up quickly to greet Duke Waitrose, expressing his pleasure at seeing father and son together at the opera. The Duke returns the greeting, asking the prince if he has been faring well lately.
Robert officially introduces Annabelle as his partner for the evening to the Duke.
Duke Waitrose clenches his fist with a satisfied and triumphant smirk, feeling that his scheme to provoke Ian is progressing perfectly. Annabelle introduces herself to Duke Waitrose, mentioning it is the first time they have met in person.
They share a polite handshake as she acknowledges the honor of meeting him.
The Duke urges Ian to greet her as well, but Ian offers a cold, brief response that makes Annabelle wonder if he truly dislikes her that much.
Duke Waitrose wishes them a pleasant time, and Robert politely returns the sentiment.
The group takes their seats and Annabelle is momentarily confused by their location as a cold wind blows through. Ian abruptly reaches for a welcome drink as a servant sets down a tray with a quick clink.
Ian drinks deeply with large, audible gulps while Annabelle watches him with a sharp, suspicious gaze.
Prince Robert asks Ian for his opinion on Annabelle's appearance, questioning if she isn't exceptionally pretty today.
Ian bluntly claims he has no idea, leaving his father visibly frustrated and embarrassed by his son's cold reaction. Robert tells Annabelle not to mind Ian's aloof nature, while she feels a vein of frustration popping at the slight.
Annabelle forces a laugh, hiding her annoyance behind her hand while claiming she is only slightly upset.
She privately fumes, imagining giving Ian shattered cookies or melted chocolate to ruin his hands.
Duke Waitrose is shocked to see Ian drinking his beverage and tries to stop him with more hurried gulps. Annabelle watches Ian with a calculating look, encouraging him to keep drinking in her mind. Her resolve hardens as she plans to ensure he takes a massive dose of the antidote later. The scene shifts to the wider audience below, where several nobles are watching the group in the balcony.
Elbin Evetes bites his lip with a soft sound as he stares intently at the balcony from below.
Elbin questions what Annabelle's true intentions are as he bites his thumb with a frustrated crunch.
Duke Evetes watches the interaction, noting that the prince seems to hold Annabelle in high regard.
He concludes that the prince wouldn't have brought her as his partner otherwise. Elbin worries that the crown prince will be displeased by this development as he bites his nail. The Duke notes that everyone is aware that Annabelle is actually his own child, his eye twitching with calculation.
Elbin suggests that they should warn her not to bring shame upon the Evetes family name.
A mysterious thought bubble asks if it would be more effective to use her for their own gain instead.
Richard Evetes, the Duke's first son, is revealed with a confident and knowing smile.
Richard suggests that if they play their cards right, Annabelle could become the prince's closest confidant.
He recalls how desperately she once wanted to join their family and believes they can coax information from her.
Elbin shouts in anger, firmly declaring that he has never considered her a member of their family.
Duke Evetes finds Richard's suggestion to be a good idea, ignoring Elbin's outburst.
The Duke places a firm hand on Elbin's shoulder with a sharp top, telling him the family's future depends on this. He instructs Elbin to approach her after the opera to apologize for their neglect and offer her jewelry.
On the stage, an opera singer performs a dramatic aria about a person who has changed.
Ian continues to drink heavily with a heavy swallow while Robert and Annabelle share a pleasant laugh.
Ian stares down at his glass, admitting to himself that the current situation is incredibly frustrating. Ian abruptly stands up and walks away from the balcony, his heavy footsteps echoing as he leaves.
He splashes cold water on his face in the restroom, finishing with a sharp, refreshing exhale.
Ian sighs heavily as he leans against the sink with the sound of running water filling the room.
He stares at his reflection, questioning why he is acting so strangely tonight.
He realizes his anger stems from seeing Prince Robert and Annabelle getting along so well together.
Ian tells himself to get a grip and regain his composure.
He insists that Annabelle's appearance and her partnership with the prince are none of his business.
Ian opens the door to return to the balcony as a long creak sounds.
High above, the full moon rises brilliantly through the clouds over the city.
Annabelle stands on the balcony, reflecting on the beauty of the night while holding her glass.
A sudden exclamation point appears as her attention is drawn to something specific.
She turns around with a sudden radiant sparkle and calls out Ian's name with a bright smile.
Ian walks back toward her as his footsteps steadily approach the balcony once more.
Annabelle reflects on how much she is drunk and decides she needs a break.
She whispers to Prince Robert in a quiet, hurried tone that she will be right back from the bathroom.
Robert notes that the climax of the play is coming and it would be a shame for her to miss it.
Annabelle tells Robert she's about to reach her climax, looking intensely focused. Prince Robert tells her to be quick, and she cheerfully agrees with a bright yes.
Annabelle takes a wine glass from the table, prompting Robert to ask why she's taking it.
She playfully claims she might get thirsty on the way back as she prepares to leave.
A soft, steady pour sounds as she empties a vial into the glass of wine. Annabelle sets off, declaring she only needs to pour the drink into Ian's mouth now. She stands in the hallway, calling for Ian to come out quickly while her heart thumps. A moment of silence follows as she wonders why he isn't coming out of the room.
She sighs that it can't be helped and decides to sit on the floor to wait.
The scene shifts as a blooming floral pattern separates Annabelle from Ian's arrival. Her face lights up as she calls out his name with a radiant, sparkling smile. A soft realization sounds as she notices him standing right there in the hallway.
Ian stares at her in shock, barely able to believe she's actually there.
Annabelle asks why he's only coming out, noting she's been waiting a long time.
Ian is visibly flustered, his heart pounding at the thought that she was waiting for him.
A sharp, quick tap sounds as Ian reaches out with a gloved hand. She suddenly thrusts the glass at him, commanding him to drink the wine immediately.
Ian is confused, but she claims it tastes awful and someone as unlucky as him should drink it.
She asks if he's afraid it's poisoned, while Ian remains silent and skeptical. Annabelle takes a brave, quick sip of the wine to prove it is safe for him. She winces in disgust as a bitter taste washes over her tongue. She wipes her mouth, claiming her tongue is ruined and demanding he finish the rest. Ian gives a brief, quiet consent as he prepares to take the glass from her. He reaches out and takes the wine with a smooth, deliberate motion.
A sudden, sharp realization strikes him as he notices a detail on her face.
Annabelle snaps at him for hesitating and tells him to just forget the whole thing. Ian suddenly drinks the wine in one massive, determined gulp as a splash sounds. A deep, heavy swallow follows as he drains the glass to the very last drop. Ian scoffs with amusement, finding her behavior typical as he looks at her. Annabelle asks for his reaction, certain he will find the taste repulsive. She tells him she got it specially for him, so he should feel thankful. Ian stares at her with a tender, unreadable expression, his thoughts focused entirely on her. Annabelle thinks to herself that it's finally over and reflects on her struggle to save him. She offers a warm, satisfied smile, feeling a great weight lifted from her shoulders. She tells Ian he must have had a hard time putting up with her actions.
Annabelle tells him to find a wonderful woman in the future and live happily.
The wine spills down Ian's front, leaving a dark, messy stain on his white uniform.
A sudden, loud exclamation of "wait" echoes through the hallway, stopping her. Ian demands to know if she's really leaving just like that after everything. He insists she wouldn't return so quietly, but she tries to brush it off.
Ian warns that His Highness will be waiting if she doesn't hurry back. He calls her name softly, causing her to stop in her tracks and turn back. Ian asks with genuine confusion why she isn't swearing at him like usual. A lyrical thought bubble questions why he's asking to be hit or sworn at. Annabelle's face goes blank with shock as she processes his strange request. She stares at him, wondering what's wrong with him and if she should say something.
She shouts that she's been smiling all day and hopes he finds something stuck in his teeth.
Ian is left unimpressed, asking if that's all the insults she can muster. Annabelle tells him to stop as she flees, wanting to go before saying anything more foolish. A sudden firm grip sounds as Ian catches her arm to keep her from leaving.
Ian's face burns with a deep blush as Annabelle stares back at him with a look of pure confusion.
Ian struggles to speak before finally telling her to just keep doing what she was doing.
Annabelle's eyes widen in absolute disbelief at the outrageous and nonsensical request he just made.
A sudden, angry shout fills her mind as she walks away, unable to process his bizarre behavior.
Watching from around the corner, Duke Waitrose is mortified by his son's ridiculous attempts at communication. The Duke realizes that Ian's words were a clumsy, backward confession, leaving him questioning his son's mental state.
Leslie observes the scene from her seat, reflecting on how acting on impulse can often make one look like a fool.
She concludes that her previous assessments of the situation were entirely correct.
Duke Waitrose is appalled as he realizes that Ian suggested being hit or sworn at by her would be acceptable.
The Duke becomes visibly enraged at the absurdity of the moment, while Ian tries to avoid his father's piercing gaze.
A desperate thought bubble declares the urgent need to stop Ian before he says anything else embarrassing. Duke Waitrose lets out a sharp, awkward cough as a sudden ahem sounds to interrupt the tense atmosphere. He steps forward and questions what the two of them are doing alone in the hallway.
The Duke advises them to keep their competitive nature in check and behave appropriately for their surroundings.
Annabelle politely apologizes for the trouble, addressing him with proper respect as Lord Braden.
She promises to be more careful as she departs, leaving the Duke staring after her in complete bewilderment.
A sudden exclamation point highlights the shock of the revelations that just unfolded. Annabelle's full name is presented, marking a shift in the focus of the narrative.
The Duke recalls memories of a younger Annabelle and how her headstrong presence always managed to provoke his son.
He realizes that his previous perception of her as a reckless child was entirely mistaken.
Annabelle resolves to move past her obsession with being number one and focus on her own growth.
Duke Wydros laughs to himself, noting that Leslie still hasn't forgiven him for his past actions.
The group prepares to return to the performance, noting that the prince is already waiting for them.
Prince Robert greets them as they arrive back at the balcony, noting their return with interest. He is perplexed by the strange dynamic between the dejected Ian, the cheerful Duke, and the frustrated Annabelle.
A sharp realization strikes the prince as he notices the large, dark wine stain on Ian's white uniform. Robert calls out to Annabelle and she responds with a distracted, brief acknowledgement.
He decided to drop the subject, assuming they simply had another one of their usual fights. On the opera stage, the performers act out a scene where the heroine offers to endure any mistreatment for love.
The lead actress declares her undying devotion, claiming she loves even the most difficult parts of her partner.
Annabelle is physically repulsed by the dramatic and unhealthy display of affection being shown on stage. She focuses intensely on the performance, her mind racing with a sudden realization about Ian.
She wonders if Ian's bizarre request was influenced by alcohol, much like her own low tolerance. Annabelle remains silent and pensive, ignoring the prince's presence as she is lost in her own thoughts.
The opera reaches its grand conclusion with a final declaration of eternal love from the stage.
Robert claps enthusiastically and asks if she enjoyed the show, to which she gives a non-committal answer.
She sarcastically praises the heroine's patience while questioning if that truly qualifies as love. Annabelle privately mocks the idea of living with someone who asks to be hit, unaware of the irony. Robert laughs off the idea of such a person existing, while Annabelle realizes the person in question is sitting right next to them. The group decides to head to the party hall, with the Duke reminding Ian to clean his stained uniform.
The scene transitions to the grand hall where the post-opera party is in full swing.
Annabelle shares a laugh with the Duke and Prince, momentarily forgetting her earlier frustrations.
Richard Avidas suddenly approaches the group, expressing his pleasure at seeing her in such a place. He politely greets the prince and the duke, inquiring about their well-being.
Annabelle is startled to see Richard Avidas standing before her after so much time. Richard requests a private word with Annabelle, referring to her as his younger sister.
Annabelle forces a bright, empty smile as she processes the unexpected and unwelcome interaction. She is inwardly repulsed by his use of the term younger sister as she stares at her supposed brothers.
A sudden memory flashes back to the moment she finally achieved victory in a duel.
She recalls the pure, overwhelming joy of finally winning and proving her worth to the world. Annabelle reflects on her determination to win the final tournament match tomorrow.
She stops in her tracks as she encounters 3 men from the Avedis family. Richard greets her with a hollow politeness as the Marquis coldly notes she bears no resemblance to him.
The Marquis turns his back on her with a sharp, dismissive motion.
Richard approaches her, noting this is their first formal meeting and acknowledging her as his younger sister, despite having different mothers.
Richard offers a fake smile while hoping she joins the Marquisate, but his private thoughts reveal he finds the idea of actually saying that ridiculous.
Richard and the younger brother mock her behind her back, sneering at her status as an illegitimate child.
The Marquis stands over her, condescendingly asking if the money he provided was insufficient and telling her to remember her place among the whispering nobles.
He questions if she truly thinks she deserves the Avides name, laughing that it is fortunate they have Ian Wydros to maintain the family's honor instead.
A dark thought bubble emphasizes that Ian is the only reason the family name remains untarnished. Back in the present at the party, Richard places a hand on Annabelle's shoulder and tells her their father wishes to see her.
Annabelle maintains a cold, silent expression before finally offering a brief, compliant agreement to follow him.
She turns to Prince Robert and politely excuses herself from his company. Prince Robert, accompanied by 2 other knights, watches her leave with a look of deep concern.
Richard remarks on how they look like a perfectly harmonious family as they walk together and asks for her opinion.
Annabelle forces a radiant, empty smile as she agrees with his blatant lie.
Richard continues his act, claiming he was simply young and immature in the past.
Annabelle plays along with the charade, telling him she is actually quite pleased that he approached her first.
She maintains her dazzling, fake smile as they move through the ballroom.
Her internal monologue sharply rejects his behavior, realizing he is only trying to use her to gain the Crown Prince's favor. Marquis Avidas greets her with a warm smile, remarking on how long it has been since they last met. Annabelle offers a formal, distant greeting to the Marquis as the surrounding nobles watch and whisper.
The younger Avidas brother stands back with his arms crossed, visibly trembling with a suppressed rage.
Annabelle finds the entire situation deeply irritating, loathing the fact that she has to acknowledge people like them.
A sudden memory of a breaking object shatters the air as a voice screams about an illegitimate child.
In a flashback, a woman in a pink gown is restrained by maids while she shouts to be let go.
She screams at the young boy to be careful while Annabelle's younger self watches with a look of hurt.
The Marquis hands a heavy bag of money to a red-haired woman, ordering her to leave and raise the child alone.
The red-haired woman demands more money, scoffing at the idea of raising the Marquise's child in poverty. She later brags to other nobles that her child's title will eventually grant her a place among the nobility.
A hand clenches tightly into a fist as the weight of the past resurfaces.
From her sickbed, the Marquise's wife venomously declares that the daughter of that lowly woman must never win the tournament.
Returning to the present, the younger brother broods over the news of Annabelle's mother's passing.
Annabelle looks away, mentally mocking the absurdity of them trying to be kind to her now.
She steals a glance at the younger brother who remains lost in his frustrated thoughts.
She bluntly tells him that she is fully aware her presence is entirely unwelcome to them.
The younger brother lets out a sharp, surprised breath, shocked by her sudden and direct honesty. He is left speechless, staring at her with wide, bewildered eyes. Annabelle declares that what they did for her mother was plenty, and she expects absolutely nothing further from the Marquise's family. As she tries to leave, the Marquise suddenly reaches out and grabs her arm to stop her. He tells her she must have felt neglected because of his inattention, trying to sound repentant. He points out their physical similarities, specifically their ear shapes, while Annabelle keeps her fake smile plastered on.
He even claims they share similar eyelash lengths to prove their familial bond.
The two of them share a strained chibi-style moment where they agree that their features are perfectly average.
The Marquis offers to buy her a necklace to celebrate their reunion, but she cuts him off by addressing him formally.
Annabelle looks him in the eye and calmly reiterates that she truly wants nothing from him or his family.
The Marquis is visibly stunned, his face going pale at her firm and total rejection. He quickly masks his shock with a smirk, gripping her shoulder and insisting that family members should help one another.
He promises to invite her to the estate soon, and she responds with a cheerful, hollow invitation to call her anytime.
Prince Robert watches the interaction from across the hall, his eyes fixed on Annabelle as she deals with her father.
The silver-haired priest looks emotional, reflecting on his longing for a family's warmth.
He questions a young man about the necessity of a title for legitimacy, receiving a blunt denial.
Verification of parentage at the temple requires the consent of both the royal and noble families.
The young man explains that verification requires a high priest who becomes severely bedridden after performing the ritual.
The priest acknowledges that the immense physical toll is why such requests have been consistently denied.
A sudden loud gasp of shock fills the air as the priest unexpectedly decides to schedule a date for the ritual.
He justifies his decision by calling Annabelle his lifesaver and counting on Prince Robert's support over the friendly Marquis family.
The young man worries about a sudden surge in testing requests, but the priest dismisses the concern since he is retiring.
A voice asks Ian about his prospects in the upcoming swordsmanship tournament as the scene shifts to the party.
Noble women gather around Ian, confidently predicting that he will easily secure another victory in the competition.
Ian offers a modest thanks, humbly claiming that he simply strives to do his absolute best.
The women compare his humility to an actor's interview before questioning the bizarre and unhealthy themes of the opera.
They laugh at the idea of someone enjoying insults, while a nervous wince escapes Ian as he stands nearby.
A steady, firm sound of footsteps approaches as the smiling Duke walks toward his flustered son. The Duke jokes about the absurdity of someone hiding such a preference, much to the amusement of the surrounding ladies.
The grand estate stands silent under the moonlight as the post-opera celebrations continue inside.
Annabelle finally returns home, exhausted and visibly drained after the day's long and frustrating events. A dull thud sounds as she collapses onto the floor, relieved to be free from Ian and Prince Robert's company.
Her eyes narrow with a cold focus as she shifts her thoughts toward her remaining objective.
She recalls the Marquis and his sons mocking her lack of family resemblance and dismissively laughing at her ambitions.
A dark thought emphasizes that Ian is the only reason the Evadie's name remains respected by society.
She clenches her fist with a sharp, determined sound, vowing to double the misery the Marquise's family caused her.
A soft, rhythmic chirping of birds signals the arrival of a new morning outside the window.
A sudden, loud crash echoes as Ren bursts into the room, shouting Annabelle's name in a panic.
He rushes toward her bed, loudly complaining about being kept in the dark regarding her recent actions. A quick, annoyed sound of ruffling bedsheets follows as Annabelle bluntly tells him she isn't obligated to share everything.
Ren reveals that Ian enjoyed the drink provided for him, leaving Annabelle completely stunned by the news.
He proudly explains that his hired helper confirmed the plan was a success and was well received.
Annabelle dismisses his trust in a stranger, insisting that she must confirm the results with her own eyes.
Ren defends the reliability of his contact, insisting that the person he employed is beyond reproach.
Annabelle's face pales with a sharp gasp of horror as he reveals he utilized a slave for the task.
She springs up with a sudden frantic rustle, warning him that such a crime leads directly to a prison cell.
Ren remains unbothered, casually noting that his close friend is the most prominent slave trader in the city. He boasts about his friend's expertise while Annabelle's rage reaches its breaking point.
A deafening, explosive shout labels him an idiot for risking a life sentence over such a dangerous illegal involvement. Magic is used to erase a person's identity and turn them into disposable dolls, a strictly forbidden and heinous act.
Future events reveal Robert exposing Prince Calon for funding illegal slave traders, a major scandal tied to a powerful villain.
Annabelle is fuming over Ren's recklessness while he maintains a smug, self-satisfied expression.
He suggests she seek his friend's help if she needs to hide, claiming the man is a master of forging identities.
A long, weary sigh escapes her as she questions how she could possibly trust a criminal friend of his.
Ren explains the friend's narcissistic quirk of ignoring anyone less handsome than himself, jokingly assuring her of her safety.
A sharp, loud clap sounds as Ren tries to pivot the conversation, telling her she just needs to win the tournament.
Annabelle storms toward the training grounds while Ren shouts at her for slacking off so late in the day.
A frustrated, angry sound escapes her as she considers reporting him for his lazily hypocritical behavior.
A steady, rhythmic sound of boots on the pavement follows as she realizes reporting him would only implicate herself.
She stops and rubs her forehead, desperately trying to find a way out of the mess her friend created.
A sudden, loud call of her name surprises her as she walks through the village.
An assistant from the Rainfield Atelier catches up to her, explaining that Lady Marilyn has been searching for her.
The assistant mentions she was headed to the Wydros estate when she happened to spot Annabelle. Annabelle reacts with a quiet, awkward murmur as she learns her frequent presence at the Duke's residence is common knowledge.
Annabelle worries about causing trouble. She recalls a duel with Ian while wondering why Lady Marilyn summoned her.
A young woman announces that the training clothes the Duchess ordered are finally finished.
Annabelle is eager to call.
A clear, sharp bell rings as she enters the building.
Annabelle arrives at the atelier and is greeted by Lady Marilyn and Lady Leslie.
Lady Leslie explains she was waiting for Annabelle after hearing Marilyn had called for her.
Annabelle feels an awkward tension as the conversation shifts toward her mother.
Lady Leslie remarks that Caitlin was far too harsh on her own daughter. Marilyn notes that Caitlin is obsessed with her designs and often waits for hours to see her.
Lady Leslie asks if Marilyn is well acquainted with Caitlin.
Marilyn explains they gave birth at the same hospital back when she and Oscar lacked a stable business.
They shared the experience of labor at a public hospital and bonded during that time. A sudden, sharp gasp of surprise escapes Lady Leslie as she learns Caitlin once struggled with poverty.
Marilyn confirms that Annabelle was the child Caitlin gave birth to on that shared day.
Marilyn's expression softens as she mentions her own child was born on that very same day.
She reflects on the lingering grief of losing a child, a pain she still cannot overcome.
A heavy silence falls as Marilyn is lost in her somber memories. Marilyn apologizes for her long story, but Lady Leslie assures her she completely understands.
A light, rhythmic ringing sounds as Marilyn signals for the training clothes to be brought out.
Marilyn admits her nerves about her first time creating training attire and asks for honest feedback.
She firmly declares that nothing leaves her atelier unless it meets her standards of perfection. Annabelle admires the incredible craftsmanship. Annabelle finds the new training outfit fits her perfectly and requires no further adjustments. Lady Leslie praises the look and immediately suggests ordering several more versions of the suit. As Marilyn agrees to the order, a sudden, heavy thud sounds at the door. A woman in a red gown bursts in, frantically looking for Marilyn to discuss a previous matter. The woman's breath hitches in a sharp, startled gasp upon seeing Annabelle. She stares at Annabelle with wide, terrified eyes, prompting a confused question from Lady Leslie. Marilyn coolly reminds the woman, Ranella, that she only sees clients who have made a proper reservation.
She lets out a panicked stumble and quickly retreats from the room.
Marilyn finds it incredibly strange that the usually persistent woman gave up and left so easily.
Lady Leslie asks who the rude woman was, and Marilyn explains they grew up together in an orphanage.
Marilyn shares that Ranella delivered her daughter while she was unconscious during a difficult labor.
Lady Leslie is surprised to hear Ranella was once a doctor's assistant at the hospital.
Marilyn mentions Ranella recently returned from the South, a region known for its difficult, rugged mountains.
Marilyn believes Ranella left because seeing Marilyn's grief over her lost child was too much to bear.
Marilyn expresses a deep, ongoing sense of guilt and sympathy toward her old friend.
Annabelle realizes that Marilyn likely struggles with the memory of her deceased daughter whenever they meet.
Marilyn reflects on Caitlin's persistence.
She adds that Ranella apparently found success in the South and bought a house on Brewer Street.
Marilyn shakes off the somber mood and asks to hear more about Annabelle.
Lady Leslie leans in, eagerly asking what the prince said to her at the opera.
Chibi Lady Leslie is visibly excited. Annabelle quickly dismisses the idea of a romance, insisting he only said she was pretty. Lady Leslie isn't convinced and presses her for more details on what happened next.
Marilyn and Lady Leslie are visibly stunned by the revelation.
A loud, echoing shout of shock follows the mention of Marquis of Vedas. Lady Leslie mentions hearing from Brayden that the Marquise's family had finally acknowledged her.
Annabelle awkwardly confirms they apologized and even extended an invitation for her to join them for dinner.
Lady Leslie's eyes widen as she lets out a sharp, startled gasp of, "Oh my!" She is fuming over the Marquise's family's transparently opportunistic behavior toward Annabelle after years of neglect.
Annabelle offers a small, knowing smile while privately agreeing that she cannot speak the truth outright.
Marilyn identifies with the feeling while looking somberly at her companions. Marilyn's expression turns somber as she addresses Miss Annabelle. She explains that she and Oscar are orphans whose primary dream was simply to have a normal family.
A heavy memory of sending off their first child surfaces.
Marilyn and Oscar are shown weeping at a grave, haunted by past financial struggles and a lack of medical care.
Their grief transformed into a desperate drive to accumulate wealth.
They eventually became very successful and made a lot of money through their tireless work.
However, they realized they couldn't properly care for their young son, Aaron, during their rise.
Marilyn admits with deep regret that she missed his milestones and only saw him while he slept.
She reflects on the emotional distance that prevented her from ever pressuring him to take over the business.
Marilyn realizes then that she wasn't a good parent to her second child either.
Marilyn apologizes for sharing such a sad story again.
Annabelle frantically waves her hands while shouting that no apology is necessary.
Marilyn looks at them with affection while declaring they are all family now.
A serene, heartwarming smile spreads across Marilyn's face. Marilyn radiates joy as she smiles warmly.
Annabelle feels a profound sense of warmth and belonging.
Marilyn inquires about the upcoming dinner, and Annabelle confirms it takes place in 3 days.
A sudden, loud bang sounds as Annabelle's casual training clothes choice causes a shock.
Lady Leslie is visibly appalled and shouts that training clothes simply won't do.
Lady Leslie and Marilyn exchange a determined glance, wordlessly agreeing they know exactly what to do.
Marilyn ignites with passion, declaring they need insanely beautiful outing clothes, even for a casual meal.
Annabelle's cheapy form sheepishly tries to argue that her training attire is sufficient.
A deafening, synchronized shout of no and yo echoes as the ladies demand total perfection.
The sun sets behind the massive estate.
Annabelle appears poised and breathtaking in an exquisite new purple gown.
She is formally welcomed into the residence by a servant inviting her inside.
Annabelle walks with a steady, resolute focus into the building.
She has arrived at the Marquise's residence. Annabelle reflects that she never had a reason to come here in the original story. She begins to recount the title of the book she was reborn in.
The story centers on a virtuous saint and Ian saving the world from evil.
Their chemistry was considered lacking because they were both too morally upright.
The narrative introduces Richard Avides, the calculated right-hand man to the final villain.
Richard is depicted as a master strategist skilled in dirty tricks and schemes.
The original plot focused heavily on the rivalry between Richard and Ian over the female lead.
Crown Prince Colin is shown anxious over the Waitrose family potentially siding with Robert. Richard's perfect plan involves eliminating Ian to secure his own power and recognition.
Annabelle's previous role was to be the starting point for the conflict. Richard used her criminal past and imprisonment to pick a fight.
He used her to ignite a war between families by claiming she mistreated his brother.
The ensuing chaos was meant to escalate into a succession war with Calon using evil powers.
The noble leads were destined to emerge as the world's saviors. They together saved the world. Ian was supposed to gain honor and the love of the female league.
Annabelle realizes her very presence here proves she has already deviated from the original work.
She concludes that even without her, Richard would find excuses to clash with Ian.
A soft, slow creak sounds.
Richard welcomes Annabelle into the room.
Annabelle tells the men she has not waited long. Richard invites her to the dining hall. Annabelle accepts his formal invitation.
A sharp transition shifts the scenes mirrored.
She reflects on the schemes of her relatives.
Annabelle resolves to use the original story.
The setting sun illuminates the grand estate.
Aaron confirms the evening's dinner plans with Marilyn. Marilyn grows emotional over the family reunion.
A sudden, sharp click sounds as a pen is set down.
Marilyn looks on with a determined smile.
The story title appears on the screen.
A rhythmic, metallic clang echoes during training.
Aaron sighs over Annabelle's 3-day absence. Ian dismisses Aaron's disappointment as unnecessary peace.
Aaron plots a mission during Ian's shower.
Aaron questions Ian's hygiene choices.
Ian notes Annabelle is currently occupied elsewhere.
Aaron insists he wasn't waiting for her arrival.
Ian reacts with sudden, explosive anger toward the Marquis.
Aaron teases Ian for his low priority ranking.
Aaron suddenly remembers a previous engagement with Leffley.
Aaron departs with a quick, breezy sound.
Ian remains behind, looking deeply troubled. He questions Annabelle's true motives for victory. Ian fears their paths may never cross again.
A heavy, slow creak echoes. Annabelle walks between the two Avides pathers.
They enter the grand dining hall.
Annabelle suspects their polite behavior is fake.
She plans an annoying escape strategy.
Richard reflects on the joy found after hardships.
Annabelle offers a cynical but polite agreement.
Dinner is served with a smooth slide.
Annabelle finds the food inferior to Oscar's cooking.
Richard inquires about her closeness with Prince Robert.
He remarks on the prince's cautious nature.
Richard questions the depth of their relationship. Annabelle pauses, carefully considering her reply.
She feigns ignorance regarding Robert's true feelings.
Richard offers a story for her judgment. Annabelle prepares to deliver a tall tale.
A sudden, sharp gasp of surprise sounds. She claims Robert is enamored with her humor. Annabelle describes their relationship as uniquely personal.
She prepares to drop a bombshell revelation.
A loud, sharp bang sounds as the table is struck. Annabelle confirms her lie with a confident smile.
Narration details Robert's secret investigations and Marquis Avidas's concern over his illegal ties.
During dinner, Annabelle ponders why Prince Robert specifically requested her assistance over Ian's. The Marquise leans in, questioning where the prince intends to strike next. She feigns exhaustion while claiming she needs time to organize the information in her mind.
Annabelle begins a spoiled act, demanding better meat and wine to distract her hosts.
She smiles while sipping expensive wine, relishing the chance to toy with the brothers. The tense atmosphere is broken by a servant rushing in with an urgent message. A formal letter arrives from the temple, intended for both the Marquis and Annabelle. Annabelle is visibly baffled by the temple's sudden interest in her presence. A nervous sweat breaks out on the Marquis as he prepares to open the seal. The letter begins with a formal address to the head of the Avidas family. The high priest appears in a vision, offering a special gift for the occasion.
He praises Annabelle's pure heart and describes her as his savior.
Annabelle's eyes go wide as the shocking topic of a paternity test is raised. Richard notes the temple's official approval and anticipates the prince's support for the matter. The Marquise lets out a strained, awkward laugh while holding the document. While Richard is pleased, the long-haired man erupts in a shout of disbelief. Annabelle feels a rush of joy, considering the temple's intervention a stroke of luck.
She confidently declares she will manage the necessary royal approvals herself.
She mentions her close relationship with Robert, casting a shadow over the wary brothers. The scene shifts to a high-angle view of the brothers regrouping in their study. The Marquis sits at his desk, overwhelmed by the weight of the latest developments. The long-haired man shouts in protest, unable to accept the current situation.
Thought bubbles explain that the High Priest's retirement is a major public event.
The brothers realize that a public paternity test would be a massive spectacle. The younger man continues to argue, but Richard remains analytical. Richard points out that refusing the high priest would be an insult to the temple.
He suggests a strategic move to grant Annabelle inheritance and use her as a spy.
The Marquis pauses, deep in thought about the potential benefits of the plan. A sinister smile spreads across his face as he agrees to the scheme. The story title is displayed against a decorative background. Night falls over the grand and illuminated Wide Rose Duke's residence.
Leslie lets out a heavy sigh while reflecting on the speed of Annabelle's social eyes.
Braden comments on the inherent difficulties of becoming romantically involved with royalty.
Leslie tries to dismiss the rumors, but eventually admits it looks like a romance.
They compare Robert's kind approach to the constant bickering between Ian and Annabelle.
Chibi Leslie and Braden bicker, with her questioning his mental clarity.
Leslie lets out a tired sigh, frustrated by Braden's comparisons. Braden weeps dramatically, feeling he is the only one who truly understands his son's plight. He reflects on how much simpler his own past dealing for. Braden feels overwhelmed by having to manage the dynamics of 3 strong personalities. Leslie offers a small comfort, telling him that being oblivious isn't a crime. She notes that a commoner marrying into royalty would be unprecedented in their history. Braden points out that the situation changes if she is officially recognized as an Avidas. He remains convinced that Ian's superior skill will secure his victory in the tournament.
Leslie disagrees, noting that Annabelle has a very strong and capable foundation. She laments that Annabelle lacked proper support and wonders what could have been.
Narration emphasizes the fear that Annabelle might be exploited and mistreated. A sharp creak sounds as Annabelle arrives home and is greeted by Aaron. Aaron frantically warns her to stay strong and not let the Marquise's money swear. A soft, tired sigh sounds as Annabelle reaffirms her dream. Richard admits he was merely checking her resolve. Annabelle worries about requesting a royal favor. The next morning, a messenger pigeon racks.
Annabelle is surprised by the sudden avian guest.
She spots a letter attached to its leg.
The message brings news of the paternity test.
Robert confirms he will grant the royal permission. Annabelle begins writing a swift reply of thanks.
She watches the pigeon fly back to Robert.
A humorous remark about an unfortunate mishap.
A soft, crinkling sound as paper is folded.
News of the test and Robert's favor spreads.
Annabelle overhears rumors of a royal romance.
She dismisses the rumors as purely political schemes. She resolves to find a new house immediately.
The evening sun paints the sky orange. Annabelle and the agent walk for 12 hours. She rejects several expensive and inconvenient estates. The agent offers a more suitable neighborhood. They arrive at a luxurious Narabi street house. Annabelle notes its proximity to the Wadrose estate. She ignores her old ties and chooses efficiency. A sudden, loud crash echoes through the air. A thief leaps through a shattered window.
The criminal sprints past the startled young woman.
Marilyn screams out for the thief to stop.
She unleashes a torrent of creative, biting curses.
Annabelle is impressed by the maid's verbal skills.
A rhythmic, pattering sound of fleeing feet. The thief plans to flee the country soon.
Annabelle launches into a graceful, powerful jump.
She confronts the thief with cold, focused eyes.
A sharp, pained gah sounds as Annabelle punches the thief.
The thief is knocked down in total disbelief.
Annabelle scolds the man for his weak resolve.
A steady, clicking sound of approaching boots.
Marilyn is stunned to find Annabelle there.
Annabelle presents the captured thief to the maid.
Marilyn gapes in surprise at the coincidental encounter.
Annabelle explains she caught him on the mat. The scene shifts to the Wide Rose training grounds.
Ian practices his swordsmanship with intense focus.
A sharp, whistling sound of a blade swing.
He executes a precise, powerful horizontal strike. Aaron comments on the family's relentless training.
A soldier mentions a new fountain being installed.
The men complain about losing their slacking spot. A peaceful thought acknowledges Annabelle's recent absence.
Ian reflects that there is still time left.
2 guards remark that Annabelle Nadid hasn't visited lately, assuming Ian must be relieved to stop running pointless errands for her.
One guard suggests she likely realized she could never best Ian and simply stop trying, while Ian listens from behind. A sudden, sharp whip sounds as Ian stares blankly, overhearing that she was only stubbornly clinging to him and no longer feels the need to.
Nearby, a soldier shouts for a water bottle to be taken away since he has finished up it.
Ian stands frozen as he hears the soldier plan to discard the bottle because a new fountain is being installed tomorrow.
Ian reacts with a sudden, sharp turn.
He protests that the bottle has been with them for 8 years, questioning how they can be so heartless as to throw it away.
The soldiers dismiss his concern, stating there is no reason to keep something that is old, boring, and no longer needed. Ian looks deeply wounded, pleading internally for them not to say the word unneeded. A hand reaches toward the white roses.
A soft, quick thud sounds as Aaron returns the water bottle to Ian, admitting he hadn't realized it was so precious.
Aaron suddenly spots someone and lets out a gasp of surprise at the sight of his mother and another guest. Ian's shock at the sudden rest. A soft, tired sigh sounds as Leslie and Annabelle stand together, prompting Aaron to ask why they are in each other's company. In a flashback, Leslie thanks Annabelle for catching a thief who used a fake knight's insignia to infiltrate their reception room.
Narration explains the man grabbed a blue diamond and attempted to flee.
Annabelle questions why the family would openly display such expensive jewels in a room meant for receiving guests. Leslie explains that while it's meant to show family history, the real purpose is to intimidate and boast to outsiders. A polite, airy giggle sounds as Leslie admits they are mere commoners who only have their most expensive jewel on display. A soft, tired sigh sounds as Leslie confesses she let her guard down because the thief claimed to be from the Night Order.
Leslie insists the thief must be taken to the Waitrose Night Order to verify his official-looking insignia.
A low, thoughtful hum sounds as Annabelle ponders the thief's identity while Leslie invites her to accompany them.
Annabelle is surprised by the invitation, but Leslie cryptically suggests that one should always incite fights when possible.
Leslie gleefully imagines the internal conflict this will cause for the Knights, leaving Annabelle stunned by her true personality.
A soft, quick snap sounds as Annabelle smiles, noting that Ian's immense pride in his order will make this a valuable lesson. Back in the present, Leslie concludes her explanation, leaving Aaron to process the strange turn of events. A muffled, rhythmic grunting sounds from the gagged thief as Leslie explains she silenced him to avoid hearing any unpleasant swearing.
A quiet, airy laugh sounds as Ian realizes that Aaron was already well aware of his mother's mischievous nature.
Leslie notices Ian's strange expression and lets out a questioning sound.
She asks what is wrong with him, while Ian retorts by asking what is wrong with her instead.
Annabelle mocks Ian, suggesting his brain cells are on strike since she has known his habits for 8 long years.
She coolly informs him that she won't be picking any more fights with him, especially not today.
A sudden heavy thud sounds in Ian's heart as he realizes she didn't come to see him at all. A low, sizzling hiss sounds as Aaron teases Ian for being a fool while praising Annabelle's keen perception.
A soft, rhythmic sobbing sounds as Aaron explains that Ian was genuinely upset over the loss of his longtime water bottle.
A soft, wet splash sounds as Annabelle looks down at the discarded bottle, hearing the soldiers talk about the new fountain.
A quick light tap sounds as Annabelle agrees that the fountain will be more convenient, though Aaron misses their slacking off spot.
Aaron marvels at how well Annabelle understands the knight's perspective after 8 years of rivalry.
A sudden, bright twinkle sounds as Annabelle declines to stay, citing her important paternity test tomorrow and her desire to avoid bad luck.
Annabelle retrieves the discarded leather bottle.
A soft, sliding sound echoes as Annabelle returns the bottle to Ian, wishing him happiness with his cherished possession.
Their fingers brush against the leather.
Ian's face flushes a deep red.
A sharp, loud shout sounds as Ian recoils in a panic, shocking everyone around him.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Ian asks why she touched his hand, but she points out they've done more during their fights.
A quiet, airy sigh sounds as Annabelle looks at his flushed face and wonders if he has suddenly fallen ill. Aaron watches the scene, feeling that while he loves to tease his lord, now is probably not the right time.
A sharp, heavy thud sounds as Aaron approaches the captured criminal suspect, finding the man's face strangely familiar.
A sudden bright chime sounds as Aaron finally remembers where he has seen the criminal before.
Aaron recalls that Ian rejected the man during a personality interview despite his physical skill, wondering how Ian knew to cut him.
Ian receives enthusiastic praise from his fellow knights for his keen insight and impressive eye.
Ian speaks with Leslie, noting that the criminal who tarnished the Waderose name will be dealt with.
Annabelle prepares to take her leave, dismissively stating she didn't come to hear praises about Ian's insight.
A sharp, quick grab sounds as Leslie suddenly stops Annabelle by catching her hand.
Leslie offers to accompany Annabelle, surprising her with this sudden request.
A quiet, airy laugh sounds as Leslie smiles warmly, admitting she isn't interested in simple justice either.
The title of the story is displayed, a rhythmic clattering sound of horse hooves as a carriage travels through the town streets. Inside the carriage, Leslie offers to drop Annabelle off at the Nadit estate on Orbia Street.
Annabelle expresses her gratitude, but Leslie insists she is the one who should be thankful for the jewel.
Annabelle remarks that Marilyn must have been quite surprised by the recent encounter with the criminal.
She notes that it would have been better if a man named Oscar had been there to support Marilyn.
Annabelle recalls Oscar's imposing presence and sharp, intense gaze that could take down a thief.
Leslie watches Annabelle with a calm, thoughtful expression as they continue their journey. Leslie states that she has something important to confess to Annabelle.
Annabelle is visibly surprised by the sudden seriousness of Leslie's confession.
Leslie admits that she has been watching Annabelle for a very long time.
She confesses that Annabelle always stood out, which made her feel uneasy, leading her to pretend not to see her.
Annabelle suggests people usually find her an eyesore, but Leslie quickly denies that being the reason.
A soft, heavy sigh sounds as Leslie reveals she was constantly thinking of her own child.
Leslie looks down with a somber expression as she prepares to share a painful memory.
She explains that her child died while Caitlin survived, and she struggled with a sense of unfairness.
Leslie admits it felt even more unfair seeing that Annabelle wasn't raised with the love she deserved.
She imagines how she would have given everything to Annabelle and kept her happy if she were her own.
Leslie confesses that seeing Annabelle caused her agony because it constantly reminded her of her dead daughter.
She acknowledges that Annabelle was simply an ordinary, pleasant girl who was good to be around.
Annabelle questions why Leslie is choosing to share these deep, personal feelings with her now. Leslie explains that dark feelings shouldn't be hidden if one wants to truly care for someone, noting they will see each other often.
The two women share a warm, meaningful smile as their bond deepens.
Leslie offers her congratulations to Annabelle regarding the upcoming paternity test results.
She acknowledges that Annabelle is finally being recognized by the family she has long desired.
Leslie promises to sincerely congratulate her again tomorrow after the formal recognition.
Annabelle is moved to tears, realizing she isn't the only one happy about the outcome of the test.
A soft, quick snap sounds as Annabelle offers a bright smile and expresses her gratitude to Marilyn. The scene shifts to the next morning at a grand, sunlit estate.
A maid assists Annabelle with her morning preparations, offering to help her dress.
Annabelle notes that Marilyn sent a maid to help since she will be wearing her dress.
A soft, quick thud sounds as the final touches are made to Annabelle's hair.
Annabelle appears radiant and regal in a beautiful blue and white gown, thanking her assistant.
A rhythmic, clicking sound of heels as Annabelle makes her way down the grand staircase. She spots Riyadh and asks if he is attending the retirement ceremony. Riyadh appears nervous and tells her to go ahead while he meets someone for a moment.
Annabelle is curious and asks who he is meeting, catching him off guard.
She notes his lack of excitement, but he promises to do his best at the swordsmanship competition.
A low, thoughtful hum sounds as Riyadh smiles nervously and tells her he trusts her. Riyadh tells her to go ahead as the memory of his past desires for himself and Caitlin lingers.
The scene transitions to the bustling and decorated eyeless square. A man in a formal white suit politely asks Annabelle to wait there for a moment. Annabelle waits quietly, planning to find a house on Narabi Street near Maryland soon. She reflects on how she once wanted inheritance rights for Caitlin and Riyadh, but now focuses only on her own path. A poignant realization marks a turning point as she decides certain family bonds are no longer necessary. A moment of quiet, lonely reflection follows in the stillness of the room. Her attention is taken by a sudden, quick shink sounding as she draws a hidden blade from her leg holster, noting the lack of tactical insight in her opponents.
Annabelle confidently challenges her hooded assailants, mocking the ridiculousness of their attempt to block her.
A sharp, pained sounds as Riyadh desperately tries to rally his flustered men against their solitary opponent. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Annabelle mocks their reliance on numbers, only to be interrupted by a loud shout of her name. Aaron arrives unexpectedly to join the fray, brandishing his sword with a determined expression.
He explains his coincidental arrival while out for snacks, surprised to find a suspicious group surrounding her.
Aaron expresses genuine concern for her valuable attire, worrying about the dress his mother meticulously crafted. Annabelle graciously acknowledges his protective sentiment, thanking him for looking out for her and her clothes during this historic moment.
A low, rhythmic grunting sounds as the group of assassins is incapacitated on the ground.
A soft, heavy thud sounds as Annabelle mocks Riyadh's failed ambush attempt, noting she could sense his presence even from a distance.
Riyadh seethes with unspoken, bitter rage, his face contorted in a silent snarl. A sudden, sharp shout sounds as Riyadh screams about the perceived unfairness of his lost inheritance rights.
Annabelle dismisses his complaints with cold logic, suggesting he take his grievances up with the law before questioning his next move.
A quick, rhythmic topping sounds as Riyadh retreats in a desperate, cowardly panic. Aaron and Annabelle wonder if more attackers from the Marquis family await them. A quiet, airy laugh sounds as Aaron offers some dry, ironic encouragement for her big day. A soft, quick snap sounds as he offers a warm, supportive smile.
Annabelle reflects on the character of her family members and decides there is no need to refuse the recognition.
In a lighthearted moment, Aaron shares his recent efforts to master the art of hiding his presence.
A sudden bright chime sounds as they joke about a mischievous plan to humiliate Ian later.
As they pass through the market, Annabelle begins a serious, pensive question regarding Aaron's past. She questions why he avoids participating in swordsmanship tournaments despite his clear ability. Aaron considers his skill level realistically, admitting he doesn't want to waste energy on a predictable outcome.
He reflects on his humble personal goals and his satisfaction with his current role as a knight.
A soft, quick snap sounds as Aaron admits he finds great joy in having a new reason to tease his lord. He laments her recent absence from training, suggesting the future of the Knight Order looks bleak without her. A quiet, airy laugh sounds as they share a playful moment, with Annabelle offering to teach him a few things. Annabelle cherishes the feeling of true friendship, finding comfort in chatting with someone her own age.
A warm, comfortable sense of peace washes over her as she walks.
The two finally reach the grand venue for the upcoming ceremony. A soft, quick grab sounds as Aaron prepares to formally escort her inside. They share a final pleasant exchange, promising to meet for tea soon. Aaron bids her a cheerful farewell as she enters the building. A formal attendant leads Annabelle toward the main stage for the official proceedings. A steady, rhythmic clicking sounds from her heels as she makes a confident stride toward her destiny. Annabelle anticipates the finalization of her status and the financial independence it will bring. A soft, quick snap sounds as she resolves to cut ties with her past life once her goal is achieved. The official retirement ceremony for the High Priest begins before a large audience. Guests take notice of her stunning transformation, whispering about how much better she looks when she isn't frowning. They speculate that her newfound poise comes from no longer needing to worry about tournaments. Cynical observers interpret her social connections as calculated political maneuvering. Ian questions the rumors of her romance, appearing visibly uncomfortable with the gossip. The discussion among the nobles reinforces the idea that she and the prince are getting along quite well. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as a shocking new possibility of marriage enters the conversation. Ian struggles to remain composed as the guests suggest there is nothing stopping a potential union. He is teased for his sour mood and strange expression during the happy event. Ian is criticized for his lack of spirit and uninteresting demeanor in such a moment. He remains frozen in a state of mortified shock as the conversation continues around him.
Leslie finds the situation slightly amusing while Ian remains skeptical of her sense of humor.
Leslie inquires about Ian's plans after the ceremony, but he dismisses it as a simple social gathering.
She doesn't believe his vague answer, suspecting he is hiding the true nature of his appointment.
A memory resurfaces of the High Priest asking Ian for a favor concerning a dangerous location involving black magic.
The High Priest emphasizes that he isn't asking for personal support, but for help for the sake of the world.
Ian reflects on his choice to assist for the sake of justice, yet wonders why things feel so awkward now.
Back in the present, the High Priest announces the commencement of the final paternity test.
The procedure is explained. A successful match is confirmed if a divine halo appears over both individuals. Gathering the last of his divine power, the old priest prepares to initiate the sacred ritual.
Annabelle and the Marquis stand together as the priest prepares to reveal the words of the holiest deity.
A sudden, sharp chime sounds as the ritual reaches its peak, but the expected outcome is interrupted. Swirling dark clouds and celestial light fill Annabelle's vision as the scene shifts dramatically. A divine decree manifests before her, naming her as the chosen child. Annabelle is bewildered, questioning if this revelation is truly part of the paternity test. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as she finds herself lifted into the massive, glowing hands of a deity.
Confused, she demands to know the true meaning of being chosen by the divine.
The divine voice explains that her life was upended for a higher purpose she is only now beginning to grasp.
She wonders if this divine intervention is linked to the memories of her past life.
A startling realization dawns on her that her reincarnation was an intentional act of the divine. The deity reveals that she was made to remember her past life because she is needed to save this world.
Annabelle is skeptical, recalling that the original story followed Ian and the designated heroine's path.
A vision of the original story's protagonists appears, highlighting the intended path she has diverged from. She worries about the consequences of recklessly altering the future she once knew. A soft, quick hum sounds as she contemplates the weight of her current situation. Annabelle questions her own necessity, but the divine voice insists the world requires her unique help.
The deity clarifies that the main characters alone are not enough to ensure the world's survival.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the voice warns that the novel's end is not the true end of the world.
She is shocked, having always believed the original story concluded with a happy ending.
A grim vision of future threats shows that evil cannot be fully eliminated by the current heroes alone.
Curious about the root of the problem, she asks the deity about the true origin of black magic.
Dark seals and ancient skulls appear as the deity explains that evil beings from other worlds are the source.
The deity admits even a god cannot pinpoint the origin, while Annabelle notes this was absent from the original story.
The divine book reveals that these tragic cycles continue as evil entities move between worlds. Only Annabelle, having reincarnated from another world, possesses the power to identify and destroy these threats.
A sudden, sharp shout sounds as Annabelle tries to catch the fading divine voice as it mentions 3 origins.
A sudden, bright chime sounds as a blinding light marks the end of her celestial vision.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Annabelle snaps back to reality, breathless from the encounter.
Her first priority is to discover the results of the paternity test that were supposed to be finalized.
The Marquis stares at his empty hands in a state of pure, horrified shock.
The High Priest and Annabelle look on with stunned expressions as the ritual's end leaves them speechless.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the crowd realizes with horror that the divine halos have completely vanished.
Panic and confusion spread through the audience as they wonder what went wrong with the ceremony.
The Marquis is devastated, his face contorted in a mask of silent, overwhelming despair.
Annabelle and the High Priest remain frozen, unable to process the immediate implications of the failed test.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the shocking truth ripples through the hall. She is not his daughter.
A narration explains that the Marquis believed Caitlin had been faithful during their long-term relationship.
He had never suspected her and provided significant wealth based on his belief in her loyalty.
Annabelle is in disbelief, suddenly noticing that her hair color is indeed distinct from the Abettes family.
She reflects on how she previously attributed the difference to her mother's red hair.
A heavy realization settles in as she understands that the truth of her lineage is far more complicated.
Annabelle is paralyzed by the sudden revelation, questioning the truth of her own identity. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as a woman's mouth hangs open in utter disbelief at the ritual's failure.
The High Priest demands an explanation for the bizarre outcome while Annabelle ponders the mystery of her missing lineage.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as a purple-haired woman in green stares at the stage in horrified realization.
She trembles in shock, whispering to herself that this outcome is impossible.
A memory of a public hospital surfaces where 2 baby girls with similar features were born on the same day.
The narration recalls a woman named Ranella who was desperate for money and dreamed of becoming a wealthy doctor.
The woman in green remembers when Ranella quit and left, assuming it was due to the tragic death of her child. A terrifying suspicion takes root in her mind as she wonders if Ranella committed a heinous act that day.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Aaron rushes to support his father, who collapses from the emotional weight of the test.
A sudden, quick thud sounds as the woman in green falls to the floor, her voice cracking as she calls out to the mother.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as the woman, identified as Marilyn, collapses directly before the High Priest.
She pleads desperately with the priest to conduct a second paternity test immediately. A sudden, quick thud sounds as Marilyn grips her chest, begging for the sake of herself and Annabelle.
Annabelle looks down in confusion, wondering why Miss Marilyn is reacting so strongly to her situation.
The High Priest tries to soothe her, urging her to regain her composure and stand up. Marilyn explains the coincidence of their births and suggests Caitlin swap the children to secure the Marquise's wealth.
A sudden, soft whimper sounds as Marilyn is overcome by a fit of sobbing. The High Priest apologizes, explaining that such a divine ritual consumes too much power to be repeated so soon.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Marilyn's face contorts in a mask of pure, unadulterated agony.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Marilyn's despair fills the room, leaving Annabelle and the priest speechless.
Marilyn cries out that her heart is in too much pain to endure this uncertainty. A sudden, sharp grab sounds as Marilyn reaches out to grasp Annabelle's hands with desperate strength.
Marilyn declares that a test is unnecessary and begs Annabelle to become her daughter regardless of blood. She offers to officially add Annabelle to her own family register through adoption.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Annabelle urges her to calm down, noting that her theory is currently only a suspicion.
Marilyn refuses to back down, certain that Caitlin and Ranella deserve divine punishment for their crimes.
Annabelle considers the grim possibility that she was the child meant to replace the Marquis' deceased daughter.
Marilyn continues her emotional plea, her eyes brimming with tears as she looks at Annabelle.
Annabelle hesitates, unwilling to make a life-altering decision that Marilyn might regret once the shock fades.
She reflects on how Marilyn has always been sincere and shared her deepest secrets with her. A soft, quick snap sounds as Annabelle grips her dress, struggling with the weight of the woman's offer.
A young apprentice priestess hesitates nearby, watching the intense emotional scene unfold.
A soft, heavy thud sounds as the apprentice tentatively approaches the center of the stage. Annabelle is struck by the girl's appearance, finding her oddly familiar as she looks closer. She realizes with a shock that this girl is Cecianne Real-Life, the original heroine from the novel she remembers. Cecianne introduces herself as a mere apprentice who nonetheless possesses a significant amount of divine power. Annabelle surprises her by immediately stating that she believes in the girl's abilities.
Cecianne is momentarily stunned, wondering why someone of Annabelle's status would trust her so easily.
The two women lock eyes as the crowd watches the unexpected encounter in silence.
A narration confirms that in the original story, Cecianne's divine power was said to surpass even that of the high priest.
A sudden, quick grab sounds as a hand is offered to bridge the gap between them for the ritual.
Cecianne expresses her heartfelt thanks to Annabelle for trusting her nonsensical-sounding claim.
Marilyn watches with tearful, bated breath as Annabelle and the apprentice prepare to take action. A sudden, bright chime sounds as a new divine halo begins to manifest around Cecianne and the two women.
A sudden, airy whisper sounds as a divine voice promises to grant Annabelle her truest desire.
The celestial presence confirms that it will provide exactly what she has been seeking. A sudden, soft rustle sounds as golden butterflies and flowers bloom around the glowing participants.
A sudden, bright chime sounds as Annabelle closes her eyes, bathed in the warmth of a successful ritual.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as the crowd, including Aaron and Ian, reacts with pure shock to the miraculous display.
Marilyn cries out in sheer, world-shattering shock.
The Marquis reels back in silent, horrified disbelief.
Annabelle stares ahead as she processes this sudden, cruel twist of fate.
She reflects on how she always truly wanted a bond with her family.
She realizes her entire life was a lie spent being abused by people who were never her kin. A boiling rage begins to consume her entire being.
Marilyn falls to her knees, cursing the wretched woman named Ranella.
Annabelle demands to know the current whereabouts of that one.
Marilyn reveals that Ranella sold her house and fled the capital only a week ago. She realized the woman must have escaped the moment she heard about the paternity test.
The memory of Riyadh's strange behavior this morning finally makes perfect sense to her.
She previously mistook his anxiety for tournament nerves, but now she knows the truth.
He was actually terrified that their long-held secret was about to be exposed.
Annabelle reasons that if Riyadh had warned Caitlin, she would have fled alongside Ranella.
She prepares to take matters into her own hands.
Riyadh was likely liquidating his assets to prepare for his own disappearance. Marilyn laments that Caitlin died too easily after enjoying a life built on the pain of others. Annabelle stands amidst mocking blue flowers, her resolve hardening into a cold edge. She vows to never offer forgiveness to those who stole her life. She apologizes to Lady Marilyn before turning away to settle her own scores.
Annabelle briefly considers a lethal end before deciding it is better to hunt him down first.
She bolts from the ceremony hall as Marilyn calls out her name in despair.
Marilyn reaches out, screaming for her baby as Annabelle disappears into the distance.
Leslie watches the heartbreaking scene while wondering where Annabelle is heading in such a rush. Leslie insists on following her, but Ian stops her from leaving the hall. Aaron declares he will follow his sister while the others care for their fainted father.
Aaron is surprised when Ian suddenly steps forward to take the lead.
Ian explains that only he has the speed to catch Annabelle and orders Aaron to assist his parents.
Aaron is momentarily moved by how much Ian seems to value him as a lieutenant.
Aaron asks to be taken to the dress shop to wait there with his family. Ian promises to bring Annabelle back safely as he prepares to give chase. He sprints away, completely disregarding his urgent appointment with Prince Robert.
Finding and protecting Annabelle is now his absolute and only priority.
Annabelle slams open the door to Riyadh's room with a thunderous shout.
She stands in the doorway, panting from the effort of her desperate search.
She curses the coward Riyadh as she finds the room completely deserted.
The realization hits that he knew all along she was just a replacement child. She finds her own living quarters have been ransacked and looted of everything valuable. Her hand trembles as she grips the handle of an empty wardrobe. She realizes he even stole the dresses Marilyn had painstakingly crafted specifically for her. The theft cuts deep, as those clothes were the only gifts from her true mother. She reflects on how Caitlin and Riyadh shamelessly feasted while she was deprived of her real parents. The many strange occurrences of her childhood finally begin to align in her mind. She notes that she shared no traits with the Abidas family and recalls Ranella's previous fright.
She laughs bitterly at how foolishly she believed their lies for 22 years.
Her frustration peaks because she cannot kill the woman who is already dead. Annabelle tells the memory of her tormentors not to worry as she prepares herself.
She chooses to wear the clothes Marilyn bought, shedding her former identity once and for all.
She grips the hilt of a dark sword, ready to hunt the man who stole her peace. Armed and determined, Annabelle stands ready to face the truth and her enemies. She vows to make her enemies pay for every injustice they inflicted. The scene shifts to a quiet, unassuming shop nestled in the city. The shopkeeper explains that Lord Riyadh has already liquidated his accounts and paid his exit fees. Annabelle fumes, realizing the coward stole every possible asset before fleeing.
She recalls a prior conversation about a slave dealer's hideout as a likely refuge for Riyadh.
She remembers the original story mentioned a secret base beneath the Ronapodia General Store.
A sudden, quick grab sounds as a hand tightens around Annabelle's wrist, stopping her in her tracks. She whirls around in shock to find Ian standing there, gasping for air. Ian expresses his intense relief at finding her after she vanished with such a haunting expression. Annabelle is momentarily stunned by the depth of the concern in his eyes. Ian quickly pivots, claiming it was actually the Rainfield family who was desperately worried about her.
Annabelle asks if the Marquis is recovered after his emotional collapse at the temple.
Ian urges her to set aside her immediate pursuit and return to the family that loves her.
She insists that she must track down and punish Riyadh before he can vanish completely.
Ian asks if she has considered the heartache her disappearance is causing Marilyn and her true father.
His words echo in her mind, forcing her to confront the impact of her actions. Annabelle hesitates, her voice trailing off as she realizes the weight of her choice. Ian places a supportive hand on her shoulder, clarifying that he doesn't want her to forego her revenge.
He simply asks her to offer them a moment of peace and reassurance before she leaves again.
She remains silent, the internal conflict visible on her face as she considers his plea.
They sit by the water as Ian acknowledges that her strength is more than enough to handle Riyadh.
He offers the full support of the Waydross family if the hunt proves too difficult for one person.
Annabelle recoils in alarm when he promises to track Riyadh's every move.
She panics internally, remembering that following Riyadh's trail led to her imprisonment in the original novel. A sudden, sharp thud sounds as she stands up, fiercely rejecting his offer of assistance. She lashes out at him, mocking his cautious nature and dismissing his involvement entirely.
Ian retorts that he is only helping because the Rainfields are close allies of his own household.
A sudden, sharp snap sounds as the air crackles with the familiar tension of their rivalry.
Ian sighs in defeat, agreeing to abandon the pursuit and stick to their original roles.
A soft, heavy thud sounds as he directs her toward the boutique where her family is waiting. Annabelle asks why he believes he is the only one capable of finding her in this world.
He looks at her steadily, confident in a skill that transcends mere tracking.
She questions his arrogance, wondering how he could possibly locate her in such a sprawling capital.
Ian explains that 8 years of constant dueling has made him intimately familiar with her presence.
A narration reflects on how their bond has remained the one constant through years of upheaval.
Annabelle looks at him with a newfound sense of clarity and softening resentment.
She asserts her independence, telling him she knows the way and he should mind his own business.
Ian insists on accompanying her, reminding her of the promise he made to her brother, Aaron. Annabelle blushes as she sarcastically asks if he's acting like her lover now.
A sudden, soft tap sounds as she begins to walk away, trying to regain her composure.
She pauses to offer a sincere thanks for his concern and the advice he provided.
Ian is left speechless, his face flushing at her unexpected change in tone.
A sudden, quick rustle sounds as Annabelle bolts toward the boutique to meet her family.
Ian watches her retreating figure, whispering a soft acknowledgement of her gratitude.
He reflects on how rare it is for them to have a conversation that doesn't involve insults.
A sudden, soft whimper sounds as he covers his face, overwhelmed by a sudden surge of embarrassment. He regrets not being more helpful and laments his clumsy behavior whenever she is around.
A sudden, airy whisper sounds as he shakes his head, determined to focus on his actual mission.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Ian turns away, steeling himself for the dangerous night ahead.
The grand architecture of the city stands tall under the clear afternoon sky.
Annabelle arrives at the boutique, hesitating before the grand entrance.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as she takes a deep breath and pushes the doors open.
Aaron is startled by her sudden appearance and warmly welcomes her as his sister.
He explains he was just about to search for her, fearing a conflict with Ian.
Aaron playfully assumes her solitary return confirms a falling out with the Duke.
Annabelle humbles herself, admitting she chose to return alone after a reality check.
Aaron rejects her modest comparison, suggesting she is a much more formidable predator.
He asks why she was lingering outside, and she struggles to find an answer.
A sudden, airy whisper sounds as she admits her uncertainty, while Aaron encourages her sincerity.
Annabelle considers his advice, wondering how to speak from her hurt.
Aaron apologizes for his prior ignorance regarding the depth of her personal suffering.
Annabelle reflects on how she once expected to inherit everything from her false family. A sudden sharp thud sounds as Aaron reacts with comedic shock to her mention of inheritance.
A sudden, soft creak sounds as a hand pauses on the door handle. Marilyn enters looking absolutely mortified that inheritance was her daughter's first greeting. Marilyn laments that Caitlin's influence has deeply poisoned their potential relationship. The boutique's grand interior sparkles under the light of a magnificent chandelier.
A sudden, soft sigh sounds as the fainted Marquis laments the hardships his daughter endured.
Marilyn recalls how Annabelle's beauty made her popular even in a difficult upbringing.
She explains that she has been quietly watching over Annabelle for many years.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Annabelle is crushed by the shame of her past.
Marilyn weeps, blaming herself for not recognizing her own child sooner.
Annabelle tries to comfort her, claiming she was also unfit as a daughter.
A sudden, loud bang sounds as Aaron slams his fist down in fierce disagreement.
Marilyn passionately insists that no child is ever unfit in the eyes of a parent.
She declares that Annabelle's simple existence is more than enough to them.
Annabelle is momentarily stunned by the power of her mother's unconditional love.
Marilyn reiterates that just being alive and present is the greatest gift. She continues to express her deep, unwavering pride in her precious child.
Aaron warmly confirms his acceptance of her as his one and only sister.
He reassures her that any past strange behavior is of no concern to him.
Aaron recounts his own childhood neglect and his eventual path to a better household.
He credits his time with the Waydross family for making him a functional person.
Marilyn notes Aaron's own oddities before praising Annabelle's incredible skill as a swordsman.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Marilyn reaches out to tenderly stroke Annabelle's hair.
She affirms that her pride in her daughter transcends any rank or achievement.
Marilyn cherishes the simple fact that Annabelle is standing right before her.
Annabelle is overcome with emotion, finally feeling the love of a real mother.
Narration reflects on how her former family always made her feel like a failure.
She recalls believing she was nothing more than an insignificant, cowardly villain.
Marilyn pulls her into a warm embrace, grieving for the suffering her daughter endured.
A sudden, soft whimper sounds as Annabelle finally releases her tears into her mother's arms.
Marilyn expresses her profound gratitude for the many years they have ahead together.
She admits her deep anxiety when Annabelle first bolted from the ceremony.
Marilyn feared Annabelle was disappointed to discover her father was not a noble. A sudden, soft gasp sounds as Marilyn admits she feared losing her daughter forever.
Annabelle quickly and firmly denies that she felt any such disappointment. Marilyn blames her own foolishness for involving the woman named Renelle in their past. A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Annabelle recognizes the name of her former tormentor.
Marilyn explains how Renelle's long-standing jealousy and resentment fueled her alliance with Caitlin.
Marilyn laments that Renelle likely began her schemes at that very moment.
Annabelle reassures her mother that she no longer needs to carry such heavy guilt.
Marilyn expresses the pain of feeling like a failure for losing her child at birth.
Annabelle quickly rejects the idea of her mother being a sinful person. She takes Marilyn's hand, hopeful that they can still build a life together.
Annabelle declares she must catch Riyadh immediately to stop him from escaping justice.
Aaron frantically warns her that Riyadh is dangerous and demands to know her plan.
He suggests asking Ian for help, but Annabelle immediately and fiercely shuts him down.
Annabelle insists on finishing this today, forcing Aaron to demand he accompany her.
Marilyn decides that if the mission is dangerous, Aaron must go to protect his sister.
Aaron enthusiastically agrees to the duty of protecting his new sister.
Annabelle reminds them that her swordsmanship skills are actually superior to Aaron's.
Marilyn becomes terrifyingly firm, stating she is only allowing this because of Annabelle's skill.
Marilyn asks for the specific location of the pursuit, catching Annabelle off guard. Aaron tries to signal his sister while Marilyn waits for a truthful answer.
Annabelle lies, claiming the target is just a cowardly man at a simple shop.
Marilyn regards her daughter with a sharp and skeptical glare. Annabelle asks if she would lie, while Aaron remains visibly nervous in the background.
Aaron vows to prove his worth through action, overjoyed to have a sister.
Annabelle questions his happiness, recalling her past hostility toward his knightly order.
Aaron dismisses the past and mentions that Ian has been sulking in her absence.
Annabelle is baffled by the news of Ian's mood, which Aaron cannot explain.
She eventually concedes and agrees to let Aaron join her on the hunt.
Marilyn strokes her daughter's face, wishing she could spend the night bonding with her. She notes the intense fire of revenge burning clearly in Annabelle's eyes. A moment of somber silence settles as Marilyn watches her daughter prepare to leave.
Annabelle claims she lacks her mother's refinement, but Marilyn questions her self-deprecation.
Marilyn erupts in a comedic fury against Renelle, proving their shared temperament to Annabelle.
Marilyn offers her understanding, while Annabelle expresses her long-standing hatred for her former family.
Annabelle promises to return within 6 hours as she heads out for the night.
The city skyline glows under the fading light of a late afternoon sky. Dressed in dark cloaks, Aaron asks for the specifics of their impending infiltration.
Annabelle reveals the shop's basement houses an illegal slave auction involving dark magic.
She clarifies the nature of the magic, much to Aaron's relief regarding the target.
Aaron is horrified, assuming she intends to use the slaves for her own ends.
Annabelle takes offense at the assumption, while Aaron notes she isn't exactly a hero.
She admits he knows her well, noting that noble heroics are Ian's specialty. Aaron assumes the plan is a simple stealth mission, but Annabelle's smile suggests otherwise.
The Ronopodia General Store stands quietly, hiding its dark secrets beneath the surface.
Annabelle explains that Riyadh is likely hiding with the owner, his close associate.
She plans to posing as buyers while using masks to hide their true identities.
Aaron finds their first sibling bonding activity through illegal means surprisingly entertaining.
They joke about their influences, with Annabelle glad Aaron was raised by the Waydrosses.
Annabelle outlines her plan to kidnap the owner and extract Riyadh's location through threats.
Aaron happily accepts the criminal plan as a standard way to handle the situation. He briefly considers his nightly duties before agreeing to delay reporting the store.
Annabelle declares this mission their little secret as they move toward the entrance. Aaron asks where they will obtain the necessary masks for the auction.
Annabelle gestures to the shop, suggesting they take advantage of its regular inventory. Erin is momentarily stunned by her practical approach to the problem.
The shopkeeper sharpens racks. A sudden, loud bang sounds as Annabelle provides the correct code for entry.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as the shopkeeper reacts to their unexpected arrival.
She offers a warm welcome.
The shopkeeper offers to guide them to the seeps.
A sudden, rhythmic tap sounds as they descend into the store's dark basement.
Erin finds the code simple, but Annabelle explains it changes based on the shopkeeper's apron color.
Erin admits he is excited to visit such a shady place for the first time. He feels his horizons are broadening, while Annabelle remains skeptical of his enthusiasm.
Narration explains Robert originally discovered this code after a very long pursuit.
Cicienne discovered a secret message from Robert's men shortly after becoming an apprentice saint.
The message requested divine power to suppress black magic, seeking those with a righteous will. Cicienne is struck by the call for a righteous will.
She decides to use her hidden divine power for good and contacts Robert's men.
Robert's men kept their identities secret.
The Grand Temple stands in shadow.
Annabelle recalls how Cicienne rescued Ian from black magic inside the illegal market.
They successfully overturned the auction house but failed to capture the true owner, Moriot. Annabelle vows to find and deal with Moriot herself, regardless of the original plot.
Erin notices her sudden intensity, and Annabelle quickly tries to play it down.
She asks him if he has found a job. Erin rejects joining the family business, preferring to forge his own path.
Erin explains he is interested in finding love but hasn't met the right person.
He notes that most people only value him for the Rainfield family fortune.
Erin clarifies he wants a partner who sees beyond his family's vast wealth.
Annabelle laughs and promises she will immediately know if a girl is right for him. They arrive at a Masson tour.
The bouncer welcomes them and requests an entrance fee of 5 gold per 5 cents.
Annabelle is internally horrified by the exorbitant cost of entering the auction. She coughs and tries to get Erin to pay the fee.
Annabelle realizes neither of them is carrying the necessary 10 gold for admission.
She scolds Erin for being a noble son without any cash on his person.
Annabelle is outraged when Erin suggests using a promissory note at a criminal auction.
Erin jokingly notes that Annabelle won't have to worry about competing for inheritance rights. Annabelle reflects on Ian's incredible patience for keeping someone like Erin as a deputy.
A sudden wet sneeze sounds as Ian denies having a cold while on a mission elsewhere. The bouncer becomes suspicious after they fail to produce the required entry fee. He declares they are not ordinary customers and begins manifesting magical power. Annabelle identifies the bouncer's black magic as Erin marvels at seeing it for the first time.
Annabelle recognizes the spell that struck Ian in the original story, knowing only divine power cures it.
A sudden loud roar sounds as the bouncer launches a lethal magical attack.
Annabelle notes the bouncer recognized a stronger opponent before launching her own counterattack.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Annabelle delivers a swift and powerful kick.
A sudden sharp crack sounds as she mocks the effectiveness of the bouncer's magic.
The bouncer's magic begins to dissipate.
Erin shouts in alarm as the residual black magic swirls dangerously around Annabelle.
Annabelle explains the black magic returns like a boomerang, just as it did to Ian.
She notes the magic will disappear instantly if they successfully avoid its return flight.
Erin screams for his sister as the situation becomes critical.
A sudden heavy thud sounds as Erin rushes to shield Annabelle from the magical fallout.
A sudden soft gasp sounds as Annabelle stares in complete disbelief and shock.
A sudden loud shout sounds as Annabelle screams Erin's name after he takes a lethal hit for her.
The credits appear over a floor heavily stained with splashes of blood. Narisha notes that until now, she had never imagined anyone would sacrifice themselves for her.
A sudden, sharp gasp sounds as Annabelle watches the crackling dark magic swirl around her brother.
A sudden, heavy thud sounds as Erin collapses to the floor, his mask flying off in the impact.
Narration observes that she has once again acted in a way that defies all common sense.
Annabelle holds Erin, frantically asking why he threw himself in the path of such dangerous dark magic.
She panics, noting even divine power struggles to heal this and questioning why he protected her when she is stronger.
Erin weakly jokes about spending his next 20 years serving a deity after 20 years with his parents.
Marilyn's voice echoes in Annabelle's mind, speaking of the unbearable pain of losing a child before her time.
Annabelle erupts in fury, demanding to know what nonsense he is speaking and what he could possibly want. She firmly declares she will save him no matter what, ordering him not to say anything that sounds like a last will.
Erin offers a faint, gentle smile and thanks her while calling her his older sister.
Annabelle realizes that by following her and taking the hit, he has proven himself to be her true sibling.
A moment of desperate resolve passes as she refuses to lose him in such a place. Helping him to his feet, Annabelle promises to save him because they haven't even had a meal as a full family yet.
She promises to spend the rest of her life doing whatever he wants in return for his sacrifice today.
Erin requests that she peel his shrimp shells for the rest of her life as he finds the task incredibly annoying.
He jokes about extending the promise to all crustaceans, which Annabelle confirms with a determined promise.
A sudden rhythmic tap sounds as a mysterious hooded figure approaches them down the dimly lit hallway.
Aaron tries to offer protection despite his state, while Annabelle is struck by the familiarity of the figure's presence.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds from a pair of polished shoes as the figure comes to a halt.
Annabelle is stunned to find the Saintess Cecienne standing before them, hidden under a dark hood and mask.
Cecienne addresses the pair with a calm and observant tone. She questions if they are customers and notes that they seem to have been injured by the auction house stuff.
Annabelle unmasks and introduces herself as Annabelle Rainfield, reminding Cecienne of their paternity test earlier that day.
Cecienne is visibly surprised, wondering how she could be recognized despite wearing her mask.
Cecienne explains her ability to vaguely sense a person's aura, but Annabelle insists that is not important right now.
Annabelle urgently explains that her brother was hit by dark magic and begs to know if divine power can heal him.
She pleads for help, admitting she feels ashamed to keep relying on the Saintess, but has no other choice.
Cecienne immediately and warmly dismisses the idea of Annabelle being a birdman.
Cecienne steps forward with a determined expression, promising to figure out a way to save him.
A sudden soft hum sounds as divine light pours from Cecine's hands and into Aaron. The dark magic staining Aaron's face begins to dissolve and vanish under the holy light.
Annabelle watches the process with an expression of intense worry and relief.
Cecienne steps back and announces that she believes the treatment is finally complete.
She asks Aaron if his body feels okay, confirming that the healing process has been successful.
Aaron smiles brightly and thanks her, stating that he feels perfectly fine now. Cecienne notes that his hands were quite warm, causing Aaron to react with a startled gasp. Cecienne bashfully apologizes for holding his hand without permission, explaining it was necessary for the healing. Aaron looks at her with a gentle and warm smile.
Cecienne explains she felt a duty to come here and save Aaron, feeling as though it was her true purpose.
She adds she was guided there to help someone stop the dark magic, which leaves Annabelle baffled.
Annabelle realizes Cecienne's sense of justice is actually tied to Robert and Ian, not just her brother.
Cecienne offers a knowing smile as Annabelle begins to piece together the connection.
Annabelle feels a sudden wave of confusion, sensing that the situation is unfolding in an unexpected way.
Annabelle invites the Saintess to go inside with them, secretly planning to introduce her to Ian later.
Narration explains the staff will keep this quiet to protect their business, allowing Ian and Cecienne to meet.
Cecienne wishes her luck in achieving her goal, leaving Annabelle staring in complete confusion.
Cecienne states she has fulfilled her role according to her beliefs and plans to return to the temple.
Annabelle panics, realizing that in the original stories, Cecienne was supposed to join them and worries about needing future help for dark magic.
Aaron tells Annabelle she is speaking as if she intends to burden herself again, to which she quickly and loudly objects.
Cecienne politely declines the offer to join, stating that while she would be honored, she does not think she can.
Annabelle reacts with a sudden, soft gasp.
Cecienne explains that she lacks combat abilities and would only be a burden if she followed them.
Cecienne warns that unless they destroy the origin of dark magic, they will continue to encounter its victims, prompting a confused question from Aaron.
Cecienne explains that the origin is a wicked object from another world that disguises itself as ordinary items or living things to remain hidden.
Cecienne notes they will eventually have to fight those who have sold their souls to dark magic, and Aaron solemnly agrees.
Cecienne encourages them on their difficult path and promises her prayers, causing Aaron to call out to her.
Aaron expresses a desire to return the favor since she has done so much for his family.
Cecienne becomes bashful, explaining she still lives at the temple but will soon be an official Saintess.
Cecienne mentions her upcoming freedom in the evenings and lack of social plans, leading Aaron to suggest a meeting for tomorrow.
Cecienne offers a final farewell as Aaron tells her to be careful. Annabelle is stunned that Aaron scheduled a date in 10 minutes when it took Ian a year, while Aaron waves goodbye happily. Annabelle prepares to re-enter the mission as she picks up her discarded mask.
Annabelle puts her flowered mask back on.
Standing before a massive entrance, Aaron asks if they have reached the black market, and Annabelle confirms they have.
Annabelle decides they should open the door and proceed inside. A sudden loud creak sounds as the heavy doors are pushed open. Aaron reacts with a sudden sharp gasp, asking his sister what they are looking at. Aaron stares in shock, asking once again what on earth is happening before them.
Annabelle warns him to hide his reaction because of the numerous managers watching them from every corner.
Peering through her mask, Annabelle finds the inner chamber even more horrifying than she had previously imagined. A masked manager hands them a document, inviting them to look around and contact staff if any product interests them. They both fall into a grim silence as they begin to review the catalog.
Aaron notes the place sells supplies but specifies an auction is required for purchasing high-end slaves.
Aaron is visibly revolted, stating that he never expected things to be this unimaginably terrible.
Annabelle agrees as they overhear staff promoting a buy one, get one free deal on human lives.
Annabelle worries that Ian, who views himself poorly, will inevitably succumb to dark magic upon entering this place.
A sudden rhythmic tap sounds as Cecienne departs, leaving Annabelle to note that his potential savior is gone.
Annabelle wonders if she is truly the only person capable of preventing Ian's dark magic downfall.
A sudden, loud creak sounds as Annabelle pushes open yet another door. Annabelle and Aaron are shocked to find Robert and Ian already inside and waiting for them.
Aaron is confused by her reaction as Annabelle lets out a sudden, sharp gasp.
Annabelle rushes forward, questioning if she even has a legitimate reason to intervene and save Ian.
She recalls Ian advising her to have proper conversations and ease her heart before moving on.
Annabelle resolves that she cannot become ungrateful trash and must take action. Annabelle worries that they will think she has completely lost her mind.
She decides it doesn't matter since she has always been considered crazy anyway. Annabelle suddenly latches onto Ian's arm and affectionately calls him honey. Ian is utterly bewildered, shouting a question about why she is there. A sudden rhythmic tap sounds as a tall, hooded figure approaches the group. Robert unmasks and notes their tardiness, asking what delayed them. Ian bows deeply in apology, claiming that he simply got a bit lost on the way.
Robert looks at him with disbelief, finding it highly surprising that someone like Ian would get lost.
A manager bows to them and encourages the group to enjoy their time at the market.
Robert notes that the slave market operates roughly every 10 days and that the other guests are already bidding. Robert explains the auction features slaves who have lost their will, illustrated by a man depicted as a puppet. Ian asks for clarification on the auctioning of people, which Robert confirms is the main event of the black market. Robert explains the necessity of participating in the auction to target the masters of dark magic. Ian listens in grim silence as they prepare to infiltrate the market. Robert advises Ian that undercover investigations require enduring a great deal of unpleasantness.
Robert laments how the concept of slavery has become strangely normalized among the people.
Ian agrees, noting he does not recall such a word even existing when he was younger. Robert believes the Imperial Crown Prince is backing the operation and aims to find the proof.
Robert vows to shut down the capital's largest black market regardless of their primary mission's success.
Ian begins to respond, but a sudden rhythmic tap sounds as someone approaches them.
A woman passes them as a sudden, sharp tap sounds from her hurried footsteps. Ian watches her depart, wondering if she was merely a customer who came to observe.
Robert notes that even ordinary women are visiting alone, signaling the deep normalization of slavery.
Robert reveals he secretly sought assistance from the temple in case of an emergency.
Ian questions the unofficial nature of the request, which Robert defends as a necessary precaution. Robert explains that any information leaked from the temple would serve as a crucial clue for them.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as they discover a man collapsed and unattended on the floor.
Ian notes the absence of a gatekeeper and grows suspicious of the situation.
Ian observes the victim was incapacitated with a single familiar strike to a vital point.
Ian reacts with a sudden, sharp gasp as a realization strikes in. He questions if Annabelle could be responsible for the attack on the guard.
Ian quickly dismisses the thought, assuming she is currently safe at home with her family.
Robert hums in contemplation while observing the unconscious man.
Robert notes they are the first to find the victim and suggests they keep moving.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Robert decides they should blend in to avoid suspicion.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Robert and Ian enter the main auction hall.
Ian is horrified to see people being displayed and treated like common merchandise. Clenching his fist, Ian declares the sight of a woman in a purple hood suddenly grabs Ian's arm with a cheerful sound.
Ian is stunned to recognize Annabelle and asks her what on earth she is doing there.
Annabelle compliments his physique and claims to prefer him over any of the slaves on display. Annabelle tells him not to be angry as a sudden, sharp tap sounds from her touch.
Annabelle suggests that spending more time together might make her his preferred type.
A moment of quiet tension passes as the scene shifts abruptly.
Annabelle continues her flirtatious act, wondering aloud if she will eventually become his type.
Ian reacts with a startled shout of pure shock at her unexpected behavior. The scene shifts to the background where several staff members are watching the pair closely. A sudden, soft gasp sounds as Annabelle leads Ian away from the prying eyes of the guards.
Annabelle lets out a quiet sigh of relief, glad to have escaped the manager's notice.
Ian is bewildered as Annabelle affectionately calls him honey once again to maintain their cover.
Annabelle chides him for reaching for his sword and warns him to mind his facial expressions.
Ian clears his throat and asks if she was responsible for the guard at the door. Annabelle cheerfully confirms she took the guard out with a single, well-placed tap.
Annabelle offers to take care of him and suggests they browse for slave stevetter.
Annabelle offers to ask the price for him, leaving Ian in speechless disbelief. Annabelle hums softly as she considers another way to satisfy his needs. Annabelle suggests going to a dessert shop afterward to share her favorite strawberry cake.
Ian stares at her in silence, prompting her to ask if he dislikes strawberries.
Annabelle offers to get extra syrup for his pancakes instead as Ian trembles in shock.
Ian reluctantly agrees to hang out, leading Annabelle to tease him for playing hard to get.
Annabelle lets out a nervous, soft gasp as she continues her performance.
Annabelle stands with a questioning expression as a rabbit mask floats above her ad.
Annabelle explains her smokescreen strategy, pretending to be an annoying girl clinging to Ian to mask his obvious disgust.
Aaron is highly impressed by her tactical mind, even offering to recommend her as chief strategist for their order.
Robert chuckles at Ian's poor acting skills, noting he is too honest to hide his disdain for the slave market.
Annabelle sighs as she resolves to keep up her annoying act just to ensure Ian doesn't get caught.
Annabelle tells Ian they must stay together to avoid suspicion, though she acknowledges he likely hates the idea.
Annabelle warns Ian that the managers here use dark magic, a force that leaves no room for error.
Annabelle emphasizes that even typical holy powers are useless against dark magic and asks if he is listening.
A quiet realization dawns that a debt of gratitude is owed to Annabelle for her quick thinking.
Ian reflects on the rare moment of being completely alone with Annabelle as they move through the market.
A sudden rhythmic thump sounds as Ian clenches his fist, heart racing at the thought of their proximity. Ian breaks his silence to ask Annabelle the true reason behind her presence at the black market.
Annabelle reveals she is searching for Lear, suspecting he may have sought refuge with the owner of this establishment.
Ian attempts to explain his mission for Prince Robert, but Annabelle dismisses his reasons as unimportant to her.
Ian is taken aback by her lack of interest, while Annabelle privately assumes his motives are likely just.
Annabelle considers Robert's sneaky nature, trusting that he is clever enough to avoid being caught by the managers.
Annabelle worries that while Robert and Aaron have their own ways of blending in, Ian's honesty remains their biggest liability.
Annabelle decides to watch Ian closely, but Robert interrupts by calling the group's attention to a new discovery.
Robert presents a document identifying the owner as Moriat H., a wealthy figure who frequents top-tier auctions.
Robert describes Moriat as potentially the wealthiest person in the capital, piquing the group's curiosity about meeting him. Robert addresses Annabelle as a young lady, causing her to react with a sudden, sharp gasp of surprise.
Robert suggests they make a bet on which auction room Moriat is most likely to appear in.
Annabelle reads the auction notice and is horrified to find a hidden entrance fee of 30 gold per person.
Annabelle agrees to the bet on the condition that Robert covers the steep entrance fees for their entire group.
Robert effortlessly produces a massive bag of gold, leaving Annabelle stunned by his overwhelming wealth and resources.
Robert heads toward the first auction room, planning to follow the original mission layout even without their usual allies.
Calculations are made regarding the high probability of Moriat and Cullen appearing together at the upcoming auction.
Annabelle takes charge, directing Aaron to investigate the second room while she and Ian head to the third.
Annabelle clings to Ian's arm once more, loudly calling him her destined one to maintain their cover.
A set of summoning magic stone rings is revealed, designed to alert the group whenever someone spots Moriat.
Robert distributes the expensive magical items, leaving Annabelle in awe of his casual display of high-tier wealth.
The group splits up as Robert and Aaron head toward their designated rooms, leaving the main hall behind. Aaron reflects on his role as a subordinate, deciding that following orders is the best course of action for now.
Aaron turns back one last time to tell Annabelle to be careful and avoid getting injured.
Aaron laments that he cannot personally act as her bodyguard given the nature of their undercover operation.
Aaron privately hopes that Moriat isn't in his assigned room, as he prefers to avoid such high-stakes responsibility.
Annabelle waves goodbye to her brother, noting with a mix of nerves and relief that she is finally alone with Ian.
Annabelle prepares to move forward, but Ian stops her with a brief and blunt rejection of her suggestion.
Ian admits that he does not actually dislike her as much as his previous behavior might suggest. Ian begins to confess that being alone with her isn't as unpleasant as he expected, catching her off guard.
Annabelle is baffled by his sudden change in tone, wondering if he is simply overcompensating for being scolded earlier. Ian clarifies that he is simply trying to thank her for saving him from capture the moment they arrived.
Ian acknowledges his own vulnerability, admitting that he likely would have been caught if she hadn't intervened.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle flinches, stunned by Ian's unexpected and sincere expression of gratitude.
Annabelle recalls all the times she saved Ian, realizing she always viewed it as fixing her own mistakes rather than helping him.
Annabelle stammers that her help wasn't intended for him, but Ian insists that her intentions do not diminish.
Ian stands in silent, dignified contemplation, his focused gaze fixed forward through the slits of his red mask.
A sudden rhythmic thump sounds as Annabelle blushes deeply, her heart racing at the weight of Ian's words.
Annabelle is left in a state of internal panic, wondering why a simple thank you is making her feel so overwhelmed.
A formal notice concludes the chapter, highlighting the production team and providing legal protection information for the work.
Ian reaffirms his gratitude, telling Annabelle that regardless of her reasons, he still feels the need to appreciate her.
Annabelle's heart flutters as a sudden, soft thump sounds in her chest.
She questions if a simple thank you could truly be so heart-fluttering.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds from the footsteps of the passing managers.
Ian notices the manager's suspicious movements and suggests they move as well.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Ian urges her to hurry inside room 3.
A diagram shows their split operation with room 3 as the destination.
Narrator notes that they eventually succeed in arresting the slave market operation.
Annabelle worries that the original plot has deviated since Cessian is out there.
Annabelle resolves to devise a proper strategy for their current situation.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as the manager opens the door.
The manager wishes them a good time as they enter the room.
Annabelle observes that the room is full of male slaves and women.
They enter room 3 where slaves of outstanding appearance are being displayed.
Ian asks if she is impressed, but Annabelle admits she is not.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Ian reacts to her lack of interest.
Ian reacts with a startled shout when Annabelle calls all men similar.
Ian asks if appearance truly does not matter to her and men.
A moment of quiet tension passes between them in the room.
Annabelle reflects on seeking revenge before properly greeting her long-lost family.
Annabelle notes she immediately talked about inheritance rights when she met Han. Ian reacts with a startled shout of shock at her blunt ambition. Annabelle asks if her behavior has left him speechless about her tale.
Annabelle admits her strange thoughts almost got her into big trouble earlier.
Ian asks if that made her sad, which she admits was unpleasant. Annabelle resolves not to feel down when something important is coming up. Ian offers to let her punch him to make her feel better.
Ian asks if she likes hitting him and offers himself up again.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle questions his bizarre suggestion.
Ian insists on letting her hit him as she considers the offer.
A sudden soft thump sounds as Annabelle punches Ian's arm with force.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle vows never to hit him again.
A sudden soft thump sounds as Ian's heart flutters from her smile.
Annabelle admits she now wants to get along with her new family.
Annabelle explains her desire for a life different from her own upbringing.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Ian coughs when she mentions him.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Annabelle clarifies her compliment to him.
Annabelle praises him for being a righteous and sensible person to respect. Ian listens silently as Annabelle notes he dislikes people like her.
Annabelle offers to forfeit the final swordsmanship match for his sake.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Ian reacts with pure, shocked disbelief.
Ian asks if the sword and he are truly unnecessary to her.
Annabelle lets out a quiet, soft gasp of surprise at his intense question.
Ian admits his mistake while Annabelle quickly tries to dismiss his concern.
Annabelle explains she is simply looking to try living a normal life.
Annabelle envisions a future filled with romance and a happy marriage together.
Ian stares at her in a moment of quiet intensity.
Ian firmly rejects the idea of her forfeiting their match in room 3. A sudden sharp tap sounds as they are interrupted by the managers.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle grows curious about the newcomer.
A manager welcomes a woman and asks about the condition of the goods.
Footsteps echo with a sudden rhythmic tap as managers discuss the well-prepared auction and the high number of participants expected for the event.
A spotlight flickers to life on the center stage.
The announcer welcomes the guests to the Ronaphodia slave black market.
The market representative, Moriat H., introduces himself while wearing a decorative gold and black mask.
Guests at the tables are impressed by his handsome appearance, wondering if he is even more attractive than the slaves on auction.
Moriat smiles and invites everyone to enjoy the night with the slaves he personally selected, while a woman whispers her curiosity about his face behind the mask.
Annabelle is confused, questioning if the representative came on stage just to deliver such a brief greeting.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle's eye widens in a moment of realization.
Annabelle recalls information about a man who talks to mirrors and only targets people less handsome than himself, identifying such beings as vile threats that must be destroyed.
Annabelle smiles to herself, stating that she finally understands the situation. Annabelle resolves to uncover the truth behind the entire operation. Annabelle watches Moriot, thinking that she can see through his intentions even if others cannot.
Annabelle reflects that strange people have a natural ability to recognize others of their kind. Annabelle decides that now is the perfect time to make her move.
Annabelle excitedly tells Ian she has a great plan, which leaves him completely baffled.
Annabelle tells Ian there is no time to explain and urges him to follow her quickly as he shouts her name in surprise.
Annabelle pushes through the crowd to grab Moriot's arm as a sudden, sharp tap sounds from her movement.
Annabelle demands a moment of Moriot's time, startling him as she grabs his sleeve.
Moriot looks back in confusion, wondering what is happening.
Annabelle flatters Moriot by telling him he is way too handsome.
Annabelle claims that none of the slaves caught her eye and begs him to speak with her instead.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle claims she is searching for the most handsome man in the world.
Moriot asks if she truly believes he is more handsome than all the slaves.
Annabelle confirms that he is even better than the person she previously considered her ideal type.
Moriot asks who she is referring to as a sudden, sharp tap sounds from her gesture. Annabelle points toward the cloaked Ian. Moriot stares intently at Ian in silence.
Annabelle muses that it is difficult to judge who is better looking since they are both wearing masks.
Moriot smiles and acknowledges her point. Moriot suggests that she should check the truth for herself. Annabelle asks if she can take Ian with her, and Moriot readily agrees to the request. A door opens with a sudden sharp tap as they are invited to enter a private room.
They enter a lavish hallway where Annabelle notes that the rumors about Moriot being the richest person in the capital seem accurate. Moriot addresses her as Milady and revisits her claim about looking for the most handsome man.
Moriot smiles and begins to say that the person would be...
Moriot declares me, while manager suddenly sees both Annabelle and Ian. Annabelle calmly questions if his statement was meant to be in the future tense.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Moriot reaches for a partner.
Moriot removes his mask and announces his plan to turn every man more handsome than himself into a slave. Moriot tells them they will regret ever coming to this place.
Ian prepares to resist as a sudden sharp tap sounds from his foot hitting the floor.
Annabelle signals for Ian to wait, telling him it is not time yet. Ian nods and confirms that he understands her instruction.
Moriat turns to a mirror and begins a chant, asking the mirror on the wall. Moriat asks the mirror to identify the most handsome person in the room as a sudden sharp tap sounds.
Moriat demands that the mirror show him that specific face.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as dark energy swirls around the room and Annabelle shouts for Ian to act now.
Ian breaks free from the guards with a sudden sharp tap as they cry out in pain.
Annabelle strikes the guard holding her with a sudden sharp tap.
Moriat is shocked by the sudden retaliation as Annabelle draws her dagger to end the charade.
A dagger whizzes through the air with lethal precision. Moriat reels back in a moment of pure startled shock. The mirror shatters completely as a sudden, loud crash echoes through the room.
Annabelle watches calmly as Ian notes that his strike seemingly missed its mark.
Ian kneels with his sword drawn, stoically declaring that his attack was actually a success.
Annabelle clarifies that her true intention was always to destroy the magic mirror. She explains that Moriat's obsession with the mirror was driven by more than just madness.
Annabelle identifies the shattered object as the true origin of the black magic.
Annabelle realizes the full truth after observing Moriat's desperate expression.
She recalls how Moriat laughed when she complimented his looks over the slaves.
Annabelle notes he seemed to be fishing specifically for those words of praise.
She remembers Leard describing Moriat as a narcissist who only associates with those he deems handsome. She notes he refuses to interact with anyone he considers inferior in appearance.
Annabelle's lips curl into a knowing, confident smile behind her mask.
Annabelle compares Moriat to a fairy tale villain who cannot stand anyone being more beautiful than himself.
She observes the similarities to the Queen in Snow White, noting the mirror's unexplained fate in that story.
Annabelle realizes that as someone from another world, she alone has the knowledge to destroy the mirror.
Annabelle instructs Ian to contact the prince and prepare for a mass arrest now that the magic is broken.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Annabelle reaches for her weapon. Annabelle holds a blade to the manager's throat and demands to know Liard's current location.
Moriat laughs hysterically, mocking Liard's appearance while a sudden, soft gasp of confusion escapes Annabelle. Annabelle wonders if the destruction of the mirror has caused Moriat to lose his mind entirely.
A sudden, sharp tap sounds as Annabelle turns to leave the stunned Ian behind.
Ian stands frozen in a moment of quiet, bewildered silence.
Annabelle reflects on the fall of great powers as she prepares to move on alone.
Annabelle's eyes narrow in a moment of sharp realization.
Ian draws his sword, questioning if he is being lied to as his heart flutters with suspicion.
Annabelle suggests they use the mirror's remnants to find Liard, noting Moriat's visible distress.
Morio panics, frantically questioning if his lack of skincare has made him look worse than Liard. Moriat admits he placed Liard as a manager in room 2, making Annabelle celebrate the success of her plan. Annabelle is surprised to learn that Liard was actually given a management position. Morio explains he was desperate for staff and had no other choice at the time. Annabelle scolds Moriat for his crimes while noting that Liard ultimately received a fitting punishment.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle roughly grabs Moriat by his collar.
Annabelle tells Ian to deliver Moriat to Prince Robert while she prepares to go her own way.
Annabelle realizes that with the black magic neutralized, there is no longer a reason for her and Ian to stay together.
Ian calls out to Annabelle in a sudden, sharp shout of surprise as she turns away.
Ian is left confused, asking why she is suddenly choosing to leave him.
Ian watches her go, urging her to remain careful as she departs.
Annabelle wonders who is more baffled, Ian or the manager whose magical influence has faded.
Ian asks why she even bothered to call for him if she intended to leave so abruptly.
A sudden sharp tap sounds as Annabelle ignores his question and heads for the door.
Annabelle admits to herself that Ian's deception was the key to finding Liard's whereabouts.
Annabelle tells Ian not to worry, reminding him that he is the only person who has ever defeated her in a fight.
A sudden, soft gasp of surprise escapes Ian as he processes her parting words.
Annabelle notes that admitting the truth of her defeat is a significant blow to her pride.
Prince Robert arrives on the scene and commands the immediate arrest of everyone involved in the operation.
Footsteps echo with a sudden rhythmic tap as the guards storm the building to secure the area.
Annabelle notes the prince's timely arrival as Aaron calls out to her in relief.
Aaron catches up to Annabelle, reporting that although Moriat escaped, the rest of the mission was a success.
Aaron announces that they finally caught the culprit.
Liard remains kneeling on the floor with his hands bound.
Annabelle stares at Liard as she realizes his true identity.
Annabelle strikes Liard with a sudden, sharp thud as he grunts.
Aaron tells his sister to be a little more gentle. They discuss Liard's punishment while he laughs hysterically at them.
Liard boasts about his inheritance as Annabelle watches him coldly. Aaron calls out to his sister as she draws her weapon.
A hand grips the hilt of a sword with sudden intensity.
Annabelle sheathes her blade with a sudden, soft metallic clack. She decides that he isn't even worth killing with her sword.
Liard laments his bad luck while Annabelle turns her back.
A hand reaching out is accompanied by a sudden, loud shot.
Prince Robert stops Annabelle's movement with a sudden, light touch.
He asks her to listen to him for just one moment.
Annabelle agrees but insists on kicking the captive one last time.
Robert explains that Leard was a recent recruit found on a list. He notes that the other managers died after the magic faded.
Annabelle listens intently and acknowledges the prince's explanation of events.
Prince Robert reaches for Annabelle's mask to ask a special favor. He removes her mask and tells her he is counting on her.
Annabelle stares at the prince in a moment of silent contemplation.
She sighs and agrees to the request because he is royalty.
Prince Robert smiles brightly and expresses his deep gratitude to her.
Annabelle mentions that she owes him for the paternity test anyway.
She tells him there is no need for any separate thanks. A mysterious laugh echoes through the room from an unknown source.
Robert questions a captive about Moriarty's practice of selecting victims.
The man explains that Moriarty enslaved whoever he thought was handsome.
Robert finds the interrogation to be pointless after the man's rambling.
He asks Annabelle what she plans to do with the captive.
Robert suggests that a quick death would be a total waste.
Annabelle wonders if the prince is openly using a charm spell.
He proposes turning the man over to investigators for long-term agony.
Aaron interrupts their talk to point something out about the prisoner.
He notes that the man already looks completely dead inside.
Both Annabelle and the prince react with a sudden, jarring shock.
A sudden, massive shout of surprise fills the quiet chamber.
Robert feels bad about interfering with Annabelle's goal of revenge.
Annabelle confirms that retribution was indeed her main reason for coming.
She tells the prince she will accept his help with the prisoner.
Robert laments that all their hard work seemingly went to waste.
Annabelle notes that the heavens help those who help themselves anywhere.
She watches the slumped body and decides on a new plan. Annabelle and Aaron prepare to leave the surprise Prince Robert pond.
Robert grabs her sleeve and asks her way for him.
He promises to repay her for the favor she did today.
The prince looks at her with an intense and earnest expression.
Robert accepts her departure with a quiet, understanding nod.
The siblings walk away happily discussing a late-night snack of Shrep.
A grand mansion stands tall under a soft twilight sky as a peaceful atmosphere settles over the grounds.
The purple-haired woman stands alone in the opulent hallway, her attention taken by a sudden, sharp creak sounding. Rapid light footsteps sound as Annabelle rushes toward the woman, who reaches out with an expression of intense relief. A soft rustle sounds as the two women embrace tightly, and Annabelle speaks with a gentle tone.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Annabelle reassures her mother that she is completely unharmed and doing well.
The pink-haired man serves a gourmet meal to Annabelle, lamenting that she had been forced to eat low-quality meat while away.
Aaron explains that despite their father's reputation as a cold businessman, he is actually quite delicate, a fact that surprises Annabelle.
A sudden sharp thud sounds as Aaron describes their mother's harsh personality, while Annabelle laughs, agreeing that she noticed it long ago.
After the meal, the mother asks Annabelle if she would like to go see her new room.
The mother explains that she prepared the largest room with the finest furniture just for her, prompting an excited response from Annabelle.
A sudden rhythmic munching sound fills the air as the family enjoys their dinner together in a light-hearted, chibi-style moment.
Annabelle stands in awe as she enters her new bedroom, which is filled with beautiful roses and elegant decor.
Annabelle joyfully thinks to herself about how incredibly pretty her new room is.
The mother asks if she likes the room, while the father reflects on how his past obsession with money has shifted toward caring for her.
The father holds her hands and promises that she will live a life where she can enjoy everything they have built.
He vows that they will spend precious time together to make up for the years they were apart.
The mother gently tucks Annabelle into bed, wishing her daughter a peaceful and restful sleep.
A narrative bubble reflects on the transition, noting that a completely new life will begin for everyone starting tomorrow.
Annabelle sleeps soundly in her new bed, her face settled into a calm and happy expression.
A full moon hangs high in the dark, starry sky, marking the quiet passage of the night.
The scene shifts to a massive white palace that stands majestically under the night sky.
A man sits bound in a chair, laughing hysterically while insisting to his captors that he is incredibly handsome.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the investigator informs Prince Robert that conducting any further interrogation has become impossible.
Prince Robert watches the prisoner with a grim expression, noting that the man's sanity has been permanently destroyed by dark magic.
The investigator offers an apology for the failure, but the prince questions if the outcome is truly a failure at all. A final note confirms that they were unable to find conclusive evidence, leaving them only with circumstantial proof of the crimes. The scene shifts to the exterior of a building as a new day begins.
Prince Robert stands before a large crowd and addresses the many ominous events that have recently plagued the empire.
Citizens in the crowd whisper among themselves, discussing the horrifying discovery of missing people found dead.
The prince points out the disparity in safety, noting that high-ranking nobles are rarely affected by the crimes occurring in back alleys. He emphasizes that when law and order break down, it is the ordinary citizens who suffer the most.
A sudden, sharp slam sounds as the prince strikes the podium to emphasize his resolve.
Prince Robert declares that there has been a long and difficult fight against the influence of dark magic. He solemnly swears to the crowd that he will do his absolute best to protect the peace of every citizen in the empire.
The prince publicly extends his gratitude to Ian Wade Ross and Annabelle Rainfield for their selfless cooperation in the investigation.
A sudden rhythmic clapping sound rises from the crowd as people wonder if Annabelle has changed or if she was always kind-hearted.
Distant frantic shouts sound outside the mansion as people call out Annabelle's name in a frenzy.
A sudden loud bang sounds as a hand flings the bedroom door open with great force.
A sudden soft rustle sounds as Annabelle wakes up and rubs her eyes, surprised to see her mother and father in her room so early.
A sudden swift rustle sounds as Aaron enters the room and the parents appear visibly distressed about the morning's developments.
The mother holds out a newspaper, frantically asking Annabelle why she would ever go to such a dangerous location.
The newspaper headline announces that Ian Wade Ross and Annabelle Rainfield risked their lives for justice at a slave auction house.
Annabelle is struck by a moment of sharp realization as she reads the report.
She wonders to herself if this public recognition is the repayment that Prince Robert had promised her.
The scene shifts as the mother begins to brush Annabelle's hair with a steady, quiet hand.
Annabelle looks into the mirror and tentatively asks her mother if she is currently angry with her. A sudden low hum sounds as the mother confirms her anger, stating that it would be a lie to claim otherwise.
A sudden, soft gasp sounds as the mother explains that any parent would be worried if their child went to such a dangerous place.
Annabelle looks away with a guilty expression, asking if she has disappointed her mother.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the mother pulls Annabelle into a warm, protective embrace to reassure her.
The mother looks at her daughter with an expression of pure joy and love.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as Annabelle and her mother share a warm, heartfelt embrace.
The scene transitions through day and night as a peaceful routine settles over the mansion. The mother shows Annabelle a rack of new dresses, telling her that many more items are ready for her.
Annabelle looks overwhelmed and points out that there is no more room in her dressing room.
The mother laughs and jokingly suggests building a second dressing room, shocking her daughter. A sudden, sharp creak sounds as Aaron flings the door open to announce that dinner is ready. Annabelle stares in awe at the massive feast spread across the long dining table.
The father serves a giant lobster, proposes adding another table because this one is already full.
He explains that the rare dish required a 2-year reservation and very specific, picky ingredients.
Aaron whispers to his sister, teasingly suggesting she should tell their father the food is not delicious.
Aaron laughs at the thought of making his father cry, but his mother tells him to get lost.
Aaron jokes about being an ungrateful son as he prepares to leave for his early appointment. The father helps Aaron adjust his clothes, advising him to keep his mouth shut to ensure things go fine.
The mother suggests Aaron buy flowers and tell his date the saintess is more beautiful than any bloom.
Aaron and Annabelle look skeptical of their mother's dramatic and old-fashioned dating advice.
The mother insists her methods work for her, while Aaron wonders if his father was actually a dragon.
A sudden rhythmic laughter sounds as Annabelle finds her family's banter genuinely hilarious.
A sudden soft rustle sounds as two hands meet in a gentle and promising clasp.
Narrative panels reveal that Aaron and the girl became a happy couple with their parents' blessing.
Annabelle reflects on how happy the family would be to have a benefactor as a prospective daughter-in-law.
A sudden sharp gasp sounds as an elderly priest reacts with shock to a new development.
Annabelle contemplates how her arrival successfully changed the original story's doomed and tragic romance path. Aaron expresses his relief at finding a good match, while Annabelle thinks Cecian is a perfect fit.
Aaron mentions that Cecian wants to meet later to discuss a strange prophecy she received.
Annabelle stares into her wine glass, suspecting the prophecy is related to the destroyed dark magic.
A sudden, sharp thud sounds as Annabelle clenches her fist, focusing on her true goal.
She reflects on her unresolved desire for revenge against Lynella for selling her to Caitlin.
A dark and heavy atmosphere settles over her thoughts as she remembers her past suffering.
The scene shifts as the afternoon sun shines through the bright green leaves of a tree.
The grand mansion stands tall and inviting under a clear and bright afternoon sky.
Cecian arrives at the mansion and thanks the family for their very kind invitation.
The mother warmly welcomes the saintess back, expressing how honored they are by her visit.
Cecian asks to be addressed comfortably by her name, which prompts a delighted response from the group.
A sudden, soft rustle sounds as the mother leads their guest toward the prepared refreshments.
A colorful assortment of gourmet cupcakes and macarons is served on elegant white plates. Cecian takes a bite and expresses her genuine delight at how delicious the treats are.
The father offers to pack some snacks for her to take home after her visit. Annabelle encourages the saintess to take some to share with others, noting that good things are meant for sharing. Cecian looks down with a modest smile and gratefully accepts the family's generous offer. A sudden, rhythmic clinking sounds as Cecian sets her tea down to share a story.
She admits that healing dark magic for the first time made her feel a strange closeness to Aaron.
Cecian explains she felt a deep connection that made her eager to accept the invitation.
Annabelle listens intently, wondering about the deeper meaning and implications behind this new connection.
A narrative bubble questions if this bond is why Ian and Cecian were destined in the original.
A vision of the original plot shows Cecian trapped in a tragic situation involving Richard.
The scene contrasts current peace with the original fate where Cecian was meant to be with Ian.
Narrative text notes that Aaron's family status is currently second only to the powerful Wade Ross house.
It explains that status boundaries will blur once Prince Robert ascends to the imperial throne. A sudden rhythmic munching sound fills the air as Annabelle decides this match is good for everyone. Annabelle notes how much faster Aaron and Cecian are progressing compared to the original story.
The mother asks Cecian what urgent matter she needs to discuss with her daughter.
Cecian takes a serious and somber expression as she prepares to deliver her news. Cecian explains that she received a divine prophecy specifically related to Annabelle. Annabelle wonders to herself if the gods have revealed her secret past and true nature to the Saintess. A narrative bubble reflects on Annabelle's identity as a former minor villain who now possesses memories of a past life. Cecian continues her explanation, focusing on the details of the revelation she received. Cecian reveals that the prophecy describes Annabelle as having eyes that can see the origins of dark magic.
A narrative beat follows as the implications of the revelation settle over the group.
Cecian continues her explanation, mentioning what she heard regarding the gift the Lord provided. A vision of a shattered mirror illustrates the theological understanding that the source of dark magic was recently destroyed.
While Annabelle left with Aaron, Prince Robert consulted Ian Wade Ross about the true nature of the events.
Narrative text notes that the information released to the public was fundamentally different from what actually occurred.
The prince addresses the crowd, keeping the specific truth about the dark magic's origin a closely guarded secret.
Cecian asks for confirmation, while Annabelle realizes she cannot hide the truth from her friend any longer. Aaron admits he suspected Ian's report was unusual, but never imagined his sister possessed such a rare ability. Annabelle looks thoughtful as she realizes Ian framed the report that way to protect her true powers from discovery. She imagines the danger she would face from dark magic users if the truth about her eyes ever became public knowledge.
Annabelle fears for her family's safety, knowing she could be targeted by those wishing to exploit her unique gift.
Two hands meet in a firm and supportive clasp to emphasize a bond of shared secrecy. The mother pleads with Cecian to keep this information a secret, terrified of the danger her daughter might face.
Annabelle bows her head and promises her mother that the secret will not go beyond their small group.
Cecian adds that the Lord has specifically requested Annabelle's help in destroying the two remaining origins of dark magic.
A vision of glowing hands holding a brilliant light symbolizes the divine task set before Annabelle.
Cecian pledges to pray for Annabelle as she carries out her duty to protect the world from chaos.
The mother's anxiety persists as she asks if there were any other witnesses to Annabelle's power at the scene.
Annabelle identifies Ian Wade Ross as the only other person who knows about her special ability.
Aaron suggests that his sister and Cecian should go to the Wade Ross residence together to meet with him.
Annabelle is hesitant to go, but Aaron points out that she has visited the Duke's residence daily for the past 8 years.
Annabelle turns away sharply, declaring she is a new person who no longer follows her old obsessive habits.
A narrative bubble jokes that the Wade Ross Knights have lost their primary source of daily entertainment.
Aaron wonders if Ian is also aware of the origins of dark magic and his part in the prophecy. Aaron mentions that Leslie also wants to see Annabelle, catching his sister completely off guard.
Annabelle feels a sudden wave of guilt for completely forgetting to visit her first true friend.
She remembers Leslie as the first person who treated her with kindness when she was still a social outcast.
Annabelle resolves to visit Leslie immediately to thank her for her role in reuniting the family. The group reaches a final agreement for Aaron to lead the way to the Duke's residence the following day.
Time passes as the scene shifts toward a clear and bright afternoon.
The sun rises over the grand mansion, marking the start of a new and eventful morning.
A letter from Leslie Wade Ross requests that Annabelle bring her training clothes and sword to the training grounds. Annabelle reads the unexpected message with an expression of shock and deep confusion. She is disappointed that she will not be able to visit while properly dressed up for the occasion. Aaron notices his sister's distress and asks what could be wrong with Leslie's simple invitation.
Aaron looks away nervously as he prepares to explain the significance of the training request.
He explains that Leslie has not picked up a sword since her leg injury, making this request very serious.
Annabelle is stunned to realize that Leslie wants to see her specifically demonstrate her skill with a sword.
The two siblings begin their walk through the gardens toward the training grounds at the Duke's estate. Annabelle worries that her presence might be embarrassing given how rudely she used to treat Ian in the past. Aaron insists he is proud to be with her, though Annabelle suspects he is secretly enjoying the potential awkwardness.
Aaron laughs nervously and admits that he does find the current situation somewhat entertaining.
Annabelle's presence at the training grounds immediately draws the attention of those who still hold on to old grudges.
Aaron tries to lighten the mood with a joke, though Annabelle finds his timing more annoying than helpful. A sudden, sharp clatter sounds as the training knights pause to observe the former antagonist's arrival. The crowd whispers about her name change to Rainfield, skeptically wondering if she has returned to start another fight.
Annabelle awkwardly clarifies her peaceful intentions while Aaron stands by, ready to support her transformation.
Aaron dramatically boasts about his sister's redemption and her recent cooperation with Ian to dismantle the slave market.
The knights express a collective sense of disappointment when they realize there won't be any public sparring today. Annabelle is genuinely surprised to find that her former habit of picking fights was actually a source of entertainment for others. The wide expanse of the training grounds remains busy with the steady rhythm of practice and drills.
Annabelle spots Ian Ross at a distance, causing a sudden spike of nervous recognition.
She reflects on how strange it feels to simply watch him rather than launching her usual ambush. Ian begins to turn his head just as a familiar voice calls out Annabelle's name.
A sudden rhythmic clicking sounds as Leslie Wade Ross approaches with an elegant and welcoming smile. Leslie warmly congratulates Annabelle on her new family name and officially welcomes her to the estate. Annabelle expresses her deep gratitude for Leslie's role in her reunion, though Leslie remains modest about her influence.
Leslie notices that Annabelle's equipment has changed, sparking a discussion about her past weaponry.
She recalls a previous encounter where she observed Annabelle's swordsmanship while searching for snacks.
Annabelle admits that her previous mother, Caitlin, only provided her with the cheapest and most fragile swords available. Leslie is horrified to learn that Annabelle had been training with subpar tools that hindered her natural talent. A sudden, sharp huff sounds as Leslie becomes indignant on Annabelle's behalf. Talk about a cut-rate education. Leslie reveals that the true purpose of her invitation is to address the solid foundation she sees in Annabelle's skills.
She analyzes past tournament footage, noting that flashy moves often obscured the underlying technical flaws.
Leslie critiques Annabelle's basic stance, suggesting that her early training was likely handled by an incompetent teacher. The conversation takes a serious turn as Leslie warns that Annabelle will never surpass Ian without fixing these core issues.
A narrative transition occurs as the story moves into a new phase of development and training.
Leslie reiterates her harsh but honest conclusion, challenging Annabelle to reach a higher level of mastery.
Despite the bluntness of the critique, Annabelle finds comfort in the truth behind Leslie's words.
Annabelle reflects on her history of uneven matches with Ian, realizing her growth has been systematically stunted.
A vision shows Ian's privileged upbringing where he was blessed with master teachers and legendary weapons.
His legacy was solidified upon reaching adulthood when he finally inherited the legendary Ross family sword. Leslie identifies 3 crucial gaps in Annabelle's technique: her posture, her agility, and her stealth.
She notes that these are the exact same hurdles she once faced when comparing herself to the skilled Braden.
Annabelle is stunned into silence when Leslie offers to personally oversee her training and correct her mistakes. The prospect of receiving lessons from a master leaves Annabelle in a state of ecstatic disbelief.
Annabelle internally vows to seize this opportunity regardless of the motive behind Leslie's offer.
She understands that passing up such a rare opportunity would be a choice she'd live to regret.
Leslie stands with a regal and satisfied expression, having set a new path for her friend's development. Leslie turns her attention toward the training grounds, calling Ian over to join the group. Ian Ross complies with his mother's request, moving toward the group with his usual disciplined gait.
Aaron immediately teases Ian about his unusually polished and well-groomed appearance for a training day.
A sudden, soft chuckle sounds as Aaron jokes about Ian trying to look stunning for their visit. Someone spent too much time in the mirror.
Annabelle joins in the teasing, confirming that Ian definitely looks like he put extra effort into his style today.
She reminds him that her 8 years of obsessive observation make it impossible for him to hide any subtle changes.
Ian becomes visibly flustered, struggling to maintain his composure under their combined and knowing scrutiny.
Leslie signals for a servant to bring forward a special item she has prepared for the occasion. A sudden, sharp click sounds as Leslie reveals a magnificent, high-quality sword intended specifically for Annabelle.
Annabelle is amazed by the weapon's incredible balance as Leslie explains it was a gift once given by Braden. A sudden, firm grasp sounds as Annabelle grips the hilt, feeling a precision she has never known before.
Leslie formally presents the sword as a gift to help Annabelle reach her true potential as a warrior.
Annabelle looks up with wide eyes, overwhelmed by the generosity and the immense value of the precious gift.
Leslie explains that Ian needs a worthy rival to grow and officially welcomes Annabelle's display of chivalry.
Annabelle reflects deeply on the meaning of chivalry as she considers her place at the estate.
Leslie tells Annabelle not to feel pressured, explaining she is giving her the sword so they can compete on equal terms. A sudden, light tap sounds.
Leslie recalls receiving the sword from Braden for her last tournament after years of using cheap equipment.
A flashback shows Leslie's past injury that prevented her from ever using the gift in a real match.
Leslie notes that the sword is practically brand new, prompting a moment of silent contemplation from Annabelle.
Leslie insists that a sword belongs in the hands of a warrior rather than sitting as a decoration.
Annabelle asks if it is truly acceptable to use the Duke's gift, but Leslie reassures her that Braden wouldn't mind.
Leslie laughs while recalling Braden's wish to pass the sword to a daughter-in-law, doubting any woman would want such a gift.
Leslie critiques Braden's lack of tact regarding gifts while Annabelle joins her in lighthearted laughter.
Annabelle decides to gratefully accept the magnificent weapon instead of letting it remain unused.
Leslie suggests they begin training immediately to test Annabelle's skills. A sudden, sharp snap sounds.
Annabelle regrets not training more consistently while she was preoccupied with her family reunion.
A narrative box notes that she slacked off on her practice after losing her obsessive goal of defeating Ian.
A narrative box explains how she spent her days enjoying the company of her family instead of swordsmanship.
A narrative box reveals she only just realized her previous focus was entirely limited to beating Ian.
A narrative box describes her genuine excitement at the prospect of receiving proper lessons.
A narrative box mentions her lingering dislike for her previous life's choices.
Leslie introduces the postures of basic swordsmanship and tasks Ian with demonstrating them for Annabelle.
Leslie instructs Annabelle to watch Ian closely and follow his movements exactly to correct her old habits.
Leslie tells Ian to begin his demonstration, and he silently complies with his mother's request.
Ian executes a swift and powerful sword movement across the training grounds. A sudden, sharp swoosh sounds.
The observing knights praise Ian's perfect form, calling him a living textbook of technique. A sudden, loud cheer sounds.
Ian continues his demonstration with grace and precision under Annabelle's watchful eyes. A sudden, sharp slice sounds.
Annabelle finds herself distracted by the intensity of Ian's gaze as he moves.
Leslie scolds Ian for his annoyed expression, reminding him that Annabelle's starting point is different from his own.
Aaron asks Leslie to show the Lord some respect, even if he happens to be her son.
Leslie dismisses concerns about Ian's behavior, noting she didn't raise a fool who would fall in love with an enemy.
Ian completes the first chapter of basic swordsmanship with a final discipline strike. A sudden, sharp swish sounds.
Annabelle and the knights are deeply impressed by the display of skill. A sudden, rhythmic clap sounds.
Annabelle prepares herself to attempt the same complex movements Ian just demonstrated.
Annabelle replicates Ian's form with startling and perfect precision. A sudden, sharp rush sounds.
Leslie reacts with visible shock at the ease with which Annabelle mastered the posture.
Leslie exclaims that she has never seen anyone imitate Ian's difficult postures so perfectly.
Annabelle is stunned into silence by the realization that her movements mirrored his exactly.
A narrative box explains that such a feat should be impossible given the weight of her lifelong bad habits.
A flashback shows Cecian in prayer, referencing the words of the deity from their earlier encounter.
A vision confirms that a divine blessing is granted each time a source of dark magic is destroyed.
Annabelle executes another move, questioning the source of her sudden improvement. A sudden, light pant sounds.
She wonders if destroying dark magic granted her the unique ability to perfectly mirror others' movements.
Annabelle's heart races as she feels an urgent desire to test her skills against Ian again. A sudden, rhythmic thud sounds.
Leslie concludes that Annabelle no longer needs posture training given her instant mastery. A sudden, sharp snap sounds.
Leslie proposes an immediate match between Annabelle and Ian to see her progress in action.
A close-up captures Annabelle's determined and joyful smile at the prospect of a fair fight.
Annabelle enthusiastically agrees to the challenge, feeling a surge of genuine excitement.
A narrative transition occurs as the scene fades into the start of the next confrontation.
The story moves forward to the final preparations for the upcoming training match.
Ian and Annabelle take their positions on the field, facing off with their swords ready. A sudden, firm clatter sounds.
Leslie warns both warriors that she will not accept a half-hearted effort from either of them. A sudden, sharp snap sounds. Annabelle questions Ian's previous effort, wondering if he has always been holding back his true strength.
Leslie scolds Ian for holding back during their training session, calling it disrespectful to his opponent.
Ian reveals he was concerned because Annabelle had injured her back recently, much to her surprise.
Annabelle reflects on Ian's thoughtfulness, realizing she would have focused entirely on the fight. Ian raises his sword, pledging that he will not hold back during this confrontation.
The scene shifts to the bright mimosa flowers blooming near the garden tea table.
A narrative box notes that, to cut to the chase, the match was far from a failure. Annabelle sips her tea, acknowledging that her performance was much better than her past losses. A sudden, light gulp sounds.
She recalls a triumphant moment where she managed to corner Ian during their duel.
Annabelle wonders if continuing to destroy dark magic will help her overcome her remaining tactical weaknesses.
She imagines a future where she can finally face Ian on completely equal terms as a warrior.
Aaron asks how Annabelle was able to eliminate all her bad habits simply by practicing a basic stance.
Leslie admits that Annabelle's rapid improvement is so incredible she wouldn't believe it if she hadn't witnessed it.
Annabelle considers telling them the truth, but then decides to keep it simple. Annabelle attributes her success to Leslie's precise guidance and expresses her genuine gratitude.
Annabelle thanks Ian for his help with the demonstration, and he dismisses the praise as being unnecessary.
Ian confesses that for the first time in 8 years, he truly felt tense and enjoyed a sparring match.
Ian encourages Annabelle to continue her training and keep learning well from his mother.
Annabelle is taken aback by Ian's sincere praise, noting she has never seen this side of him before. A narrative box describes how friendships are naturally built over the calm atmosphere of tea and sweets.
A butler interrupts the conversation to deliver an important letter that has just arrived for Lord Ian.
Ian reaches for the letter, noticing it bears the distinct seal of the royal family. Ian reads the invitation, explaining that Prince Robert has requested his presence at the palace.
Leslie reacts with surprise, wondering why the prince would send such an official invitation now.
Ian reveals that Annabelle is also invited so the prince can thank them for the Ranophodia incident.
Annabelle suspects that the prince has a hidden motive and is using the incident as a convenient excuse.
Annabelle asks Ian why she was included in the invitation, but he admits he doesn't know.
Leslie has a sudden realization, claiming her intuition has revealed the true reason behind the prince's actions.
Chibi Leslie suggests the prince invited Ian only because he desperately wanted a chance to see Annabelle again.
Leslie imagines a dramatic and romantic scenario where the prince feels conflicted about his feelings for Annabelle.
Leslie insists that the invitation to both is merely a ruse for the prince to meet with her.
Annabelle rejects the idea of a royal romance, stating her preference for a normal and uncomplicated relationship.
Leslie proudly reminds her that she broke precedent by marrying a duke as a commoner herself.
Leslie tells Annabelle to ignore society's judgment and simply enjoy her life and her newfound wealth.
Annabelle remains uncertain, feeling that Prince Robert's true intentions still haven't been made entirely clear.
Leslie suggests the prince might be testing the waters because of the scandal surrounding Annabelle in high society.
Ian asks his mother since when she developed such a strong interest in society's gossip and romantic speculation.
A sudden rhythmic slide sounds as Leslie looks toward the arriving refreshments.
A narrative box introduces the special treats made by Lord Oscar for the group's tea time.
A maid serves a fresh stack of pancakes while Leslie comments on their exquisite quality.
A sudden, thick pour sounds as golden syrup is drizzled over the top of the pancake stack.
Annabelle stares at the delicious food, trying to maintain her composure. A sudden, soft swallow sounds.
Annabelle resolutely decides she will be an upright member of the Rainfield family and stand by her word.
A narrative box declares that she will no longer live her life with a villainous or selfish mindset.
A sudden, sharp slide sounds as Annabelle pushes the entire plate of pancakes toward Ian.
Ian remembers a past encounter where a masked Annabelle promised to buy him pancakes with extra syrup.
Ian smiles warmly at her gesture. A sudden, soft chuckle sounds.
A narrative box notes Ian's surprise that Annabelle would actually follow through on such a small promise.
A sudden light clink sounds as Ian prepares to enjoy the pancakes she offered him.
Annabelle blushes and insists that she is a completely different person now than she was before.
Chibi Annabelle resolves to simply ask her father to make her more pancakes once she returns home.
Annabelle watches maple syrup being poured. Leslie notes she is using every last drop. A sudden, thick drip sounds.
Leslie is baffled by the mention of a promise.
Ian explains the promise made at the black market regarding his mobility and maple syrup.
Leslie is stunned by Ian's wistful expression and asks him to keep smiling that way.
Chibi Aaron finds Annabelle's deal-making skills impressive as Leslie mentions trading a life for a crustacean shell. A sudden, energetic pop sounds.
Leslie asks Aaron about his relationship with the apprentice saint who performed the paternity test. A sudden, light clap sounds.
Aaron sheepishly confirms that news travels fast. Leslie is surprised that Aaron started dating before his brother and expresses her disbelief.
Aaron reminds Leslie that she should understand her children's romantic behavior given her own history of dating and marriage. Ian reflects on his constant thoughts of Annabelle whether she is present or not. A sudden, quiet pause sounds.
He finds even simple things like pancakes precious when they remind him of her.
A narrative box reveals Ian's growing anxiety at the thought of Annabelle being with someone else.
Ian looks troubled as he admits that imagining her with another man stirs a strange anger. A sudden, heavy thud sounds.
A transition occurs as the scene shifts to signify the start of a new narrative chapter. The perspective moves toward the influential figures watching events unfold from the shadows.
Ian continues his internal monologue about his feelings being like a strange anger welling up inside. A sudden, heavy thump sounds.
Duke Braden works late at his desk in a lavish and well-lit office.
Braden complains about missing Annabelle's visit and considers retiring soon to hand his title to Ian. A sudden, weary sigh sounds.
He pauses and wonders if his son is doing all right.
Braden reflects on Ian's lack of romantic history and his odd, intense interactions with Annabelle.
A narrative box notes that success is unlikely unless Annabelle has a specific taste for lunatics.
Braden smiles as the current situation brings back memories of his own past. A sudden, soft snort sounds.
A romantic frame captures a silhouette of a man and woman dancing together.
Headlines recall Braden's sensational marriage to a commoner and his legendary wooing skills that won over Leslie.
A narrative box predicts they would soon have a daughter-in-law if Ian took after his father.
Braden wonders if Ian instead inherited Leslie's romantic intuition and sense.
He finds it hard to believe his blood would let his son be that oblivious.
Braden notices a significant letter from the royal palace on his desk. He is shocked to find an official palace invitation for Ian and Annabelle.
Braden realizes the rumors about Prince Robert and Annabelle must be causing Ian emotional turmoil. A sudden, knowing grin sounds.
Braden decides he must help his son and begins writing a response. A sudden, rhythmic scratch sounds. The scene shifts to the imposing and cold residence of Marquis Abedith at night.
A young woman asks her brother if he is doing all right.
She brings up the childhood girl he liked who is now with Aaron Rainfield.
The man scorns the idea of caring about someone from the slums or a commoner. A sudden, cold huff sounds.
The girl expresses her lingering resentment over Caitlin's fate and the lack of closure.
She urges him to stop dwelling on the past and focus on their next strategic move. A sudden, impatient click sounds.
Narrative boxes confirm they left no traces after the underground slave market in Ronaphodia collapsed.
The man notes their plans were disrupted and their assets were lost. A sudden, sharp shatter sounds.
The girl questions if the commoner Annabelle is the real wild card in their game.
The man views Annabelle as a tool that could be easily manipulated with a little pressure. The girl asks if Crown Prince Colin is aware of the situation.
The man explains that Callan noticed Robert's speech and likely thinks Annabelle is just an ignorant commoner. A sudden, quiet rasp sounds.
A secret correspondence from the Crown Prince is produced.
The man reads that the Crown Prince believes Annabelle will eventually back out on her own. A sudden, light rustle sounds.
He decides to monitor her to see if she becomes a true obstacle to their plans.
The man notes Annabelle's troublemaking and the danger of Prince Robert's rising approval ratings. A sudden, sharp exhale sounds.
An ominous darkness looms as the threat of the Crown Prince's fury grows.
Annabelle returns home to find her brother and mother waiting for her in the hall.
Her mother frantically presents the invitation from the palace and asks how it happened. A sudden, rapid dash sounds.
Annabelle tells her family not to worry, promising to avoid any potential political motives.
Oscar warns her that the royal family could strip away her freedom and turn her into a puppet.
Caitlin agrees with him, expressing her fear that rumors might cause Annabelle harm.
Aaron adds his disapproval, noting that the palace is far too dull for his sister.
Annabelle is overwhelmed by the heavy and serious atmosphere her family has suddenly created. Annabelle is flabbergasted that they are taking the rumors about Prince Robert so seriously.
A sudden, light clink sounds as a teacup is set down.
Annabelle tries to reassure them by stating she has no involvement with Prince Robert. Aaron and Caitlin counter by listing their many public outings and the prince's recent help.
Annabelle argues there is nothing between them, comparing their relationship to a pine tree and bread.
Caitlin slams a dagger into the table, refusing to accept that Annabelle is locking in any way.
Annabelle nervously notes the glowing blade while admitting her minor flaws aren't the issue.
Oscar wonders if her commoner status is what's making things complicated with the prince.
Oscar regrets not buying a title in the provinces as his twin brother once did.
Caitlin explains that Oscar's twin left the orphanage early because he craved money and power.
Oscar admits that while he wanted a quiet life, losing his daughter made him value wealth.
He clarifies they don't keep in touch with the twin, though there is no resentment.
Oscar continues to apologize, but Annabelle reminds him he never would have met her mother otherwise.
Annabelle takes her father's hands, asserting that his status as her dad is all that matters.
Annabelle reiterates once more that nothing is going on between her and the prince.
Annabelle makes a grand and dramatic gesture to emphasize her lack of royal feelings.
A sudden, soft sigh sounds as Annabelle prepares to make an unexpected confession.
Annabelle shocks her family by declaring she would much rather marry Ian Wade Ross.
Caitlin and Aaron are immediately relieved and celebrate the news that the prince rumors are false. Caitlin shifts the conversation to the elegant dress Annabelle must wear to the palace visit.
A sudden light brush sounds as Oscar wipes away a tear of pure relief. A narrative box notes that her family truly only cares about Annabelle's happiness.
Aaron suggests making a late-night snack, which Oscar thinks is a fantastic idea.
Annabelle smiles warmly, realizing her family prioritizes her joy over any social or royal advantage.
The family gathers around Annabelle with dresses and a tray of bread to celebrate.
A man in a dark blue uniform commands his attendants to prepare everything for an arrival.
The man smirks through his glasses, announcing that the Crown Prince will be returning soon. The curtain falls as the first season of the narrative officially concludes.
A final announcement provides details about the group and their upcoming updates.